Hello everyone, and welcome to another video of FanFic Canon. Before we dive in, I want to remind you to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy our content. It really helps a lot. Also, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section below. Let's get started.
No, how could I be a lizard man? That would be way too ugly. Gwen immediately dismissed the ridiculous thought. Ugh. Jean groaned as he bent his arm, attempting to push himself up from the ground. Still moving? Guess you're tougher than you look. Gwen flexed her slender legs, preparing to strike again and make sure he stayed down. Wand. A sudden sensation overwhelmed her. Not a danger warning, but something else entirely. Lee. Her masked face lit up with surprise. He's calling me. Without hesitation, Gwen abandoned Jean Bin, sinking into her own shadow and darting toward the location where Yi Li had sent his spiritual signal. Hey lady. At least tie him up first. Peter watched in exasperation as Jean Bin struggled to rise again. Fortunately, Miles rushed in at that moment, grabbed Jean Bin, and dragged him away. Wait, Miles. You have to destroy that collider first. Peter shouted from Miles' arms. Later. If we stay, you're gonna die. Miles had nearly seen Peter get killed once already. He wasn't about to let it happen again. Besides, there seemed to be others like us. That woman just now, she was strong. That was an accident, Peter muttered. I don't know what's up with her, but Spider-Men aren't exactly selling hot dogs on every street corner. Boom. A heavy thud interrupted him. A man in a red and blue Spider-Man suit crashed down in front of them. Ah. Miles pointed at the unconscious figure. Peter. Peter fell silent for a moment. That's probably just a really big fan of mine. You do realize he looks exactly like you, right? Ha. Peter narrowed his eyes. Yeah, that's weird. The man groaned, then stood up, rubbing his head. He glanced between them and frowned. Where am I? And why do you look just like me? A clone. I think it's Jean Bin's particle collider, Peter from Universe 42 deduced, straightening up despite his injuries. That woman might be another Spider-Man from a parallel universe. Miles hesitated. Wait. So she's actually just a girl version of you? Peter 42 coughed violently. Not exactly. More like a female Spider-Man. Don't forget, you're a Spider-Man too. There are too many Spider-Men. Feels like I'm not even needed anymore. Miles mumbled, stepping back, overwhelmed by it all. Hold on, Jean Bin. Parallel universes? Can someone explain this to me? The middle-aged Peter interjected, looking increasingly confused. No time. We need to get out of here. Miles hoisted Peter 42 up and sprinted away. All right, fine. The middle-aged Peter sighed and followed suit. Not long after they left, a group of shadowy figures emerged from the ruins. Prowler. Green Goblin. Dr. Octopus. Tombstone. Scorpion. Jean Bin's most powerful enforcers. Kill Spider-Man. Especially that woman. Jean Bin's roar echoed through the wreckage. A high-end hotel room. A soft ripple disturbed the shadow on the ceiling. Turquoise toes peeked through first, followed by a slender figure falling gracefully, straight into Yi Li's arms. Li. Warmth, softness, the scent of her hair. He instinctively tightened his embrace, inhaling her familiar fragrance. Missed me. Gwen nodded rapidly. Why did you take so long? Yi Li smiled. A few unexpected complications. Let me explain. Still holding her, he moved to the edge of the bed and whispered the details of what had happened. Gwen listened intently, eyes widening. So, those kinds of beings actually exist? Yi Li nodded grimly. Yeah. Lee, we need to go back, quickly. Gwen's expression turned serious. Skye warned me before I left. Dr. Helen is in danger. Don't worry. I'll adjust the time node before we return, Yi Li reassured her. For now, it's too risky. He knew he needed to grow stronger before returning to his original universe. Taking unnecessary risks wasn't an option. But breaking through to the next level of power wasn't easy. His strength had reached a bottleneck. No matter how much he stacked his abilities, it wasn't translating into true qualitative change. It was like trying to bridge the gap between two dimensions. No matter how much force one applied, it wouldn't be enough to transcend into a higher existence. He needed a key, a breakthrough reward that could allow him to cross this threshold. So what now? Gwen asked, leaning in closer. Her blue eyes shimmered like the ocean, her pink lips practically calling to him. Yeely hadn't had any real rest in days. Seeing her like this, so close, so tempting, his control snapped. He wrapped an arm around her waist and flipped her onto the bed. First, we do this. Wait. Meanwhile, Miles dashed through an alley, glancing frantically in both directions. Left? Right? Which way? The middle-aged Peter landed beside him with a thwip. Why are you asking me? I'm not from this world. Peter 42, still in Miles' arms, pointed left. Go that way. I have a temporary base there. Got it. Miles pivoted and sprinted. Click, 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 click. A rapid clatter echoed above them. Miles looked up, and his heart nearly stopped. Dr. Octopus. Spider-Man, Spider-Man. Hello. Before they could react, her mechanical tentacles shot forward, striking down at them. Boom. 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 Tentacles smashed into the ground, cratering the pavement. Miles and the middle-aged Peter barely managed to dodge. The middle-aged Peter yelped. I didn't even do anything. Peter Parker. More figures emerged from the shadows. Prowler. Tombstone. They lunged straight at the middle-aged Peter. Hey, hey. Are you listening to me? He shouted, dodging blows while fending them off. Meanwhile, Miles was faring even worse. Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, and Scorpion closed in from 3 directions, completely trapping him. He had just become Spider-Man. He was carrying Peter 42. He was completely outmatched. He tried to resist, only to be swatted to the ground by Green Goblin's monstrous strength. Thud. Too weak. Scorpion loomed over him, pincers clamping shut menacingly. Tell me, where is the female Spider-Man? Hey, are you talking about me? A clear, youthful voice suddenly rang out. Everyone turned in unison, their gazes locking onto the speaker. A petite Asian girl clad in a JK uniform, carrying a small navy blue school bag. She looked innocent, almost too cute to be in such a dangerous situation. Scorpion narrowed his eyes and turned to the Prowler. This her? The Prowler silently shook his head. Looks like a clueless little brat who doesn't know when to run. Scorpion sneered at the JK-clad girl, his tone menacing. Kid, I don't have time for games. I'll give you 3 seconds, get lost. We're not here for superhero roleplay. The girl merely folded her arms. You were looking for a female Spider-Man, right? She smirked. That would be me. Click. Scorpion lost his patience. His pincers clicked open, lunging straight for her. You're asking for it. Clang. A red and blue mechanical arm shot out from the alley, intercepting Scorpion's attack with a resounding clash of metal. Only then did everyone notice the hulking silhouette behind the girl, a round-bodied robot with slender limbs emerging from the shadows. Allow me to introduce myself properly, the girl announced as she effortlessly flipped backward, landing gracefully inside the robot's open hatch. My name is Penny Parker, and this is my partner, SP//Dr. Pleased to meet you. The robot's arms transformed, deploying a wheel-like blade that sliced through Scorpion's remaining pincer, freeing Miles in an instant. Damn it. Another Spider-Man. Scorpion hissed in rage. Dr. Octopus, the quickest to grasp the situation, launched a mechanical tentacle toward SP//Dr. Take her down. The others snapped to attention, reacting instantly. With the Prowler still locked in combat against the middle-aged Peter, the remaining villains, Green Goblin, Tombstone, and Scorpion, rushed at SP//Dr. with ruthless precision. Just then, another dark figure swung in on a web, swooping past them and snatching up Universe 42's Peter from the ground. Another one. Don't let them escape. Dr. Octopus bellowed. Oh, there's more than just one. A new voice chimed in. A small comical figure appeared, a pig in a Spider-Man suit. Before anyone could process the absurdity, the pig-like Spider-Man swiftly broke the pincers binding Miles, yanking him free. Tombstone turned to intercept, but it was already too late. Why the hell are there so many Spider-Men? Dr. Octopus shouted in sheer disbelief. You guys got tricked, just a little. Penny Parker's mischievous voice echoed from within SP//Dr. as the robot's digital screen displayed a smug electronic expression. Boom. Green Goblin crashed into SP//Dr with brutal force, the impact rattling the mechanical suit. The robot creaked under the pressure, its joints groaning. Guess I'll just get rid of you first. Seeing Penny's robot restrained, Scorpion, now one pincer short, lashed out with his tail, shattering SP//Dr's glass screen. With a violent jerk, he ripped open the entire cockpit hatch, exposing Penny inside. Oh no! Penny's face paled as she instinctively shrank back, wide eyes brimming with fear. But the villains had no mercy. Scorpion's last remaining pincer shot forward, clamping around her slender throat, preparing to crush it. "Peter Parker!" she cried out desperately. A blur of motion answered her call. Spider-Ham, yes, the pig, smashed into Scorpion with full force, knocking him away and freeing Penny. Dr. Octopus lashed out in retaliation. "You filthy pig!" But another dark-clad figure intervened, kicking the tentacle away before it could reach them. Shadow Spider-Man. A man dressed in noir-style black attire, his appearance exuding an air of mystery. He was the Peter Parker of Earth, 90214. He, along with Penny Parker from Earth, 14512 and Peter Porker from Earth, 8311, had stumbled upon the chaos unfolding around Miles and his team, and immediately jumped in to help. For a moment, the battlefield paused. Then, all hell broke loose. A chaotic melee erupted between Spider-Men and villains. On one side, Dr. Octopus, Green Goblin, Scorpion, Tombstone, and Prowler. On the other, Peter from Universe 42, Middle-Aged Peter, Shadow Spider-Man, Penny Parker, Spider-Ham, and Miles. At first glance, it seemed the Spider-Men had the numbers advantage. But Universe 42's Peter was still badly injured. Penny's SP//DR was crippled. Not only were they unable to contribute much, but the others had to defend them. Miles, still an amateur, struggled with his own powers, his static electric webbing sticking him in place at the worst moments. Which meant only middle-aged Peter, Shadow Spider-Man, and Spider-Ham were truly battle-ready. The fight turned against them fast. Forced on the defensive, they retreated street by street, trying to escape the villains' relentless pursuit. Meanwhile, across New York, news reports erupted. Breaking news: superpowered battle erupts in Brooklyn. Reports confirm multiple Spider-Men engaging in combat against known supervillains, including the Green Goblin. More details to follow. Elsewhere in a luxurious penthouse, a young woman lounged on a plush sofa, half listening to the blaring news broadcast. Gonata idly twirled a snow-white apple in her fingers, her expression unreadable. She wasn't interested in the fight itself. No, she had the volume cranked up to drown out the far more distracting noises coming from the bedroom. She pursed her lips. They're being really loud. Her mind drifted to a different kind of hunger. She licked her lips at the thought of a certain buffet. Unable to resist, she got up and leaned against the bedroom door, listening closely. Judging by the rhythm, it wouldn't be long now. MMM. A muffled moan slipped through the door. Gonata grinned. Sounds like Gwen's enjoying herself. Guess it's time for my turn. Without a second thought, she phased straight through the door.
Gonata, seeing Tunmei rushing in suddenly, Yeli couldn't help but pause. Away from. In a daze, Gwen moved her beautiful smooth feet, and her snow-white toes pinched his nose. Don't make trouble. Yeli moved her feet away, and then asked Tunmei suspiciously, what are you doing here? That. Gonata stared at a certain place, wiped her tongue with her pink lips, pointed her index finger on her small mouth, and said, help yourself. You still want to? Yeli pulled back. Tunmei nodded obediently, yeah, okay. Yeli was very generous. 030. Where are you going? Tombstone flew a few steps, threw himself at the Shadow Spider-Man, and punched him. Peter Poke tried his best to avoid it, but he was trapped by the octopus robot arm and became a dumpling under the mixed doubles of Octopus Bow and Scorpion. The middle-aged Peter was also held tightly by the Green Goblin's big hand, and he couldn't breathe. Miles, on the other hand, carried Peter of Universe 42 on his back, and ran desperately under the pursuit of the Prowlers. In fact, the Prowler is Miles' Uncle Alan. If he hadn't recognized Miles as his nephew and released the water intentionally, the two of them would have been caught too. Now, only Penny Parker is left with time. But she's only carrying the wreckage of a SB//DR robot, and she can't help much. After all her skills are in the robot, and if the robot is dismantled, she will be blinded. Only you are left. Dr. Octopus grabbed Penny Parker with another mechanical tentacle. Without any suspense, the girl was successfully strangled by her. Seeing this, Peter Poke hurriedly shouted, stop, don't bully a little girl. Shut up, pig. Dr. Octopus tightened his grip on it. The little pig screamed, and the bones made a crisp sound. It's a pity to kill the talking pig just like that. Dr. Octopus didn't really strangle Peter Poke to death. This talking pig is of great research value to her. As for you, it seems that there is nothing special, so go to die now. She brought Penny Parker up to her eyes and looked at it. After she felt that it was worthless, she threw it hard and threw the girl high into the air. Don't look. If you throw it so high, you will definitely fall to your death. Shadow Spider-Man, Penny. Middle-aged Peter, no. Miles, no, that girl. The three of them screamed in unison, and rushed to save others. But the villains will not agree. The Green Goblin clicked and squeezed, and the middle-aged Peter's bones suddenly broke. The Prowler also stopped Miles, who wanted to go around. See, the situation is not good. The Shadow Spider-Man suddenly broke out, kicking the tombstone. Get out. Then he turned up and punched the tombstone with a set of combined punches, then cobweb shot and stuck to a car, smashed it down like a pop hammer, and buried the tombstone under it. Just look up. Penny Parker has already smashed a glass window of a high-end hotel and fell into a high-rise room, and her life is unknown. Asshole. The Shadow Spider-Man was furious at the moment, rushed to Dr. Octopus, pulled out a silver revolver from his waist, and she shot continuously. Clang, 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 a few times. Dr. Octopus blocked all the bullets, and was not afraid of the angry Shadow Spider-Man. He said with great interest, "No matter how powerful you are, can you hit 3 with 1 shot?" As she spoke, she threw the paralyzed Peter Poke to the ground, and surrounded him with the scorpion. The Green Goblin also let go of the bone-shattered middle-aged Peter, coming this way. 0. How will you know if you don't try? Although the Shadow Spider-Man knew he was invincible, he rushed forward without hesitation. And the other side. The moment Penny Parker smashed the glass window, several bloodstains were drawn on her body by the shattered glass shards. Just when she thought she was going to die, she suddenly felt a soft force lift her up, and then she felt her body fall into a warm embrace. Penny Parker opened her watery eyes, and saw an unusually handsome big brother who put his hand on her skin and stroked it little by little. Wherever the palm passed by, the bloodstains immediately healed and disappeared, leaving nothing behind. Little trace. The girl understood that the other party was treating her, and while being grateful, she was also a little shy. This was the first time she was touched all over her body by the opposite sex. What's more, this handsome brother, who seemed to have just woken up, was actually bare-chested. Seeing his perfect and well-proportioned figure, her head went blank for a moment, and her little heart was pounding. After Yelly healed Penny Parker's injury, he smiled and said, "Little sister, you look familiar." Penny Parker thought he was trying to strike up a conversation, rubbed her hair with her fingertips, turned her head shyly and said 3.1, "My name is Penny Parker, pretty brother, where have you met me?" 11. Only. As soon as the girl turned her head, her face flushed like a small apple. Because, a very beautiful young lady with blonde hair is sleeping lazily on the bed, in an indescribable mess. In short, the picture of this scene is very unsuitable for children and full of impact. Penny Parker couldn't help but let out a coquettish cry, and quickly turned her head to the other side. But the scene on the other side almost made her faint with shame. I see. A beautiful young lady with black hair and purple eyes was enjoying the meal to the fullest. Those seductive red lips are like cherries stained with cream. Penny Parker could see clearly every time she held her head up and savored the delicious. This is. Little Lolita's face was blushing to the extreme, and her skin was as hot as boiling an egg. This is the first time in her life that she has seen such a scene. See Penny Parker, look over here. Gonada was not embarrassed either. She blinked her beautiful purple eyes and greeted vaguely. Hiya. Boom, boom. The Shadow Spider-Man was thrown back and forth by the three of Dr. Octopus like a rubber ball, and the windbreaker on his body was completely torn. How about it, Mr. Black Spider-Man, do you still want to resist? Dr. Octopus joked. 12. Wow. Shadow Spider-Man spat out a mouthful of blood, staining the ground in a puddle. But he still didn't give up, stood up with force, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and said with a sad smile, "I have encountered worse situations than this. You are nothing." Really? I see how stubborn you are after you turned into a corpse. Dr. Octopus looked slightly cold. Green Goblin, kill him. Suddenly, the Green Goblin's huge figure came oppressively. In the current state of the Shadow Spider-Man, there is no ability to dodge at all. A huge fist landed directly on him. Pang! With a muffled sound, the picture seemed to turn black and white. Miles and the others all had sad expressions on their faces. Because the Shadow Spider-Man didn't get up again, and fell to the ground, his whole body was as soft as mud. Hee haha. A black enlarged classic car drove to the scene. He opened the car door and got out, laughing heartily. "Spider-Man, how do you feel?" Bin. Miles knew that he would not be able to run away, so he put Peter from the 42 universe next to a street lamp, and then mustered up his courage, and ran straight to Jinbing with indignation. With a long howl, the little black spider felt its own small universe burst out, and raised its left hand like a bamboo pole, and flew towards its head. Jin sneered disdainfully, "The real Spider-Man is no match for me, it depends on you." Snapped. He grabbed Miles' hand with his big hand, and threw Miles back with his backhand, knocking the lamppost out of an arc. Miles let out a miserable cry, but fortunately he was more resistant to beatings, and there was nothing serious, so he regrouped and ran towards Jin. But this time, a figure rushed out from the slanting stab, its sharp claws grabbed his neck, and brought him to Bin. It was the Prowler. "Good job, Prowler, kill him," Kim ordered ruthlessly. The Prowler took the lead, and the mechanical claws gradually tightened, as if they were about to suffocate Miles to death. "Boy, not everyone can be a Spider-Man." Jin also lifted Miles's hood jokingly, revealing his suffocated black and red face for admiration. "Just right here." The Prowler suddenly turned back, let go of Miles, and clawed back at Jinbing. "Bark, Jin didn't take precautions, 3 bloodstains were scratched on his face immediately, and he let out a painful cry, "Ah, damn it." The prowler didn't stop, he jumped up, and kicked Jinbing in the face with a whirling kick, kicking him backwards. Miles was stunned, and he couldn't understand. "Why did you help me?" The prowler tore off his hood and hurriedly said, "Miles, question. Uncle Alan." Melchi couldn't believe it. "How could it be you? Protect the boss." Dr. Octopus and others saw Jin and was attacked by surprise, but they didn't care about keeping a few Spider-Mans, and came here in a hurry. Seeing this, the prowler hurriedly urged, "Go, Miles, I'll hold them back." Miles gritted his teeth, and immediately turned around and jumped when he knew it was not a hesitation. During the gallop, perhaps due to the stimulation of his potential, his body gradually became invisible and transparent. He had an idea, took this opportunity of invisibility, took off the web shooters of Peter in Universe 42, and then quietly tied the seriously injured Peter in Universe 42, middle-aged Peter, Peter Poke, and Shadow Spider-Man together with Cobweb, carried on the back. 407. With the physique of the Myers spider totem, it is not a problem to memorize 4 people, so I quickly took them to skip the question together. But at the moment, several mournful howls came from behind him. Miles paused and turned around in a daze. "I see." His Uncle Alan was being pinned to the ground by the villains. Rage's Gold raised his arms and smashed back and forth violently like the wind. Alan ability is all about battle suits, originally just normal people. Under such a violent attack, the transfer of interest naturally turned into a puddle of flesh. "No, Uncle Alan." Seeing his uncle die in such a tragic way, Miles's eyes were tearing apart instantly, and the lightning flashed in his hands. In the hotel room, Penny Parker didn't dare to look at the beautiful scenery in front of her, and quickly closed her eyes. "I thought I could calm down by closing my eyes." But when he thought of it, he was being hugged by a handsome brother. Moreover, he is still doing strange things with a beautiful sister. There was something strange about her. This unbearable feeling lasted for a while. Penny suddenly felt the handsome brother's body tremble, and the hand holding her became tighter. "Open your eyes and look." The purple-eyed lady had already run to the side, wiping the corners of her lips with the back of her fair hand, with a very satisfied expression. "Gudong." Penny Parker swallowed her saliva, raised her head inexplicably nervously, and saw Yeli looking at her playfully. "Little sister, how long are you going to sit in my arms?" Sorry." Little Lolita quickly got down from his arms, not daring to look at him. She just closed her eyes, bowed and said, "I've bothered you guys. Thank you for your help. I'm going to save people now, and I'll thank you for the big things later." As expected of an American neon man, this bow is very sincere, more than 90 degrees, at least 145 degrees, and the entire upper body is bowed down. It's just that, this position is a bit awkward. Yeli pointed her shoulder with his finger, and reminded, I think you should step back 10 o'clock. Penny Parker raised her eyelids suspiciously, and in her bright eyes, a ferocious silhouette was immediately reflected, which was only an inch away from her pink lips. The girl almost fainted from fright, covered her face with her palms, and fled out of the room in a panic. After a few seconds, only then did a small hand stick out from the crack in the door, shaking it and said, "Sir, what's your name?" "Yeli." "Okay, Mr. Yeli." Penny squatted down, placed a round mechanical ball by the door, and said, "This is a communication ball that allows us to communicate with each other. When the matter is resolved, I will thank you again. If I can come back." Finished. She got up and hurried downstairs to the hotel, obviously to help Peter and the others again. "Hey, it's so cute." Yeli patted his hands back. "Get up, Gwen, let's go down and have a look, there are quite a few of your kind." The blonde girl propped up a snow-white lotus root arm, her graceful body lay on her side, her posture was lazy but humane. "You guys go first, I have to take a bath." "No need to wash, I will help you." Yeli wiped the palm of her hand in the air, and all the traces on the beauty's body disappeared. It's much more comfortable." Gwen stood up lightly, stretched her waist, purple and gold threads were born out of thin air on her body, transformed into 3 colors of white, black, and pink, and quickly woven into a uniform and a small coat. "Then let's go and get to know the Spider-Man from other universes." "You devil." Miles rushed to Jinbin impotently and furiously, covering him with flashes of lightning with both hands. But now, Jinbing has 3 supervillains by his side, so how can he get everything? Dr. Octopus grabbed the scorpion with his tentacle and threw it at him. Miles subconsciously raised his hand to resist. The electric current hit Scorpion's body, causing his body to tremble and he lay on the ground straight. And Miles' big move, which he had held back for a long time, was resolved in this way. He also wanted to export the electric current again, but it didn't work, and his hand only had 2 lightning flashes. Abbreviation, the anger value is used up. Snapped. The green goblin slapped him on the ground suddenly, and there were spider web patterns on the ground behind him. Next, Miles was greeted with a mixed beating by Jinbing and the 3 of them. After a burst of punches and kicks, he passed his breath very simply. "Go to hell." Jinbing sneered, raised his thick arms, and was about to get rid of Miles. "Stop." Suddenly heard a soft drink. The 3 of Jinbing were attracted attention and looked over their faces. It was Penny Parker who came downstairs. "Octopus, you bitch, what are you throwing at me?" The electrocuted scorpion happened to recover at the moment, and got up cursing. When he saw the girl in front of him, he immediately stared. Are you still alive? That's right, I'll fix you. Scorpion still held a grudge against Penny for chopping off one of his pincers, and moved towards him with 4 mechanical pointed feet. And not far away, the 3 of Yelly are watching. Seeing that Penny was in distress, Yelly set off and said, let's go, get rid of these guys. Nada asked, didn't you say it's best not to make a fuss? Is there any need to make any noise to solve these small characters? Yelly asked back with a chuckle, and then flashed suddenly. Appeared again, already between Penny Parker and Scorpion, May knows. The duo was taken aback. Mr. Yelly. Penny shouted eagerly, get out of the way. Where's the little boy? Scorpion's pliers continued to castrate, pinching Yelly's neck. You are looking for death. Sieve? Yelly waved his palm in an instant. Bark? The scorpion was split into 2 instantly. The corpses were scattered on both sides, and the blood stained the neighborhood red. The audience was instantly silent. Whether it's Penny Parker, or Jinbin and the others, they all have expressions of disbelief. A supervillain who killed the house so easily and freely? What kind of weird ability is this? Who are you? Jinbin was shocked. They are supervillains. They are not afraid of principled superheroes. They are afraid of this kind of guy who dares to kill. And look at the other party's expression. After killing someone, there is no burden at all, but he looks calm and calm. This made Jin feel very uneasy. This person is definitely not a serious superhero. He is much more dangerous than the opponents he has encountered before. You are the gold standard of this world. It really hasn't changed. You just don't know how to live or die. Yelly smiled coldly. I feel sorry for my family members. I think you are tired of work. Your family. Everyone present was taken aback by his words. Yelly didn't speak, but gently raised his palm. If he doesn't make a move, it's enough. If he chooses to make a move, he won't bother. From the fingertips of his middle finger, ring finger, and index finger, 3 thin purple gold threads suddenly drilled out, quickly entwined towards Jin and the 3 of them. Seeing the extremely thin silk thread approaching, the 3980 suddenly felt a sense of terror and oppression. They did not dare to resist, turned around in a hurry and wanted to escape. But with their strength, how could they be faster than Yelly's attack? Suk, suk, suk. 3 silk threads quickly wrapped around their bodies, and then one shrank inward. In the blink of an eye, the 3 of them turned into a beautiful piece. Not, is it over? Penny Parker was stunned from beginning to end. This gang of villains who beat their Spider-Man to death, just finished it like this? Tread. Yelly turned around and came to her, jokingly said, okay, the matter is settled. You said you want to thank me. How do you want to thank me? Penny Parker was in a state of confusion, unable to say anything for a moment. He could only point his fingers, and said, Mr. Yelly is really helpful. I don't know how to thank you. Yelly touched her little head. It's okay, just think about it slowly. Penny Parker felt the pampering of his actions, and then thought of the embarrassing scene she saw before. She couldn't help but blushed slightly. Mr. Ye, we don't know each other. Why do you help me so much? Hihi, because I think you're cute. Yelly slid down her palm and gently rubbed her delicate face. After rubbing it, Penny's face became even redder. It's like this. I understood. What do you understand? No, it's nothing. Well, Mr. Ye, you don't know my name yet, right? My name is Penny Parker, and I come from another universe. Just call me Penny. Well, I remember, Penny, don't keep calling me Mr. Ye, just call me by my name. Okay, figure. Time turned. Jinbing's affairs came to an end. The injured Spider-Men were also transferred to Peter's base in the 42nd week to heal their injuries. Among them, Miles was unable to stay here for a long time due to family reasons, and was transferred to a regular hospital as a passerby who was affected by the fighting. The rest of the Shadow Spider-Man, Peter Poke, and middle-aged Peter are all broken bones. Even their extraordinary spider totem physiques need to rest for a while. As for why Yelly didn't save them with the horse charm, this is because, he remembered, in the comics, after being beaten to the brink of death by Moron, Peter Parker was reborn from the spiderweb cocoon and became stronger. He wanted to see how potential these Spider-Men were, and whether they could make it this far. If anyone among them has this kind of potential, Yelly doesn't mind taking 1 or 2 as juniors. However, what made him a little disappointed was that after waiting for a day, no one had seen such a change. On the contrary, Peter Parker from Universe 42 recovered the fastest and was able to move. As soon as he was able to act, he immediately found Yelly to express his gratitude. In addition, there is also the purpose of asking Yelly's identity. Mr. Ye, are you also from another universe, brought here by Jinpin's particle collider? It's half right. Yelly chatted with him for a while because he looked a lot like Peter in this universe. Then we have to hurry up and rush to the collider as soon as Peter Poke and the others recover. Peter Parker reminded, you Spider-Man brought by the collider will have a rejection reaction in my universe. After a long time, your body will even collapse, so you have to go back through the particle collider as soon as possible. Seeing that Peter also regarded him as a Spider-Man, Yelly nodded without explaining. In this case, I will cure them and leave tomorrow morning. That night, Yelly lived in a single room and planned to rest alone because she had already had enough fun during the day. However, just as he turned off the light and was about to go to sleep, he suddenly felt a movement at the end of the bed, as if someone had crawled into the quilt. If you are an ordinary person, you will definitely be shocked. but Yeli felt the smooth and tender skin in contact with himself under the quilt, and soon had a guess in his heart. Could it be that Gwen was not satisfied during the day, but touched it again at night? With my fighting power, it shouldn't be. Or is it because Gonada is hungry again? Just as he speculated, a head popped out from the quilt, with short black hair and big bright eyes, whoever it was if it wasn't Parker. Penny, why are you here? Yeli asked unexpectedly. Lee, I'm leaving soon. Penny Parker stretched out her 2 hands, wrapped her arms around his neck, leaned her little face closer, pursed her lips and said, before I leave, I still can't think of how to thank you. I see that you seem to like being with those two. My sister is not as good at playing games as I am. Yeli suddenly realized, rubbed her hair, and said with a light smile, what do you want to play first? Whatever you want, you understand this better. Then I'll do my best. Early morning. Gwen came to the door of Yeli's room, knocked on the door, and shouted softly, Lee, it's time to get up. Peter, the Peter of this universe said, go to the collider to get as soon as possible, let me come and call you. Bang. The door of the room was opened as soon as she knocked, obviously it was ajar. Hey, it's not locked. Gwen pushed the door open curiously. Then, I saw Penny Parker wearing shoes. Penny, you, eh? Sister Gwen. Penny wiped her face in a hurry, then straightened the drooping stockings on her feet, and explained, well, I'm too bored in the morning, so I came here to play with Lee for a while. Oh one. Gwen nodded knowingly, then approached, picked up a small JK tie from the ground and handed it to her, teasingly said, don't forget the tie. When I was in school, I left the tie in the room next to me, been laughed at by Jessica for a long time. Okay, thank you, Gwen. Penny blushed as if she could bleed, and hurriedly fastened her tie, ignoring who Gwen said Jessica was, staggered to her feet, and hurried to the door. When approaching, she turned her head reluctantly, and bid farewell to Yeli softly. Lee, goodbye, I will always miss you. It's too early to say goodbye. Yeli smiled gently, I have decided to go to your world with you. What did you say? Penny suspected she had heard wrong. I said, I will go to your world with you. Yeli repeated it with a smile. Really? That's great. Penny was overwhelmed with surprise. It's just that, after thinking about it, she suddenly looked worried. But, you are not from my universe. After you go, will you also have rejection reactions? That is very dangerous. I can't let you risked it for me. Do not worry. Yeli comforted. You see, I'm not well here. But, there is. Peter said that the collider can only send us back to the original universe. You can rest assured about that. Yeli walked up to her, hugged her in his arms, and promised, I have my own way, and I will definitely arrive with you. Penny was so moved that she quietly leaned on his chest, allowing him to hold her in his arms. Oh. Gwen whistled at the moment, stared at something, and teased, Lee, you're in good spirits this morning. Penny subconsciously followed her gaze, and immediately got off in shame and backed away. Lee, you put on your clothes first. Parallel Universe Project Scientific Research Base. It's here. 42 Peter swayed the cobweb, found the slot on the ceiling, and inserted the prepared mechanical U-disc into it. Whoon! The light of particle collision immediately bloomed in huge amounts of round body experiments. 42 Peter hurriedly shouted, guys, I've got the light source hooked up, come up. Russell? Following several shots of white cobwebs, several Spider-Man fell to the ceiling. Among them, because the robot broke down, Penny was carried by Yeli and flew up. Looks like it's time to say goodbye. The middle-aged Peter glanced at everyone, and finally fell on Yeli. Man, thank you, you saved my life. If we can meet again, I will treat you to pizza. Yeli smiled and nodded politely, without speaking. Man, I've heard something about you. 42 Peter stretched out his hand, patted the middle-aged version of himself on the shoulder, and encouraged, I believe Mary Jane still loves you. Loves us. Take courage and try again. Well, I said so myself. The middle-aged Peter shrugged, then I'll confess my love to my ex-wife again. Come on buddy, don't forget to bring flowers. Shadow Spider-Man also encouraged. Seeking flowers? 0. Okay, I think I have to go first, or you will have to take turns teasing me. The middle-aged Peter smiled genuinely, waved goodbye, and said, goodbye, guys. Finished. He jumped into the colliding particle flow, and his figure disappeared. Then, I'm leaving first, my universe, there are still many things waiting for me to deal with. Shadow Spider-Man waved his hand, looked at Yeli and said, I won't say too much, if we still meet, please ask me for help. Okay. Yeli spoke this time, although there was only one simple word. Of all the Spider-Mans, he admires the Shadow Spider-Man's temperament the most. Goodbye. The Shadow Spider-Man didn't say any more, and jumped into the particle flow. It's my turn, it's my turn. The little pig, Peter Poke, took out a large or small cartoon mallet, handed it to Yeli and said, dude, this is for you, you can put it in your pocket as my thanks. 0. Forward. Yeli looked at the gavel and said with a strange expression, I don't need this either, can I give it away? Definitely, it's yours now. Peter Poke didn't mind. Seeing this, Yeli gave the gavel to Penny, you can play with it. Wow. Peter Poke pointed at the two proudly, I can tell, you guys have a story. Pork, what are you talking about? Penny was about to retort shyly. Peter Poke, on the other hand, laughed, leaned back, and dropped the particle flow directly from the ceiling. Goodbye, friends, don't miss me. The rest of the people looked at each other. 42 Peter looked at Yelly inexplicably because of Poke's words. Man, although I know that the laws of different universes may be different. Ahem. Yelly coughed and interrupted him. Looks like it's our turn. See you soon. Say it. He hugged Penny and flew towards the particle flow. Hehe asterisk. Gwen and Gonada laughed coquettishly and followed. Universe 42 Peter looked at the backs of everyone and sighed. It's like a dream. I don't know if we can see each other again. Maybe. See you no more. The group is the best. Just know you're not alone. And now, it's time to shut down the particle collider. Peter turned emotionally, ready to act. Only, as soon as he turned his head, his pupils suddenly shrank. One by one black spots, twisting and forming mechanical workers not far from him. The Earth 14512 universe, the home of Penny Parker. The technology here is a bit more advanced than the 1610 universe where Miles is located. There are powerful humanoid mechatronics that can be driven by people, which is somewhat similar to the world of Eva. Penny also has Uncle Ben and Aunt May, two scientific researchers who are in charge of her mech logistics. After learning that the SP/DR robot was damaged in this accident, they started to work on new mecha manufacturing. During this time, Penny does not have the ability to fight criminals. So, she went to school during the day, and returned to 677 at night to play with Yelly and the others. The relationship with Gwen and Gonada has also become more and more familiar. And today, Penny sneaked into someone's room as usual, threw herself into his arms, and asked for tutoring. Lee, you didn't finish teaching a question yesterday, let's continue teaching today. No problem. Yelly has nothing to do, and readily agreed. Call your sister Gwen over, she is a master of learning, exchange knowledge with each other, and learn faster. Penny ran obediently and turned on the temperature control. Soon, the three began a pleasant learning exchange. How to solve this problem. Relax, Penny, true knowledge comes from practice. Let Gwen do it for you first, and you will be good. Well, Penny, I'll just demonstrate it. You have to study hard. Sister Gwen is amazing. Such a difficult task can be easily done. You can do it too, let's give it a try. Let Lee guide you. Okay, then I'll give it a try. Lee, please give me your advice. I may be a little fast in teaching, you should learn carefully. Hey, Lee, teach slowly, I haven't learned yet. The topics taught this time were a bit esoteric, and after several hours, Penny barely finished learning them. By the time it was over, she looked extremely tired, and her walk was a little muddled. But being able to learn new knowledge also makes her very happy. Exactly at the moment, Tunmi touched it again. Seeing that Penny was about to leave, she rolled her eyes, and invited in a weird way, Penny, don't rush to leave, eat a little first, sister will take you. Oh, under the flicker of Gonada, Penny ignorantly eats together, and has a new experience. Ben Parker Institute. A red mech about 10 meters long stood quietly in the assembly room. Click. May stood on the elevator, opened the core of the mecha, and then took a mechanical spider from Ben's hand. This mechanical spider is as big as a palm, with pointed feet and quick small steps. It looks very agile, as if it has real life. Look at you, sweetie. May smiled at the mechanical spider, then put it into the core of the mecha, and closed the upper and outer armor. Wano? The red mecha reacted immediately, and a pair of glowing eyes lit up on its head, as if it had woken up. Seeing this reaction, May's face showed joy. Successful, Ben. Very good. Ben Parker also said happily, Penny will be able to drive a new body soon. Boom dash. At this moment, the ground of the research institute suddenly shook. May shook her body and said in surprise, what's going on? I'll check the monitor. Ben Parker hurried to the monitoring station and retrieved the video. After some searching, finally, in a picture, a black humanoid figure was found. He immediately horrified, oops, it's Venom body that's out of control. Here, the girl is eating happily. Beep. Suddenly there was an important news notification, sent over. At the same time, the small mouth kept on. Penny held the communicator in front of her, and clicked on it to read the contents. Emergency broadcast message, Venom mecha riots, devouring driver Eddie Brock is currently attacking this doctoral research institute. Citizens please pay attention, do not approach this area. 2.6. Wait to read the message inside clearly. The girl's eyes widened immediately, and she unconsciously took a deep breath, but she forgot that she was swallowing something. Ugh, cough cough cough. She couldn't help coughing hard a few times and spit out what she was eating. Oops, stuck. Star-Lord suddenly had another problem, and his head was stuck in the gap because it was too big. Ask for flowers. He held his head in his hand and pitifully asked Xingyun for help. Sister, can you help me make it bigger? However, Xingyun rolled her beautiful eyes and seemed too lazy to pay attention to him. Forget it, I'll do it. Yelly took out his hand, shook the water on his fingertips, held the cell door lever, and easily pulled it open a little further. 00. Squeak. Star-Lord finally squeezed out and thanked Yelly repeatedly. Great. He's saved? Long live the boss. Well, there's nothing to do here, go outside. Yelly took the lead and walked out of the cell, chatting with Star-Lord as he walked. Tell me, how did you get caught by Yondu? Star-Lord and Gamera have already taken over the void, and Drax is much stronger than the movie version. Logically speaking, Star-Lord should not be caught by Yondu so easily. That's it, Mr. Ya. Star-Lord said with some embarrassment. I was planning to take on a private job, so I went to Sovereign alone to negotiate. Unexpectedly, I was caught halfway by Yondu, Star Sovereign. Yeli caught the word. Chapter 388 Ultron invades Hydra? Teasing Gonada is going well? He has some impression of this name. It seems that Adam the Warlock was created by the Sovereign people. Maybe you can take a look when you have time later. Earth. The remnants of Hydra, a secret base. How's the development going? Baron Strucker came to the experiment to review the progress of a robot development project. After being knocked over by the Sandman in his lair in Sokovia last time, he hid with his remaining troops. Later, the Serpent Shield incident broke out, allowing Strucker to take the opportunity to gather some other Hydra remnants and temporarily seek refuge in the Hive. We lost Dr. Zola. This aspect of artificial intelligence is a bit difficult to conquer, the gray-haired old researcher said matter-of-factly. Waste. Straker cursed and hammered the mechanical android sample in front of him with one hand. Bang. I told you not to waste time and money on useless projects like this? What's the use of these mechanical wastes? That guy from the Hive just didn't listen. There was unconcealable ambition in Strucker's eyes. If he continues to do nothing like this, when will we, Hydra, rise again? It's better to let me lead it. Baron, be careful what you say. The researcher was brought here by the Baron. Hearing this, he couldn't help but remind him, we are living under someone else's roof now. When people are under the roof, they have to bow their heads. P.S. Don't worry about how to say Chinese proverbs. This is what it means. Chinese idioms are often used in Chinese subtitle translations of foreign movies. That guy is not more capable than me. He just happens to have the appearance of Hydra, just like a monster. Strack was still cursing, but he didn't notice that the face of the mechanical 900 man in his hand gradually lit up with the light of turning on. Hey, why did it start by itself? Is there an error in the program? The old researcher found an abnormality and had to check it out. Click. The robot moved at this moment, and flew him away with a flick of his hand. What's going on? Something's wrong with this crap. Straker was startled, and let go of his hand to step back. But Ultron would not give him this chance. He raised his metal arm and suddenly exerted force, piercing his chest in the blink of an eye. Bah! Blood splatters? Well. Straker's eyes soon became blurred, he fell to the ground weakly, and simply received the lunchbox. Ultron took out his hand, looked around at the fleeing people, and made a cold electronic sound. I'll take over this place now, and I don't need a living person. Undersea Kingdom, Talakang. How is it, Lord Namor? Do you decide to join us? Victor Doom sat opposite Namor and said slowly, the purpose of our Illuminati is to help and support each other. As long as you are willing to join us and provide assistance, we will also help you get what you want of vibranium. Ta 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 ta. Namor drummed his fingers on the armchair and said expressionlessly, how should I trust you? Or, how should I trust that you have the ability to cooperate with us? Hearing this, Victor Doom tilted his head slightly and glanced at Magneto next to him. Do it yourself, don't try to order me around. Eric Len's hair, Magneto, squinted his eyes leisurely and made no move. Victor Doom tilted his head back calmly, raised his right hand, and magical thunder burst out from his palm, spreading rapidly and electrocuting all the surrounding sea creatures. Namor immediately stood up. They are all my friends. Friend? It's just another name for a tool. Victor Doom closed his palms and retracted them. I'm not interested in a show-like performance. We might as well be more direct. Are you joining, or not? Namor sat down again, lowered his head and thought calmly, then said, we can try to cooperate. It doesn't matter, you will see our strength soon. Victor Doom flicked his green cloak, stood up and said, when the time comes, I'm afraid you will take the initiative to join us. Namor nodded lightly, I hope so, Victor. At this time, Victor Doom suddenly heard the sound of a beehive, which was requesting contact with him. Phew. Victor Doom waved his hand, and a magic projection appeared in the water. The function of this magic is similar to a video call, and the picture in the projection is exactly a honeycomb with a somewhat eager look. Victor, my base has been hacked. Hive said angrily, we can't contact you at all now. I suspect it was someone from the Avengers or the club who did it. There is a lot of important data and information in the base, so there must be no mistakes. Take someone to have a look first. If the problem cannot be solved, then contact us. Victor Doom's voice was dull, and he was obviously a little unhappy that Hive contacted him without finding out the specific situation. Victor? You can't. What if it's the enemy's conspiracy? Beehive continued to persuade, wanting others to help him explore the path first. That's enough, give me specific information, and I will consider bringing someone to help you. Victor didn't have the patience to talk to it anymore, and closed the magic curtain with a wave of his hand. Namor heard the conversation clearly and said to Victor with a half-smile, it seems, your group is not very united. Everyone has their own thoughts. Victor's voice was hoarse and dull. After leaving this sentence, he and Magneto left. Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, looked around and finally settled on Aunt May and Ben Parker. Why didn't you die and the universe didn't collapse? Ben and May both showed displeasure upon hearing this. What do we mean we are not dead? You wish us dead? Who are you? Why do you dress up like some of my friends? Penny Parker also stopped in front of Ben and May, watching this unknown person warily. After all, what Miguel said is a bit like a villain, and the way and appearance of the appearance are also hard to ignore. Miguel O'Hara, Miguel said in a deep voice, as you can see, I am also a Spider-Man, and I came to your universe to investigate abnormal events, so as to protect this universe and prevent it from collapsing. Penny Parker wondered, what anomalous event? Will my universe collapse? Miguel didn't answer right away, shifting his eyes to Yelly and Gonita. He continued, you don't belong to this world, you shouldn't take action to save May and Ben Parker, who should have been damned, this will lead to even greater unknowns crisis. Without Lee, Aunt May and Uncle Ben would die. Girl, you don't seem to have heard the point I said. Miguel emphasized again, if no one should be killed in the weaving web incident, it will lead to a greater disaster and cause the universe to collapse. Suddenly, at this moment, Gwen swung cobweb and fell to the king of the field. But sir, what you said has not happened now. If your deduction is wrong, many people will die because of it. She just arrived and happened to hear Miguel's remarks, so she refuted. After speaking, Gwen looked at Tunmei again, and said speechlessly, hey, Runita, why did you forget me? Gonita said with a playful smile, didn't I see that you are quite tired from being tossed by Lee, so I won't take you with me. The two women greet each other here. Miguel was a little silent by Gwen's words. Because, the fact is right in front of our eyes, even if Ben Parker and May were rescued, the universe of Earth 14512 is still fine, and nothing has changed. For a moment, Miguel fell into deep self-doubt. Is there something special about this universe, or have I been doing something wrong all along? Maybe so, Miguel. Another red and blue figure stepped out of the time-space light gate, and said in a slightly dissatisfied tone, I have long felt that there is something wrong with your philosophy. His shape is very similar to the general Spider-Man, but with some punk elements on his body. Hobby Brown, punk Spider-Man, from Universe 138. He took off the headgear with nails, flung out his thick dreadlocks, then walked towards Gwen, holding out his hands. Hello, beautiful Spider-Girl, meet me, I know better than Brown. I agree with your statement, can I ask your name? I think we can be friends. Gwen glanced at his big lips and lip studs, took a small step back without any trace, and smiled politely, Sir, although I like to make friends, I'm sorry, I just met you. 64? Between the two, an earthen wall suddenly rose from the ground. Boy, keep your distance, don't stand so close. Yelly said angrily. Obviously, this earthen wall is his handwriting. Wow, cool, magic. Hobby Brown asked Gwen on the other end, standing on tiptoe, who is this naughty gentleman? Gwen looked at Yelly and smiled, my boyfriend, he is actually very gentle. Bump. Hobby Brown tapped on the earthen wall in front of him. I can't tell, but your boyfriend is really handsome, although he's not my type. You, the type you like. Gwen seemed to have grasped something, and her expression became slightly weird. Yeah, you seem to have misunderstood just now. Hobby Brown explained with a smile, I like men. Ha. Yelly was a little embarrassed. Pissed Gwen couldn't help covering her mouth and chuckling. After some oolongs, the two sides got to know each other like this. Yelly and others also found out the origins of Miguel and Huabai. They are from the Spider League. Spider League headquarters, located in the Earth 928 universe, has hundreds of Spider-Men from various parallel universes, dedicated to solving the abnormal problems that occurred in the Spiderweb universe. And the founder and current manager of the Spider Alliance is Miguel O'Hara. As for why Miguel O'Hara created the Spider League, we have to start from the beginning. Miguel lost his daughter in an accident, and his self in another universe was killed by gangsters, so he replaced himself in another universe and became the father of his daughter in this universe. However, this move destroyed the track created by the Cobweb of Destiny, leading to the destruction of the universe. That is, this time, Miguel discovered the existence of the Fate Cobweb, so he created the Spider Alliance to recruit Spider-Man from various universes to solve the abnormal events in the Cobweb universe. After listening to their narration, Gwen approached Yelly and whispered, the spider web of fate they talked about sounds like yours. Yelly smiled mysteriously and said, it's the one you wear. This Spider League is interesting, let's go visit it. He walked towards the time-space light gate that sent Miguel over. Sensing that the destination was correct, he raised his leg and was about to step into it. With Yelly taking the lead, Gwen and Gonita had no choice but to follow. Seeing this, Penny ran over quickly, grabbed Yelly and asked, Lee, are you going to join the Spider League too? It's just for a stroll, okay, don't worry, I won't leave you behind. Yelly smiled and patted her little head. Then I'm going to. Penny raised her hand and said, ahem. Miguel coughed twice and reminded, I said, have you got the consent of my host? Don't be so stingy. Gonita put her hands on Yelly's shoulders, propped her chin and smiled cleverly. It's your honor that this one is willing to go to the Spider League. Honor? Huh. Miguel is also a dogmatic and arrogant character, he disdainfully said. Who is he that can make me feel honored? You want to know? Don't worry, you'll know soon. Gonita turned to look at Yelly, blinked eccentrically, and pushed him forward. Hurry up, let them see it when we get there. Yelly didn't resist either, and followed her force forward in a funny way, sinking into the Lightgate. Earth 928 universe. Spider League headquarters. This is a veritable base camp of spiders, with all sorts of strange members. The black female Spider-Man who is pregnant and still working, the Bite Spider-Man who controls the virtual entity, the cowboy Spider-Man who puts a mask on the horse, and even the orange cat Spider-Man, Tyrannosaurus Rex Spider-Man, etc. dazzles the eye. Not bad. Looking at the various Spider-Man coming and going on the bridge, Gonita felt very interesting. This number is too much. Gwen was a little surprised. Penny's big eyes fluttered. If everyone can become partners, I think the more the better. The premise is that you can join us. Miguel led the way and said arrogantly, our recruitment standards are very strict. We only recruit elites, and ordinary idlers are not accepted. Obviously, Gonada's bragging to Yeli before made him feel that his authority has been challenged. Now that he has come to his own site 687, he naturally wants to show it off. However, his voice just fell. There is a person eating pizza, kicking pink slippers, walking past him slowly. 11. Miguelton felt that he couldn't hold back his face. Peter, how many times have I said that? Be mindful of your image and don't wear your pink pajamas out. Tang tang tang. Peter Parker quickly took a few steps backwards, but not because of Miguel's reminder. He looked at Yeli and the others, and said in surprise, hey, guys, we meet again. It turns out that this person is exactly the middle-aged Peter I met in the 1610 universe. Peter B. Parker. You know each other? Miguel asked. However, a leader of an organization who has just joined is not as important as a savior. Peter B. Parker ignored Miguel, went straight to Yeli, handed him the pizza box in his arms, and said courteously, yeah, I keep my word. Come, treat you to a pizza. This is what I specially brought, it's for Mary Jane. Don't say it, the pizza in this universe tastes really good. Ah, forget it, you'd better leave it to your wife. Yeli couldn't laugh or cry at this middle-aged Peter. Didn't you see that your boss looks like he wants to eat people? Peter B. Parker stuffed it at him. It's okay, I'll buy another copy later. Miguel was left aside in the cold, and finally couldn't bear it anymore, and said in a low voice, Peter B. Parker. Ouch. Peter was taken aback, as if he had noticed Mil now. Oh, Miguel, you're here too, why are you scaring me all of a sudden? You. Miguel froze. He thought for a while before he calmed down, and asked with a serious face, how is the investigation of the spot? This, now Pavid is investigating, you go ask him. Peter B. Parker turned around as he spoke, waved his BHFB hand and said, I'm going back to take care of the kids now, bye. Hey, hello. Miguel wanted to stop, but Peter ran faster, opened the time-space door with the device in his hand and jumped in the blink of an eye. This guy. Miguel was so embarrassed that he could only force himself to be calm, and said respectfully, cough, don't look at Peter like this, but his ability is very good, and he is a trustworthy partner. Hearing this, Yeli and the others had half smiles on their faces, and even Huabai couldn't hold back their expressions. Only Penny nodded in agreement. Well, Uncle Peter is still reliable. Miguelton was relieved that someone had finally stepped down the steps for him. Very well, your name is Penny, right? I think you have great potential to join us. He strode towards a projection room with big strides. Come on, let me take you to understand the essence of Spider-Man. It was only by accident that I observed that giant web spanning several universes. In the projection room, the blue-toned light is not very bright. The console has several display screens, and the screens are all golden-orange spider web patterns. Miguel came to the console and called, Lila, do something. Huh? What? A shrunken version of a woman is projected, about as tall as a normal person, with a lively voice, and looks a little mischievous. Serious Miguel was in stark contrast to her, and said impatiently, what do you mean, what do you do? Definitely a matter of information interpretation. 0K. Leela was not angry either, she opened her hands, and the golden light and shadow began to spread around her, covering the entire projection room. The whole room turned into nothingness in a blink of an eye. There was only a small blue light spot, which slowly descended from the top of everyone's heads. Penny looked at it and asked curiously, what is this? It's everything? Miguel's voice fell. The blue light spots then fell to the ground, and grew into a cobweb tree like a seed, branching out into countless branches, spreading, expanding, and splitting continuously. In the end, the cobweb tree disappeared, and giant interconnected webs were projected around everyone. Miguel duly explained, this is all we are, our lives intertwined in a beautiful web of life and destiny. Penny opened her eyes wide and exclaimed, Spider Universe. Spider Universe? That sounds stupid. Miguel thought for a while, and said, I like to call it humanoid spider multi-universe. Well, that sounds stupid too. Penny pointed to the places where the spider webs were connected, and said, then what is the node where these lines meet? Their timelines, all the Spider-Man stories and chapters of time, some good, some bad. As he spoke, Miguel waved his hand lightly, there are still some, ching cake. With his waving, sad scenes are projected one by one. Most of them. It was a figure in red and blue tights, beside a fallen middle-aged man, holding his hand tightly. These are all Peter and Uncle Ben. Gwen asked in surprise. Gwen, look, there you are. Gonada suddenly pulled Ragwen, darkened in one direction. Gwen looked suspiciously, and then his expression became a little dazed. There is a projected scene. In the scene, a girl who looks very similar to her falls from a high floor. Although the girl has a cobweb hanging from her body, but because of cobweb's elasticity, he couldn't hold her back before she hit the ground. Wow, Gwen, you're dead. Gonada covered her small mouth and said. Gwen's face turned dark immediately. What do you mean I'm dead? It's not me at all, okay, Woon. At this time, another projection scene is called out. Miguel said, in the ASM-90 accident, a sheriff who was close to Spider-Man died saving a child during Spider-Man's battle with his old enemy. Captain Stacy, I'm sorry. In the picture, Spider-Man is hugging the sheriff, and there is a sad voice. This time, Gwen was stunned again. Sheriff, more Daisy. She thought of something, turned her head, and said worriedly to Yelly, Lee, my father won't be in danger, right? Rest assured. Yelly smiled slightly, hugged her, rubbed her shoulders and comforted. You forgot who I am. Oh, yes. Gwen brushed her hair embarrassingly. I was so flustered, I almost forgot that you are. Lee. Gonita's purple eyes flickered a few times, and whispered to the two of them in a low voice, you can't do this, after all, you are controlling the spider web. How can it be? Yelly quickly denied, I'm a good person, I won't do such immoral things. At most, he controls the totem spiders and picks the Spider-Man from each universe to bite. But I won't be idle and play with other people's fate. I can only say that if you want to blame it, you can blame those Marvel editors who like to abuse the master. But Yelly now has some new inspiration for the Web of Fate. Perhaps his previous understanding of the network of destiny was a bit shallow. The most critical power of the Web of Fate is not the power of time and space, but the word fate. Ask for flowers. If he can connect all the spider-web universes, no, even the universes outside the spider-web universe with the Web of Fate, and accommodate them as a source of power, maybe he can reach a new level. But, easier said than done. With those big bosses at the head of the Marvel universe, it is difficult to integrate universes other than the spider-web universe with the personality of the Web of Fate. Unless, some powerful personalities can be integrated into the network of destiny, such as Origin Magic Power, Phoenix Force. The way the story should go, the timeline accident is the link that ties our lives together. 0. But those connections can be broken. So abnormal, very dangerous. Miguel said emphatically. Something like the police officer's death is a timeline accident, and it shouldn't be broken. The end of destruction is the collapse and destruction of the universe. How did you come to this conclusion? Gonita questioned aloud. Miguel thought of something, and a look of sadness flashed in his eyes, because I have experienced it myself. Then have you ever thought that these can be changed? Nada said surprisingly, the Web of Fate can be controlled by people. Ha. Miguel was taken aback by her words, and then sneered, are you fantasizing, little girl? No one can control that kind of power, please read less comics. Hey, oh. Gonita was about to say something more. Suddenly, a Spider-Man dressed in Indian style fell into the projection room and reported to Quake. Miguel, the blob has appeared again, and he's back in the 1610 universe, 1610 universe. Kerala. In the center of New York, a human-shaped black dot, like a black hole, crazily absorbs everything around it. The asphalt was torn to shreds, buildings were littered with bricks and the concrete floors were riddled with cracks. Pedestrians who had no time to escape were torn to pieces, bloody. Sieve. 1610 Peter used the cobweb to tightly wrap around a street lamp that was still firm to prevent his floating body from being pulled by the spots. He and Miles came together to try to save some people, but the result was that he himself was in danger. If it weren't for the fact that they were still relatively far from the central area, they probably wouldn't end up much better than those ordinary people. Suddenly, bang, a trash can flew over and directly covered the head of Miles 130 next to him. Oh, Miles, are you okay? I'm fine. Miles frantically tried to take down the trash can. Even with a hood to insulate him, the stench inside was unbearable for him. But his action also made him accidentally let go of the light pole he was holding on tightly, and was pulled towards the spot by the strong suction force. Miles had nowhere to use his strength in the air, and yelled in horror. The surrounding area has been cleared, and there is no place for his cobweb. Hey, you idiot. 1610 Peter hastily shot the cobweb with the other hand and it stuck to Miles' ankle very hard. The two connected with the lamppost to form a three-point line, like a kite swinging wildly in a storm. Maybe I shouldn't have brought you here, you're clearly not a mature Spider-Man. Don't say that, it was a mistake. Myerspar's cobweb wasn't sticky enough, so he bent down hard, curled his body like a shrimp, and finally reached the cobweb on his ankle, and grabbed it firmly. This is his life-saving straw. Whether he can enjoy his youth in the future depends entirely on this cobweb. After grabbing it, Miles turned his head to look at the spot in the center. The last time I saw this guy, he was a bad guy for a week. He only robbed convenience stores, and now suddenly, he's so strong. 1610 Peter agrees, an ordinary supervillain is like a baby to him. This is a formidable opponent, we have to find something about him. Wait. Myers yelled suddenly, staring in one direction. Jefferson, report your location. Sir, I don't think I can go back. Jefferson turned the steering wheel hard, but the police car still lost control and was pulled toward the spot. Oh, no. He stuck his big black head out of the car window, watching the black spot getting closer and closer, feeling a sense of despair in his heart. Miles, Rio, I'm sorry, I'm not a good father and husband. Dad. Witnessing Jefferson's police car getting closer to the black spot, Miles couldn't hold back any longer, snapped off the cobweb on his ankle, and let the suction force fly him over. Dad. Watching Jefferson's police car getting closer to the black spot, Miles couldn't help but rip the cobweb off his ankle and let the suction carry him there. Miles, what are you doing? 1610 Peter shouted anxiously, but it was too late to stop him. Call? The police car is getting closer. Miles frantically sprays the cobweb from his wrist, sticking to the car. Boom! There were so many pieces of debris sucked by the spots, he didn't know how many times he was hit. But none of this stopped Jefferson from being saved. Miles saw the right opportunity, the cobweb with the other hand directly stuck to the ground, and then pulled himself over with the greatest strength of his life. After falling to the ground, he pulled the police car and tried to back up with his feet. However, the blob in the little sunspot form is so powerful that it drags Miles forward. Caw caw caw. Miles' foot sank into the ground, pulling out concrete shards and blood. But he still didn't let go, clung to the last hope, clung to cobweb. Just then a gate of time and space formed by a golden net pattern opened, and a strong red and blue figure jumped out of it. As soon as Miguel appeared, without further ado, a red arm blade popped out from his arm, and cut off the cobweb connecting Miles to the police car with one blow. Without Miles' pull, the police car flew towards the human-shaped black spot in the center, and disintegrated into pieces in an instant. Jefferson in the car also twisted his joints and died into a lump of meat, absorbed by the black spots, and disappeared without a trace. Miles stared blankly, the world in his eyes seemed to have turned into black and white. Miguel shoots a tech-savvy red cobweb that wraps around Miles, taking Miles off near center. At the edge of the gravitational range, Miles recovered and punched Miguel angrily. "Why cut my cobweb? You bloody bastard!" Snapped. Miguel caught Miles' fist in his palm, and said indifferently, "If you don't let go, you will all die, and he must die." Talking. He pointed at the place in the distance with his finger, and said viciously, "Have you seen 0.1? This is the result of you guys who disrupted time and space, and prevented the weaving web event? This world will be buried by your selfishness. What are you talking about? I don't understand." Miles didn't stop, and continued to attack Miguel. "You killed my father. Very good power, but it doesn't belong to you? You took it away, causing tragedy in two worlds." While coping with the attack, Miguel said angrily, "The appearance of spots now will cause more tragedies in the universe? And it all starts with you? The spider that gave you the power of Spider-Man does not belong to this universe? It belongs to Universe 42. It should be the power of the Spider-Man of that universe? You thief! You're not even a Spider-Man." Miles was dumbfounded by Miguel's scolding. "Why, you killed my dad, and you still want me to apologize to you? Think like this." Miles became even more angry, and he jumped on him and started a desperate fight with Quake. The other side. A series of golden gates of time and space opened after Miguel. All the summoned Spider-Man rushed to this universe. And Miguel's move to cut off cobweb was also seen by everyone. Hobby immediately stepped forward, separated Miles from the two, and cursed, "Miguel, you have gone too far this time. It's no use saying that, Hobby." Pivot Prahacker, India Spider-Man, also stepped forward and advised, "We should think now, how to deal with spots. Who are you?" Miles pointed at Miguel and said angrily, "He killed my father, I won't just let it go." "Hey, Black 03 Spider-Man, now is not the time to be childish. Miguel saved you just now. I don't need him to save me like this." For a while, the crowd made a fuss. But at this moment, a light door opened nearby. "Guys, I've got two helpers." Peter B. Parker, in pink pajamas, walked out with two people. Behind him is the Shadow Spider-Man, with the piggy Peter Poke. Shadow Spider-Man crossed his arms, saw the crowd quarreling, and said disdainfully, "Peter B. is the team you said only at this level." Peter Poke nodded in agreement. "If you can only make noise, why don't we do it by ourselves? What are you capable of, little pig?" Pivot said angrily, pointing at Peter Poke. Peter Poke crossed his waist, "At least better than you." Hey dash dash. Guys, stop arguing. Peter Parker was busy smoothing things over. "It's just useless." A few people quarreled even more. Until, when a group of people came here, everyone stopped arguing and cast their gazes over. Peter B. Parker, Shadow Spider-Man, and Peter Parker even waved their hands to say hello. "Lee, here." It was Yelly and Gwen who came here. "How's the situation?" Yelly greeted Shadow Spider and the others politely. "It's not optimistic." Peter B. Parker leaned over and said, "Dude, is there anything you can do? This gravitational force will suck in no matter what comes close, even light. And it's still spreading out slowly. In this case, just limit it first." Yelly waved his hand, motioning everyone to step back. Everyone retreated to the side without knowing why. Then I saw, Yelly pinched the magic formula in his hand, condensed a group of space fragments like glass shards, and then snapped one, covering everything around in the blink of an eye. In an instant, the world turned upside down. The broken building fragments twisted shape-shifting, floating in the air, like small floating islands. Even the ground under everyone's feet was cracked, separated from the ground, and suspended. Everyone stared blankly, turned their heads in disbelief, and stared at Yelly. "Where have our Spider-Mans seen this battle?" Mirror space. Miguel is a knowledgeable person, stepped forward and asked, "What is your relationship with Doctor Strange in your universe?" "Steven." Yelly chuckled and denied, "My mirror space has nothing to do with that guy." "What's the use of this mirror space?" Pivot asked curiously. Miguel explained, "The mirror space is a special space that is completely independent of the main world. Although the reality of the main universe will be projected into the mirror space exactly the same, people in the mirror space cannot affect reality. World. Mirror space magic is completely a means of protecting the real world. Peter B. Parker was overjoyed when he heard the words, and praised Yelly. Dude, you are really good. Such a tricky enemy, just trapped by you. Don't be too happy, the mirror space can only temporarily prevent the spots from wreaking havoc. Yelly struck out, the spot has the ability to teleport, and when he reacts, it will be easy to escape from the mirror space. Ah, this. Peter Poke scratched the pig's nose and said, then what should we do? Don't worry, the main event just begins. Yelly's eyes faintly revealed a crimson light, and red snow slowly appeared around her body. Seeing this, Gonita hurriedly pulled him and reminded him through spiritual communication. Didn't you say before that you don't want to make a big noise? I just tested it. There are many universes connected to this blob. If you do something to him, some existence will notice it. www. It doesn't matter, we can almost try to go after solving this matter. It is not an option to stay in other universes all the time, you have to go home. Yelly made a decision, and his body floated up. Immediately afterwards, the crimson energy all over her body suddenly shrank. The next moment, with energy like red mist, he appeared in front of 320 spots. It is inconvenient to use the kingdom of Weaver God now. Spots can affect the power of the multi-universe, which can be used for research. Maybe we can use this to develop the time-space ability of origin magic power. Although in the movie, Wanda arrived in other multi-universes only after studying the Dark God book. But it does not mean that it can only be developed in this way. Always give it a try. With such a plan, Yelly controls the origin magic power, wrapping it towards the spots exuding gravity. As the crimson energy approaches, the gravitational force will collapse at the touch of a touch and dissipate in invisible. It can only be said that it is indeed the origin magic power, which can even block the power of time and space. Spot also noticed the strangeness of this crimson energy, and the pure black body turned to Yelly. Who are you? He raised his hand, trying to create a portal around Yelly, and Yelly was removed. But he discovered that his ability didn't work at all in any space covered by this weird crimson energy. What's going on? What are you? Spotted panicked and wanted to get away and run away, but found out the origin magic power had enveloped him completely at some point, making him unable to move at all. Don't worry, I won't do anything to you, I just use your body to study. Yelly penetrated the crimson energy into the speckled black body, and using the speckled body as a medium, origin magic power began to touch countless worlds in the multi-universe. Although he also has the network of destiny ability to travel through the world, but it can only reach the world where the spider totem exists. But the spot's ability has no such limitation, and can reach almost any universe. The principles must be different in some places. P.S. In the comics, the spots can even reach the antimatter world's anger zone. 1, 2, a dozen, dozens. Across hundreds of universes, appear in origin magic powers induction king? Yelly didn't stop. He can feel that this is far from the limit. The connected universe is gradually increasing, until more than 3,000 worlds are connected. Yelly finally stopped. It's not that there can't be more, but that it's unnecessary. He has figured out the rules from it. Pull the crimson energy out of the spotted body. Yelly no longer uses spots as a medium, but uses origin magic power to randomly swipe in the void. Space opens a portal from the crack, and the other side of the portal is the unknown universe. It's done. Yelly was satisfied, and with a backhand pull, the time-space portal was closed again. In this way, it is possible to avoid the backhand that the life court may leave in the turbulence of time and space, and return to the original universe. And the spots at the moment are already white all over the body, the black spots are all consumed, and there is no longer any threat. Yelly kept his word and didn't do anything to him. But, all Spider-Mans, you won't let the spots go. All of them rushed up and surrounded him with nowhere to escape. Miles even wanted to kill the enemy directly. Under the advice of Peter and others, he pressed the hatred and decided to hand it over to the police. Yelly never asked about these matters. He helped to solve the spots, which is considered to be the most benevolent, and it is worthwhile to know each other. Now, it's time to get ready to go back. The figure turned into a red mist and dissipated. Then regroup around Gwen and the trio. This process is only a moment, and it is a new teleportation method researched with origin magic power. Yelly put on a normal smile and said, we can leave now, it's time to return to our universe. When Gwen and Gonita heard the words, joy appeared on their faces. After all, who doesn't want to go home? Only Penny had a pitiful face, and asked softly, Lee, do you want it? How could Yelly not know her thoughts, touched her head and replied, yes, do you want to visit our universe? Can I go too? Definitely. Gonita also rubbed Penny's little face, and smiled at her, there are many beautiful sisters playing with you. A lot of beautiful sisters. Penny is no longer a little girl who doesn't understand anything. She immediately glanced at Yelly in surprise, and asked in a low voice, does Sister Gonita have many girlfriends? Not much. Gwen took over the conversation and teased Yelly with a smile, it's just enough to form a football team, isn't it? Lee. Ahem. Yelly couldn't help coughing twice to cover up his embarrassment. Gwen is still to say the least, in fact, there is more than enough to form a football team. Penny opened her mouth wide in surprise, but thinking about the scene when I first met Yelly, and the various rich skills I have taught her since this time, she seemed to be less surprised again. Although a little unhappy, Penny said, I want to be with you. As she said that, she cautiously asked again, "Thatly, you are so powerful, I should be able to go back to see Aunt May and Uncle Ben occasionally. Hehe, you're quite clever." Yelly picked up her petite and tender body, hugged her in his arms and said, "Don't worry, it's fine if you want to go back often." "That's great." The little loli happily put her hands around his neck and kissed him on the face. "So cute." Yelly sniffed the faint fragrance of Penny's body, and then thought of her lovely posture while galloping, and couldn't help but feel a little ready to move. Just this thought. He suddenly thought of something and asked with a strange expression, "Penny, where were we before?" Penny wondered, "We are visiting the Spider Alliance headquarters, what's going on?" "What about before this?" "Before, at Uncle Ben's research institute, we were rushing to rescue them." "Again, what were you doing before this?" "I am here." Penny thought for a while and subconsciously said, "I seem to be eating with Sister Nada." Her face suddenly turned red, she lightly covered her mouth with her little hand, and said sheepishly, "I didn't mean to." "You didn't rinse your mouth." "I forgot." Penny blinked her big, bright black eyes, spit out a little pink and white tongue, and said naughtily, "How about someone lick you clean?" As he spoke, he stuck out his tongue, trying to touch the place he just kissed. "Don't bother." Yelly quickly stretched out his arms and carried Penny away before she could touch her. Cackle. The three girls all laughed at his embarrassed look. "Haha, if you dislike little Penny, what about me?" Gonita swiped the tip of her tongue seductively on her lips, put her perfect body in front of Yelly, stretched out her sexy pink tongue and came closer, about to lick his cheek. Yelly put a hand on her face and pushed her head open. "Open it, you will eat the most." Is talking. He suddenly felt something cool on the side of his cheek. "Turn around and look." Then Gwen shrank her head, gestured with her hands, and showed a victorious smile. "We winly." "Okay, Gwen, you sneak attack me." Yelly hugged her around the waist and raised his palms to use his family skills. "Hey, don't fight." Gwen tilted her hips obediently and explained with an aggrieved look, "I was exhausted before and I didn't eat with Nada and the others." "Hey, I was wrong to blame you." Yelly released her and gently pinched the tip of her nose. Gwen is still the most obedient. "Mr. Ye, we have a proposal." While the four of Yelly were fighting, a group of Spider-Men suddenly came this way. "Huh." Yelly turned to face them and asked, "What's the matter?" The leader, Hobie, took a step forward and greeted him respectfully. "We hope that you can serve as the new leader of the Spider Alliance." "Am I the leader of the Spider Alliance?" Yelly asked doubtfully. "What about Miguel?" Hobie gave a thumbs up with one hand and pointed backwards. The crowd parted, revealing Miguel's figure. He was sitting on a piece of ruins, looking a little lonely. All Spider-Men feel that Miguel's behavior of cutting off Miles' cobweb is too extreme and is no longer worthy of being their leader. They need a more suitable leader. With the admiration of Peter B. Parker, Shadow Spider-Man, and others, Yelly, who can solve no-nos, spots on his own, naturally became the first choice. Yelly used his psychic ability to scan through the thoughts of many Spider-Men and found that most of them were sincere and had admiration for him. He looked at the three Gwen girls and asked for their opinions. "What do you think?" Gwen didn't know what to say, so she shook her head and said, "I don't know, just make your own decision." Penny also followed Gwen and shook her head repeatedly, saying that she didn't understand anything. Gonita, on the other hand, raised her head proudly and said proudly, "What did I say before? Lee K is very powerful. I am going to your alliance to give you face." "Okay, stop singing." Yelly hugged Tunmi's waist and rubbed it, telling her not to be too aggressive. Seeing that none of the three women could explain why, he had no choice but to think about it. If the Spider Alliance manages the Spider Totems, it would be really good. As for how to manage it? Haha, if nothing else, he is very good at being the hands-off shopkeeper. Ghost Spider Club, the position of vice president is still pending. Since the yellow robe is added to the body, no. Yelly frowned, and corrected, "Since you support me so much, I don't want to lose face, it's just what?" Seeing that he seemed to agree, the Spider-Man couldn't help asking questions in unison. "It's just that I, as a person, have a lot of things to do. So I usually won't be in the Spider League. I will choose a few people to manage on my behalf." "Choose someone to manage." All the Spider-Man looked at each other. Pavit Prahacker asks, "Who do you want to pick?" Yelly pointed his fingers a few times and called out names: Shadow Spider-Man, Peter Parker, 1610 Peter Parker, Hobby Brown, Pavit Prahacker, Peter UN. Talking. He embraced Gwen's shoulders, patted Penny's head, and continued, "There are also Gwen Stacy and Penny Parker. The 8 of you will form the Alliance Council in the future and be responsible for handling all routine affairs." Gwen pointed to herself unexpectedly. "I'm coming too." Penny also had a dazed expression. Unexpectedly, Yelly would point to her. "Definitely." Yelly affirmed, "Don't doubt your own abilities, you all have your own strengths, you can divide the work and cooperate." "Then what are you doing?" Finally a Spider-Man couldn't help raising his hand and asked. "Naturally, it is the overall situation." Yelly spread his hands and said indifferently, "Those who agree with my plan put down their 150, and those who disagree raise their hands. I'm in a hurry now, who is in favor and who is against?" The Spider-Man who just raised his hand quickly put it down. The other Spider-Man whispered to each other, but no one raised their hands in the end. It seems to be a good thing to have a few more leaders. At least they won't be as arbitrary as Miguel. "Very well, then you agree. Relevant matters will be dealt with after returning to the Alliance. I just found out that there is a person who doesn't seem to want to do it anymore, so let's solve it first. Yeli stretched and walked into the crowd. Everyone was wondering what he was going to do. See you. He pushed through the crowd, and I got to Miles with his back to them. Just now, when Yeli scanned everyone's thoughts, he found that the little black spider didn't seem to want to be a Spider-Man anymore. That's it. Yeli squatted down, patted Miles on the shoulder, and asked, "Young man, you don't want to be Spider-Man anymore." Miles turned his head slowly, looked at the senior who had avenged him twice, nodded, and said in a low voice, "I can't even protect my loved ones, what else can I do as a Spider-Man? If I can, I don't even want this power." Yeli understood, and asked again, "I can make you an ordinary person, would you like it?" "No problem, if you can do it." Miles has no hesitation. Obviously, the successive deaths of his uncle and father had made him disheartened. "I respect your choice." Yeli stood up and clapped her hands. Slap. The voice rang out. The Spider-Man subconsciously stared at Miles, wanting to see how his power was taken away. Miles also picked up a small piece of broken cement from his side, held it in his palm and squeezed it vigorously. Click. The cement blocks instantly crumbled into smaller pieces. Miles looked up at Yeli suspiciously, wondering if he was being played. But that's it. He suddenly found that other people's eyes were looking behind him. Someone even said, "Who is behind Miles? I don't think I've seen him." Later, Miles was shocked and quickly turned around to look. Then, "See you soon." A muscular figure shrouded in red robes stretched out a thick arm and quickly grabbed his neck. Well, Miles subconsciously wanted to resist, but he found that the opponent's arm was so powerful that he couldn't even move it at all. Others saw this and wanted to step forward to save people. However, Yeli raised his hand to stop him. "Don't panic, read on. Thoros, just absorb the spider totem, don't suck him dry." After receiving Yeli's instructions, Saurus opened his fangs and sharp mouth under his hood, and activated the totem absorption ability unique to the successor. Dash. Miles screamed miserably, and his eyes and mouth suddenly burst into white light. These white lights came out of the body and sank into Saurus's mouth one by one, where they were completely absorbed. After a few seconds, Saurus threw Miles to the ground with a casual throw. "Miles, how are you?" 1610 Peter Parker stepped forward and asked in concern. I feel very weak." Miles sat up with the help of 1610 Peter, picked up another cement fragment, put it in his palm, and squeezed it with all his strength. Hiss. The cement block didn't move at all, but it hurt when he squeezed it in his palm. "I've really become an ordinary person again," Miles murmured to himself, with a hint of loss in his eyes. The other Spider-Man's hearts trembled and they looked at Saurus with fear. This guy actually knows the area? Miles' ability can be taken away, so can they too. Immediately, many people's emotions towards Yeli changed from admiration to awe. A few people who are careful also lie to give up some thoughts that they shouldn't have. However, while others avoided him like a tiger, one person took the initiative to step forward and plead with Yeli. "Please take away my ability, maybe I am no longer suitable to be a Spider-Man." This man was none other than Miguel. Yeli was a little surprised, but he still nodded and said, "Okay, again, I respect your choice." After saying that, he waved his hand and gave the order, allowing Saurus to have another meal. Completed the matter of the 1610 universe. Everyone first returned to the Spider Alliance headquarters to deal with the change of managers. Afterwards, Penny returned to the 1610 universe and said goodbye to Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Finally, Yeli, Gwen, Gonita, and Penny gathered in a room and got ready to go. "Are you all ready?" Yeli confirmed to the three women. Nada smiled playfully. "Ready, Captain. Don't worry, we won't get lost," Gwen said and hugged his arm tightly. Penny was driving a red humanoid mecha, which emitted an electronic voice. "Ready. Okay, I'll take you home." Yeli smiled gently, wrapped crimson energy in his hand, and opened a crack in the void. The crack expanded in the blink of an eye, forming a spacetime door. It can be seen that on the other side of the spacetime door is the entrance of a large club. On the tall door of the club is the logo of Ghost Spider Club. When Gwen saw the long-lost club, she couldn't help but excitedly said, "I'm finally going back. Let's go." Yeli took the lead and stepped into the spacetime portal. Gwen and the other three quickly followed. Several people accompanied each other and crossed over almost at the same time. The complex spacetime glow flows, the tunnel walls twist and change, and various fragments of images occasionally flash through. Gonita looked at the scene in front of her and said blankly, "What's going on? I still entered the time and space channel." "Lee, did you make a mistake somewhere?" "I can confirm that there is no problem with the chosen location." Yeli's expression was slightly ugly, and his eyes quickly scanned the surrounding area. At a boundary wall, he found some clues and immediately shouted coldly in that direction. "Who is doing this? Get out." Boom! Along with the warning, a powerful force field suddenly emitted from his body, causing the time and space channels to tremble. As a result, a small flight machine with a strange shape appeared. A humanoid creature stood on the flight device. Its whole body was covered by a purple-green close-fitting battlesuit. Only a blue face was exposed. Gwen raised her fist vigilantly, put on a fighting posture, and asked, "Who are you? Why are you interfering with us?" Yeli stared at the mysterious man, eyes flickering, and said softly, "Kong." This classic appearance and shape made him immediately recognize this Marvel resident multi-universe Big Boos. I just don't know which version it is. Kong was a little surprised that Yeli recognized him. It seems that you have already achieved some accomplishments in exploring time and space. Then I need to bring you back to TVA even more. 11. Kong opened his palm and raised a section of the flight device under his feet. The device quickly shapeshifted and became a weapon in the shape of a firearm, which he held in his hand. Then, without saying a word, Kong directly raised his weapon and aimed at Yeli and the others. He's going to do it. Penny said anxiously. Be careful. This weapon is very special, and its energy value is astonishingly large. Ganada gave a reminder, and hurriedly turned the 4 floating wings on the back to convert them into 4 floating cannons, wanting to confront Kong Lai. Yeli moves faster and more decisively than her. The knitter wears the divine garment instantly, and the Golden Life Messenger status is activated, dyeing the divine garment golden and radiant. He knows Kang's power better than Ganada. This is the ruthless character who kidnapped Scarlet Witch in the comics, and he must not be taken lightly. It's too late, but it's fast. The weapon in Kang's hand exploded with azure energy, rushing towards several people. Even the turbulent flow of time and space could not stop it. Yeli also raised his palm at the same time. A giant golden hand condensed in front of him, and grabbed towards Kong. The giant hand is too huge, so that the spacetime channel can't hold it, and it fills the entire space, rubbing the barriers to create some spacetime cracks. Halfway through the journey, the giant golden hand was wrapped around Origin magic power, which was even more powerful. Until it connects with the blue energy, it is so pressed that it keeps retreating. Surprise appeared on Kang's face, and the other hand immediately adjusted the power of the weapon to the maximum. 0, please give me flowers. The blue energy suddenly expanded several times, like a huge ocean wave flowing in time and space, beating the giant golden hand. It seems you are no more than that. But Yeli evoked a smile, and his hand turned into a claw, and suddenly he grabbed it. The giant golden hand breaks through the blue energy blockade, covers Kong and his flight device, and grabs down. Boom! The extreme energy exploded and scattered, blasting the surrounding time and space into pieces. 0. A terrifying spacetime storm followed, destroying everything and devouring the surroundings. Watching this horrifying scene, the smile on Yeli's face disappeared instantly. Oops. Too much force. What now? Gwen asked worriedly. Under the storm of time and space are chaotic, and all time and space abilities can't work. Yeli frowned, didn't have time to think, and immediately said, I can't help it, you all come close to me. When the 3 of them heard that there was no hesitation, they all leaned over immediately. And Yeli didn't dawdle, he opened his hands, and the Destiny spider web emerged out of thin air from his palms. The cobweb quickly spread and weaved, forming a huge amounts of silk cocoon, enveloping everyone in it. Boom! At the same time, the spacetime storm also swept in, drowning everything. Paradise Island. A blazing white meteor streaked across the sky, split into 4 smaller points of light, and scattered in all directions. 3 of them flickered for a few times and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. It was unknown where they went. The remaining light spot slid through an arc, flew over the island, and fell straight into the blue water, causing quite a stir. WWW. On the cliffs of Paradise Island. Diana happened to be looking out into the distance and relaxing, and happened to witness the entire process of the meteor falling. The girl was slightly startled by this. A few seconds later, without much hesitation, she ran a few steps forward, jumped off the cliff in a vigorous posture and fell 140, plunged into the sea with a perfect falling posture, and slid a beautiful curve in the water. Bubble trail. Immediately afterwards, she swam her slender body like an agile marlin to the place where the light spot fell. Is this a girl? What Diana saw was a beautiful blonde girl who looked to be about the same age as her. The girl curled up her snow-white and graceful body, crossed her arms and hugged her shoulders, floating quietly in the sea and sleeping, like a baby still in her mother's womb. There were still strands of silk threads on her body, wrapped like bandages. As the time goes, these threads turned into golden light spots and slowly dispersed. The whole picture was very beautiful, and Diana was stunned for a moment. After a few breaths, she finally realized what she was doing and swam over to save people. At this time, all the silk threads on the blonde girl's body had turned into light spots and dispersed, revealing her naked and exquisite body. Diana looked a little surprised again. She has always felt that women should be as strong and good at fighting as their master Antiope. But now, seeing the fair skin and slender figure of the blonde girl, for the first time she felt, this also seems to be good. Thinking that Diane was already close to the beautiful girl, she was about to reach out and touch her. But the blonde girl suddenly opened her eyes and grabbed Diana's wrist first. Cough. As soon as Gwen woke up, she called Yeli's name out of habit, but what she got in exchange was not a gentle kiss, but a strong gulp of sea water. Only then did she fully wake up, observe her surroundings, and realize that she was in the water. And there is a girl in front of me. Gwen couldn't help but look puzzled. She wanted to ask the girl in front of her how she was doing now, but the current situation was obviously not a good time. Gwen had no choice but to hold Diana's hand first, and made her swim to the surface together. After swimming to the surface, Gwen immediately asked Diana, "Hello, where is this? Who are you? Did you see a man and 2 girls? My name is Diana, and this is Paradise Island. As for the man you said, we never had a man in Paradise Island." After answering Gwen's 3 consecutive questions, Diana asked in turn, "Who are you? Why did you fall from the sky? And can you fly?" Gwen was a little confused, not knowing where this paradise island was. "Look, it should still be on the ground. I hope that they are not scattered into different universes with them." Gwen couldn't help but feel worried, because she also found that she was naked, her destiny cobweb was exhausted, and the time and space bracelet from the Spider Alliance was also gone. In other words, she can't travel through time and space now. Seeing that Gwen was absent-minded, Diana was not in a hurry to ask, "Let me swim you ashore first." With that said, he took the lead and swam towards the shore. Gwen hesitated for a moment and swam over. After landing, Diana looked at Gwen's hands crossed over her chest, and said, "It's not a solution for you to be naked like this. I'll take you to the island to get some clothes to wear. Someone will see it." Gwen blushed slightly. "Don't worry, didn't I just say that there are only women on our island?" "Then, thank you, please, Diana." Gwen nodded in thanks, protruding the golden thread from her fingertips, and temporarily covered her body with the golden light spell. Although there are only women on this island, but in public, she is still embarrassed to be naked. The other side. The waters near Paradise Island. A figure suddenly appeared. I almost fell into another time and space again, but fortunately I reacted quickly enough, otherwise it would be really difficult to get separated from Gwen and the others. Yelligza 0.8 stood in the air, and used the Fate Spider Web to sense it. As a result, I didn't sense the existence of other cobwebs in this universe. How could it be? Could it be a mistake? No, maybe the cobweb was consumed in the storm. Try sensing Spirit Shield to see. Yelly has to find another way. Hyun? There was a voice behind him. Yelly turned around and looked. I saw an old-fashioned fighter jet, blowing flames and black smoke, smashing towards him. Looking at this style, it looks like something from the First World War. Yelly looked at the plane and muttered to himself, and at the same time raised his hand to unfold the divine force field. The fighter plane seemed to hit an invisible barrier and immediately exploded, breaking into pieces and falling into the sea. Almost messed up my hair. Yelly withdrew the divine force field and smoothed the hair on his forehead. Just now, I seem to have seen a charred human figure exploded out. It should be the pilot of the fighter jet. He was just a passerby, and he bumped into him by himself. Yelly didn't pay much attention to it. However, the bursting flames of the fighter jet attracted the attention of others. There, go forward. That pilot 05, over there, I saw the wreckage of the fighter plane. On the foggy sea surface, an antique-style warship slowly sailed out, surrounded by several rowing boats. Whether they are warships or people on hand-drawn boats, they are all wearing gray-green military uniforms and carrying single-shot rifles. German Army. Seeing the military flag hanging on the warship, Yelly recognized the Navy's affiliation. At this time, the Navy passed through the fog shrouding the periphery of Paradise Island and saw Yelly floating in the air. They couldn't help but were stunned. What's this? It looks like a person. Who can tell me why he can float in the sky? Is this a new American invention? He's flying over here. Fire! Fire! Bang! 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 Gunshots rang out rapidly and continuously. The bullets flew in front of Yelly like a slow-motion picture. Clang! He flicked his finger and deflected a bullet playfully. Then he didn't bother to continue to pick it up, and his figure flashed and came behind the Navy. Without waiting for the German army to react, Yelly's eyes lit up with golden-orange light, and his spiritual power was swept away. Everyone on the warship stopped immediately and stood there blankly. At the same time, Yelly also read their memories and learned that the current world was indeed during the First World War. It's okay, it's relatively normal, it's just that it's a little early. Yelly waved his hand, and a Navy man brought a deck chair. He pulled up the chair and lay down on it comfortably. Then, the Navy gradually brought in small tables and plates of seafood and drinks. While blowing the sea breeze, Yelly felt the existence of spiritual shield. Gwen and Penny were all subjected to absolute mind shield by him. Destiny Cobweb may be consumed, but the psychic shield will never disappear. Paradise Island, Diana's residence. How about it? Is it suitable? It fits pretty well, but it's a little long. After Gwen put on the clothes given by Diana, she smiled and said, "Because Diana, you are taller. We, the warriors of the Amazon clan, are all like this." Diana brought her another glass of warm water and said with a bright smile, "Come on, the sea water is cold. Drink some warm water first to warm your body. Don't get sick." "Thanks." Gwen thanked her, took the warm water and took a sip, then continued chatting. "Your tribe is so tall, so you must be very rich in supermodels." "Supermodel? What is that?" Diana has doubts in her eyes. "Do not you know?" Gwen's heart skipped a beat and she asked again, "What about mobile phones, computers, cars? Have you ever heard of these things?" No." Diana was confused and shook her head, indicating that she didn't understand it at all. Is this place really ancient? When entering Paradise Island, Gwen felt that the island was like a Greek folk customs utopia. Now I see Diana asking questions and being confused, and I feel even more doubtful and uneasy. Fortunately, at the moment, a familiar and reliable voice rang in her mind. "Gwen, can you hear me? Leave?" Gwen called out in surprise, her eyes turned into peach blossoms in an instant, and she said sweetly, "I knew it. No matter where I am, you will definitely find me. It's best to be away." Okay, don't get too excited. In fact, we had some accidents. What accident? I only found you, but I haven't found Ta and Penny yet. You mean, we are all scattered? Gwen became worried again. So, Lee, what should I do now? Don't worry, I'll look for it in another way, but I need to concentrate a little more. There shouldn't be any dangerous situation over there for the time being, right? Gwen looked at Diana, who was looking at her curiously, and reassured Yelly, no, I just met a friend. She is very nice. I am resting at her house now. Little Spider-Man, don't let anyone fool you. Don't worry, Lee, I'm a very smart worker. Okay, then just stay well and I will come find you in a while. And the psychic communication with Gwen. Yelly sat cross-legged, suspended from the recliner, and floated in midair. The god's telekinesis centered on him and gradually spread outward. The powerful world weaver godhead allows him to cover the entire ocean with the god's telekinesis without any hindrance, and then spread to the land until it covers the entire world. During this process, he saw the flames of war and the displacement of innocent refugees. I also saw some of the secrets hidden in this world. There are also a few mysterious beings who tried to shield his perception, but he forcibly broke through. However, there is still no trace of Gonada and Penny. This means, 1. They may have fallen to other corners of the universe. 2. It may not be at this time. 3. It may not even land in this universe. Yelly quickly ruled out the third item using exclusion analysis. Because, he found under the shadow of the god's telekinesis. This universe is naturally the DC universe. Already out of the scope of the Marvel universe? Before, Yelly just woke up at the moment of dispersion, and realized that the spacetime energy entangled in Penny and Gonada was no longer enough to leave this universe. That's why the third item was eliminated. Among the remaining 2 items, Yelly prefers the second one. After all, if Gonada and the others were at this point in time, no matter where they were in the universe, he should be able to feel the psychic shield on them. If it falls to other time points, it is really difficult to handle. The ghost knows how many years in the past and the future. Yelly frowned, fell back on the recliner, reached out and took a glass of wine from the table and took a sip. Puff. The drink spurted out of his mouth. It tastes bad, as expected of the military. Yelly complained, threw the wine glass into the arms of a soldier, then pulled a crab leg from the dinner plate, stuffed the white crab meat into his mouth, chewed it, and mumbled to himself. Well, seafood without nuclear radiation tastes good. Forget it, let's find Gwen first, the boat will go straight to the bridge. Just as he was talking, the bow of the ship suddenly passed through a transparent barrier, and the front suddenly became enlightened, and the fog disappeared. Instead, there is a beautiful island. Blue to transparent sea water, shallow to reflective sandy beach, bright and bright sunshine under the sky. Turn out to be under no one's control. The warship has been moving forward slowly, and accidentally entered the hidden range of Paradise Island. Gwen, what are you thinking about? Diana stared at Gwen's unfocused eyes and asked strangely. Gwen came back to her senses and explained, it's nothing, I was thinking about my boyfriend. By the way, do you know what boyfriend means? Diana guessed, male friends. No, Gwen corrected her, boyfriend means lover. Love. Diana seemed to understand, I've never even seen a man. That's right. Diana remembered what Gwen had inquired about before and asked, is your lover the man you said before, that he got separated? Yeah, it's Lee. His name is I. Then you must be very sad, separated from your lover. Gwen shook her head, he will come to me soon. Really? How did you know? We have a connection. Diana had a question mark on her forehead, not quite understanding what Gwen said. Tap tap tap. Suddenly there was a sound of footsteps passing by outside the door. It sounded like there were many people and they were in a hurry. At the same time, Diana also heard the voice of the teacher Antiope conducting. #hurry up. If there is an enemy invasion, please gather at the southern cliff. Bring your bows and arrows. The voice of Antiope, there is an enemy invasion. After Diana heard clearly, she stood up and said, I have to help quickly. Gwen, please stay here and don't go out. Gwen thought for a while, stood up from the chair, and said, let me go with you, maybe I can be of some help. No, you must not come out. Diana refused. I have grown up on Paradise Island for so long, and this is the first time I encountered an enemy invasion. I didn't know how dangerous it would be. Although you have some special abilities, this matter has nothing to do with you, and I can't let you get involved. Look at her serious look. Suddenly, Gwen seemed to see her best friend Jessica, and couldn't help but smile warmly, really, put her hand on her shoulder, and said, are we friends? Definitely. Diana nodded. Ever since she was a child, she has always been the only child in heaven, and she still hopes to have a friend of the same age. Well, at least they look the same age. Then don't refuse me. Gwen took the initiative to pull her up and walked out. Gwen. Diana, who was still relatively innocent at the moment, was deeply moved by this. However, she didn't know. In fact, Gwen also wanted to confirm whether this so-called enemy was Yelly. If so, you must come forward and say it, otherwise it will be bad for us if we make a mistake. The beautiful island hidden in the shield, or the DC world. Looking at the island in front of you, Yelly's mind turned around and he quickly came to a conclusion. It seems that this is the Paradise Island. Gwen should be on this island. Archers prepare. In front of the warship, on the cliff not far away, Hippolyta, the queen of the Amazon clan, gave a loud order, and the female warriors bent their bows and arrows, aiming at the steel monster of unknown origin on the sea. Gwen followed Diana and stood in the second row of the crowd, unable to see clearly what was going on in front of her. She stood on tiptoes, looking over the heads of the tall warriors in front of her, and then she saw the warships approaching the coastline. It's actually the German Navy. Gwen was a little confused. Why did the painting style of the ancient Greek city-state become modern again? However, wait until you see the person at the bow of the boat clearly. She immediately couldn't care less about Greece or Germany. It's Lee. Gwen let out a soft cry and quickly pulled Diana next to her, reminding her, my boyfriend is on this ship. Diana, please tell your tribe not to do anything. She was not worried about something happening to Yeli, but she was worried that Diana's tribe would make him angry. But, stop it, it won't be good if you fight. You don't want to see your clan members get hurt, right? 4708. After a moment of hesitation, Diana gritted her teeth and shouted to Hippolyta, Mom, wait a minute? Those on the sea are not enemies, don't do anything. Mother. Gwen was slightly stunned. So Diana is still a princess. She just learned from everyone's conversation that the woman riding the white horse was the queen of the Amazon clan. What's wrong, Diana? Hippolyta turned to look at her daughter and said seriously, this is an important moment, please don't cause trouble. No. Diana took Gwen's wrist and gestured, my friend said that her lover was on the iron ship. Friend? Lover? Hippolyta looked Gwen up and down, her brows gradually furrowed. Who are you? There seems to be no one like you among our Amazons. Hearing this, the people around him also looked at Gwen carefully, becoming increasingly suspicious. Yes, I didn't notice just now. Among our tribe, no one has such white skin. I've never met her. Fac, who are you? Although Gwen is now wearing Amazon clothing, her blonde hair, blue eyes, and fair skin are completely different from Amazons with healthy wheat-colored skin, which quickly aroused everyone's discussion. Diana's master Antiope took a step forward and asked sternly, Diana, where did you bring this girl? From. Diana glanced at Gwen and hesitated, picked it up from the sea. Gwen, picked it up from the sea? Antiope asked in disbelief. When? Not long ago, a meteor flashed across the sky. Looking at everyone's expressions, Diana seemed to see that they were not happy, so she lowered her head and spoke truthfully. I ran into the ocean and discovered, Gwen was the shooting star. She seemed like the child of God mentioned in my mother's stories, so I brought her back. Child of God. Hippolyta frowned even more tightly, did she tell you? It's not. I just guessed. Antiope, did you ask her where she came from? It's not too late. So you brought such a person with a strange identity and unknown origin into Paradise Island? And you believed what she said so easily? He raised his body and reprimanded, what should I do with the spies sent by the people on the ship? The female warriors also agreed one after another. Yeah, how could Diana bring someone she just met to the island? This man fell from the sky. It's so weird. Could it be that Ares, the god of war, sent us to find us? To be on the safe side, arrest her quickly. Gwen curled her lips at this. Although she is a good person, I have to admit that Diana is indeed a bit too naive. Come on, I don't think Gwen is a bad person. Diana opened her arms to protect Gwen. At the same time, she turned her head and apologized to her in a low voice, I'm sorry, Gwen, I didn't expect things to turn out like this. Fine. Gwen smiled sweetly and cheerfully, I have long been used to being misunderstood, this is nothing. When she first started working on Ghost Spider, wasn't she also misunderstood? But later, she became a superhero idol that was popular all over the world. So Gwen believes that the misunderstanding will always be resolved. Is this a misunderstanding? I'll tie it up first and use the mantra lasso to ask. Antiope waved his hand, and all the female warriors rushed forward to catch Gwen. Diana wanted to stop it, but Hippolyta pulled her aside. However, in the face of the crowd's roundup, Gwen did not panic. The girl waved her hand and slapped away the female warrior who was leading the way. She then evaded among the crowd with ease, and even raised her eyebrows slightly at Antiope. I'm afraid this won't work, ma'am. You. Antiope was about to get angry when provoked. But at the moment, Gwen waved to Diana and said goodbye. Okay, no more fun, Diana. Goodbye. Thank you for your hospitality. I hope we can meet again if we have the opportunity. Everyone looked suspicious when they heard this. How do you want to move forward amid this heavy siege? Gwen. Diana was also stunned. Just when everyone was confused, Gwen blinked her blue eyes, and her body sank quickly, submerging herself into her own shadow beam. The Amazon female warriors were stunned. She can actually escape from the shadows. Is this girl really a member of the Divine Zone? Hippolyta got off the horse, took a step forward, squatted down, and stared at the place where Gwen disappeared with a solemn expression. The shadow, could it be related to Narcissus? I hope it's not Ares' conspiracy. P.S. Narcissus, the flower god associated with shadows in ancient Greek mythology, was handsome and narcissistic. He fell in love with his own reflection in the water, then jumped into the water and drowned, turning into a narcissus flower. We cannot place our hopes in prayer, Hippolytus. Antiope said seriously, if Ares really finds Paradise Island, it will be a catastrophic disaster for us. Hippolyta's eyes froze, she raised her head and asked, what do you want to say? We should take a preemptive strike and send the strongest warriors in the clan to investigate whether Ares has any signs of activity. Antiope's eyes swept across the Amazon warriors, and finally fell on Diana. This is also a chance for Diana to make up for her mistakes. She is the best among us and defeated me in the competition. Me. Diana pointed at herself, slightly stunned. However, she had a courageous temper. Thinking that the safety of Paradise Island was at stake, she quickly volunteered, if it's Ares's matter, I'm willing. No. Hippolyta stood up and firmly denied, Diana is different from us, she is very special. As the queen, I will not allow her to make any mistakes. Please give me flowers. It is precisely because Diana is special that only she can deal with Ares. Antiope retorted, this is her fate, you should not stop her. She is my daughter. Hippolyta said tit for tat, Ares's possible conspiracy is just a guess. You can't send her out just because of this. The two argued endlessly, leaving Diana a bit at a loss. Fortunately, at this moment, a female soldier responsible for observing the sea surface suddenly shouted, the iron ship has stopped. When the two heard this, they quickly stopped arguing and led everyone to the cliff to check. It's the girl from before. Amazons have very good eyesight, and Hippolyta saw Gwen at the bow of the ship. Antiope glared at Diana, look, she is really in the same group with these people. Diana curled her lips and murmured in a low voice, didn't I tell you that Gwen's boyfriend is on the boat and she must go there? On the other side, on the warship. Gwen jumped out from a shadow and saw Yeli still lying leisurely on the chair. She couldn't help but said angrily and amusedly, didn't you say that both Gonada and Penny were lost? You are still so relaxed. Don't be anxious, you can't eat hot beans if you're anxious. Well, no. It's useless to be anxious. Yeli naturally noticed Gwen's arrival, stood up from the recliner and said, they probably fell to other time nodes. To find them, I have to use the spider web of fate to search the entire river of time. This will not happen in a short time. So, it will take some time. Gwen had an idea, ran to the side of the boat, pointed to Paradise Island and said, why don't we go to the island first? I just met a new friend there. You can go over and clear up the misunderstanding among her people. Misunderstand. Yeli also walked over, stood next to her and blew the sea breeze together, and gave her a piece of fried fish cold from the plate. What misunderstanding? Well, not bad. Gwen's mouth was stuffed full, and after chewing a few mouthfuls, she briefly told Yeli her experience on Paradise Island. Oh, did they bully you? 087. After Yeli listened, his eyes looking at Paradise Island became unhappy. No. The girl wiped her glossy pink lips and said hurriedly, Diana is very kind. Her people just misunderstood. Just explain. Diana? Is she that Wonder Woman? Then I have to go to the island to see it. Thinking about it, Yeli took a look at Gwen's Amazon clothes, caressed her smooth and white belly with his palms, and said with a smile, your outfit has a unique flavor. What are you doing? Gwen said coquettishly and patted his hand away. You haven't touched me enough, so you should do business first. Correct. As she spoke, she looked at the navy around her and asked, what's going on with these German soldiers and this warship? Just picked it up on the street. They're bringing the boat over again. Seeing that the warship was about to dock, the female warriors quickly raised their bows and arrows. I knew that man was a spy. Antiope said to Diana angrily, Diana, what else can you say to excuse yourself? She just said she was leaving, and now she brings these people here. What are you, if not a spy, leading the way? This, she may have brought someone to explain. Diana was not so sure this time. After all, she had just met Gwen. Although Gwen acted very friendly, Diana was not a fool, and it was impossible for her to be unguarded. Seeing that his disciples were also beginning to waver, Antiope ordered the archers, fire arrows and don't let them get close. Wait a minute. Diana wanted to say something else, but it was too late. The archers were ordered to immediately loosen the fully drawn bowstrings and let the arrows shoot out quickly. The rain of arrows in the sky was overwhelming, like a giant net, covering the coast. Yeli had already perceived in advance, and under the control of his mind, he asked the navy to form human shields to block the front. Puchi, puchi. The sounds of sharp arrows entering the body were heard one after another, and the soldiers fell down one by one without any resistance. There was a river of blood on the deck. Gwen was stunned and covered her mouth and said, they are. Don't be afraid, I'm in control. There was a bit of ruthlessness in Yeli's eyes. They wanted to attack me before, but it's time to deal with them now. This is also the reason why he approached in a warship instead of teleporting directly with Gwen. It would be so much fun to let Amazon kill people for him. And Yeli's killing with a borrowed knife also shocked all the Amazons on the cliff. What a brave warrior, he actually laid his forehead for the leader so carefully. Antiope was shocked and admired the spirit of the navy. Hippolyta also nodded, enemies with terrible will, but their defense methods don't seem to be very good. What enemy? They haven't done anything yet. Seeing so many corpses falling on the ship in an instant, Diana couldn't bear to say, you are too hasty to do this, you should wait for them to send news. We Amazons cannot be so weak, Diana. Antiope taught her a lesson, they are too close. We must attack from this distance, otherwise the ones who die may be our clan. This. Diana wanted to retort, but couldn't find any reason for the moment. She never imagined that all this was done intentionally by Yeli. Ka. At this moment, a dull sound of metal twisting sounded from the sea. Hippolyta and others immediately looked closely and found that the iron ship began to sink to the bottom of the sea and gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. 3.2. How is this going? When did our bows and arrows become so powerful? Everyone was confused and couldn't figure out what was going on. No, Gwen. Only Diana shouted anxiously, wanting to jump off the cliff again and go to the sea to save people. But as soon as she took a step, there was a voice behind her, which made her stop. I'm here, what's wrong, Diana? Diana immediately turned around and saw Gwen looking at him with a smile. Gwen. Diana screamed with joy, and hurriedly stepped forward to touch Gwen, touching here and there to check. Are you okay? You scared me to death just now. Oh, don't touch it. Gwen blushed and slapped her hand away, glanced at Yeli who was resting next to her, and said, my boyfriend is still here watching. This is my boyfriend. Diana whispered next to Gwen, looking at Yeli curiously with her amber eyes. She had never seen a man before and didn't understand anything about boyfriends. She just felt. Although Yeli was strangely good-looking, she was different from the pretty girls on the island and gave people a strange feeling. The Princess of Paradise Island didn't know that this feeling was actually a girl's perception of the opposite sex. Who are you? At this time, Queen Hippolyta and Instructor Antiope led the Amazon female warriors to surround Yeli, and dense spears surrounded them. Seeing this, Gwen didn't look panicked at all. She folded her arms and chuckled at Hippolyta. Your Majesty, you should know that this is of no use to us, right? It's better to put down your weapons and talk. As she said that, she playfully raised an arm and put it on Yeli's shoulder. Otherwise, I'm not sure what this little brother next to me will do. Yeli also cooperated with her cup filling, raised her hand and made a squeezing motion. All the weapons of the Amazon warriors flew out of their hands, twisted and entangled in the sky, and were crushed into 12 pieces of scrap metal. You have also seen the gap in strength. I can deal with you at any time if I want. If Paradise Island can continue to this day, it should know how to fear the strong. The Amazons looked at each other, some with angry expressions, and some with fear, but for the time being, no one dared to complain about Yeli anymore. Only with a strong fist can you have the right to speak. This is the eternal truth. Hippolyta looked a little hesitant, and suddenly stepped forward, touched her chest and bowed, and performed a hospitality etiquette to Yeli. May I ask who you are, why you want to visit Paradise Island, and what is your purpose? Do not think too much. Yeli put his hand around Gwen's slender waist and said with a smile, my partner fell on your island, I just came to find her. Is it just that? Hippolyta's eyes flickered and she asked another question, are you gods? Antiope couldn't hold it any longer at the moment and asked urgently, what is your relationship with Ares, the god of war? I said you have too many problems. Yeli was a little unhappy, but for the sake of Diana taking care of Gwen, he still said, strictly speaking, I am indeed a god, but I have nothing to do with your Olympus god system. He is an upright dimensional Mephisto. How can a little god like Ares compare to him? Diana looked surprised and glanced up and down Yeli, so you are the legendary god, no wonder you feel different. It might be different than you think. Yeli opened his hand and waved, and the sky seemed to be torn apart, revealing a vast purple-gold sky. He now has no regard for connecting to the Weaver latitude. After all, no matter how powerful the Life Tribunal is, it cannot control the DC universe. As for why the Weaver latitude can still be connected to DC, it is because the Weaver latitude has already become his inner universe. The kingdom of God shrouded over Paradise Island exuded powerful power, oppressing everyone below. Faced with such awe-inspiring power, the Amazon women gave up their last doubts and looked at Yeli in complete awe. Dear Lord God. Hippolyta struggled to apologize. I apologize for the previous offense. All orders were given by me. Please don't transfer your anger to Paradise Island. I meant to thank you for your heroic battle with Elon. She also thought that Yeli launched such a force to avenge the Navy soldiers who were killed before. Obviously, Her Majesty the Queen did not change her mind for a moment. Since Yeli has such strength, why do she need the Navy to block the arrow? A brave warrior. Yeli shook his head and said with a smile, those are just guys who overestimate their capabilities. Speaking of which, they also have something to do with Ares, the god of war you call. Ares. Hearing this name, Queen Hippolyta no longer bothered to ask the Navy about blocking arrows, and hurriedly asked him, do those people have any connection with Ares? Oops. I'm not in a good mood right now. Yeli put away the phantom of the kingdom of God in the sky, placed his palms on Diana's shoulders, and then continued with a very natural expression, so what if I know the news about Ares, the god of war, why should I talk to you? What do you mean? Having just answered so many of your questions, I am already very tolerant. Seeing him hugging Diana without any surprise, Gwen curled her lips speechlessly and muttered, you big pervert, you are so thick-skinned. Hippolyta's eyes twitched at the sight. What does this mean? Does she need to use her daughter to apologize? As for Diana herself, she didn't have much reaction. The girl just stared at the palm on her shoulder for a few seconds, then turned to look at Yeli and asked with pure eyes, what are you doing? Oh, Wonder Woman in this period is quite cute. Yeli got a little playful and teased her, when my hands are tired, let me rest on your shoulder for a while. Are your hands tired? Diana still had doubts in her eyes. Could a god tire so easily? But she didn't hate the feeling of contact with Yeli, so she didn't slap his palm down. Just. Why does Gwen look unhappy? Her Highness the Princess thought. As a mother, Hippolyta finally couldn't stand it anymore. She quickly stepped forward and held Yeli's hand, took it off her daughter's shoulder, and then kissed the back of his hand gently to show respect and unintentional offend. Your Excellency God, if you are unhappy with our behavior, please stay on the island for a while. We will certainly entertain you warmly and apologize. She wanted to coax this unknown god first, and then slowly figure out how to find out the news about Ares, the god of war. Are you staying as a guest? Yeli thought about it for a few seconds and felt that it was not impossible. Anyway, he wanted to find a quiet place and slowly search the river of time. This isolated paradise island is indeed a good choice. Moreover, although the Amazon women are belligerent and fierce, they all have supermodel-level figures, which are quite eye-catching. If Tony saw this, he would definitely call him Paradise Island. It's so apt. Okay, then let me see how you Amazons treat guests. After pondering for a few breaths, Yeli agreed and shook hands with Her Majesty the Queen as a sign of friendship. You don't have to be too afraid. I sailed the boat without permission and entered the Paradise Island area. It is reasonable for you to launch an attack. However, it is best not to have a next time. Hearing this, Hippolyta finally breathed a sigh of relief, and then waved her hand to two beautiful female warriors, asking them to immediately take Yeli to the best residence and give them the best treatment. 9:30. 2 days later. In a natural cave on Paradise Island, the spring water exudes blue fluorescence and flows slowly in a small pool. Wow! One of the legs was flawless and gently stirred the water surface with a little splash. Yeli was splashed on the back, turned around quickly, and grabbed the girl's cute feet that were trying to retract. Why, you still want to do it again? No need. Gwen leaned against the edge of the pool, her cheeks still a little jumpy. She shook her feet tiredly and begged for mercy. I was wrong, don't come. I just think the color of the water is quite interesting. It's the same as my ballet shoes. Yeli took a little spring water in his palm and looked at it. It's just that the color is a bit special. After all, he is a person who has traveled through the world, so don't make a fuss about everything. Well, not interesting. Gwen puffed up her mouth after being taught a lesson, and said unhappily, Lee, do you think we can find Gonada and the others when we can, and then go back together? Yeli swam to her side and held her in his arms. Are you homesick? A little, but more because. Gwen bit her pink lips slightly, closed her beautiful legs unconsciously, and said feebly, without Jessica and the others. I really can't hold on alone. Hearing this, Yeli chuckled and rubbed her shoulders. Then what do you think we should do? TRO. The young girl turned over her white body, sat in his arms, and whispered in her ear, you should consider Diana. I see you have been flirting with each other these past 2 days. You are the only one who has many bad ideas. Yeli grabbed Yingying's waist and pressed down violently. Diana can't save you. Oops. Gwen screamed, but couldn't break free. Why are you? Be patient, Anne. Well, Hippolyta and Antiope have been thinking about Ares, the god of war, for the past 2 days. They are constantly discussing with the Amazons and trying to find ways to get information from Yeli. A bold Amazon executive suggested, just use the lasso of truth on him. Her Majesty the Queen immediately rejected this stupid proposal. If he is angered, Paradise Island will definitely face an unprecedented disaster. If it were Hippolyta who was a long time ago, she might have been so reckless. Even if not a single soldier is left in the battle, the fighting spirit of the Amazons must not be insulted. However, since having Diana, the Queen's heart was softened by maternal love. Once, in order to save Diana from fighting, Hippolyta would rather give up the potential of the god-killing weapon than allow her to undergo combat training. This shows her doting on Diana. Therefore, any danger that may affect Diana, Her Majesty the Queen will have to think more about it now. And Hippolyta and others are eager for news about Ares. Diana naturally noticed it. Considering the disaster that the terrible god of war will bring, she decided to come forward in person and try to ask the god Yeli. This is it. After finding out where Yeli is, with thoughts in mind, Diana came to the outside of Blue Spring Cave and wanted to go in to find someone. However, as soon as she arrived at the entrance of the cave, she saw a few people outside. They are several young and beautiful girls from the Amazon tribe. They were poking their heads inside, still talking in whispers. That's what a man is. It is indeed different from us. What are you doing? I don't know, it looks weird. Why is it like this? Diana stepped forward strangely and patted one of them. What are you doing? Well. The little girl being photographed was so frightened that she was about to scream, but fortunately the friend next to her covered her mouth in time. SHH. We are observing men. Observe men, are you peeking at Lord Tenjin? Diana pushed them away, raised a finger, and expelled. Hurry up and be careful not to be discovered by Lord God. If he is angry, he will twist you into a ball. Twist into a ball. Several young girls were so frightened that they quickly left here. Watching them run away, Diana raised a sly smile on her lips. What I just said was definitely meant to scare these girls. After getting along with each other for these 2 days, she knew that Yeli was actually quite kind and would not just twist girls into balls. How can the body of Lord God be desecrated by these little girls? It's definitely up to me to observe it myself. Thinking like this, Diana looked into the cave with interest. With just one glance, you can clearly see the mandarin ducks playing in the water. It turns out that the different kind is meant to be used like this. The more the girl looked at it, the more novel it became, and she couldn't help but step closer to it. Regarding her arrival, the two people in the blue spring naturally said, to Wang. Yeli pretended not to notice, squinting contentedly by the spring pool. Gwen clamped her sore legs vigilantly and looked towards the passage. Who? It's me, Gwen. Seeing that she had been discovered, Diana stood up openly and slapped the two of them curiously. What are you doing? Is it a kind of training? Yes, this is a special kind of training. Yelly opened his eyes with a smile and said, do you want to learn? Diana frowned, what's the use of this kind of training? Gwen looks very tired, this builds your body's endurance and allows your muscles to relax. With that said, Yelly asked Gwen to demonstrate several training essentials to Diana. Look, that's it, do you see it clearly? Oh, Diana said in surprise, it seems pretty powerful. Gwen is sweating so much. Perhaps because she felt that the secret training method could not be leaked, Gwen quickly turned her upper body and reached out to block the connection point of the training equipment. Diana, why are you here? You, don't listen to his nonsense, no one trains like this. I want to ask about Ares, the god of war. Speaking of this matter, Diana's eyes became determined, and she walked directly to the two people on the spring water, sat on the edge of the pool, and said to Yelly, Ares has always tried to launch an endless war, bringing unprecedented consequences. The tragic situation. So, if you know the news about Ares 613, please tell us, this is all for those innocent lives. Oh, Yelly straightened his back, sat up straighter, and asked knowingly, what does Ares' killing of innocent creatures have to do with you Amazons? Diana looked serious and said, stopping the god of war is the reason for our existence. As Amazons, this is our responsibility. Yelly asked again, so, your mother asked you to ask me. Diana shook her head, I asked myself. Okay, I'll tell you some news first. Yelly stopped and said, Ares, Bev, has started a war. Real. Diana cheered up, what kind of war is it and how wide the impact is? 27 countries participated in the war for various interests, and about 25 million people have died as a result. What? Diana's eyes were shocked, and she didn't care about politeness. She reached out and grabbed Yelly's hand, please tell me more, I must stop this tragic war. How do you want to stop it? Definitely defeat Ares. Ares is just a trigger. The war has entered a fever pitch. Even if you kill him, this war will not stop. Then I will help the just side and end this war. Oh. Yelly said calmly, both sides in this war cannot be said to be just. Which side are you going to help? What he said was not nonsense. The main participating countries in the World War I were just for profit-driven colonial plunder. Diana was stunned by his question. Gwen finally couldn't stand it any longer, interrupted the conversation between the two of them, and pinched Yelly weakly with her hand. Why is it so embarrassing to talk about such a serious topic at this time? Diana wondered, what's wrong, Gwen? Hey, Diana, you are too naive. Gwen lifted the gold thread on her forehead that was stuck to the sweat, and said, holding back her shame, can you go out for a while? If there is anything important, we will talk about it later. Oh, okay, if you mind, Gwen. Diana glanced at Yelly reluctantly and waved to the two of them, then I'll leave first. Please tell me more next time, Lord God. I finally left. I'm so embarrassed dead man. Watching Her Royal Highness the Princess go away, Gwen breathed a sigh of relief, and her tense body softened. Immediately afterwards, she hit Yelly's chest with her small fist, and said coquettishly, it's all you, why are you so shameless? Yelly touched his handsome face without shame, if you don't have such a beautiful face, you will be the one who suffers. No matter what, I'm going to tear it up now. The girl pretended to stretch out her two little paws, grabbed his face and pulled him to both sides. Although in the past, she often played with Yelly with more than a dozen or even 20 girls. But at least everyone participated, and no one could laugh at anyone. Like Diana, she just watched from the sidelines and discussed business matters in a serious manner. It was so embarrassing and the shame level was so high. Therefore, she now transformed into a ferocious little female spider. Not only did she pull Yelly's face with her claws, but she also opened her mouth to gnaw at his face. Hey, okay. With his face covered in saliva, Yelly quickly hugged Kariner tightly and said, I have something else to tell you. What's the matter? Gwen was also tired. She had been tortured to the point where she didn't have much energy. After finishing nibbling, she leaned her head on his shoulder and listened quietly. Yelly caressed her slippery snow back, lowered his head and said, I used the spider web of fate to search the long river of time and space, and I have found some traces of Gonada. Are we leaving? Gwen felt so comfortable being caressed that she couldn't help but kiss the man's neck softly and said, then I should have said goodbye to Diana just now. It's not so fast. Yelly explained, the spider web of fate indeed. This universe has been a little bit repelled, so it will take about 2 days before I can completely lock her spacetime coordinates. Well, let me say goodbye to Diana earlier. As Gwen spoke, she remembered something again and raised her eyes to think back. By the way, I didn't pay attention before, but now I think about it. Diana, Paradise Island, and the female warriors of the Amazons. I always feel like I've heard it somewhere before. Hehe. Yelly touched her head playfully. Have you read the comics of Wonder Woman? No, but I heard my classmates talk about it. Gwen thought about it, suddenly raised her head, her eyes brightened. Diana and the others, they seem to be the ones in the Wonder Woman comics. Could it be that Diana is Wonder Woman? Guessed it right. Yelly confirmed. Wouldn't that mean? As if she had discovered a shocking fact, Gwen opened her mouth like a goose egg. We have entered the world of DC Comics. Oh my god, it's like a dream. This is nothing to be surprised about. Yelly gently pressed her chin funnily and closed her cute and attractive little mouth. Maybe in this world, there will be comics about you Ghost Spider in the future. Outside the Amazon Clan Conference Palace. Tap tap tap. Diana searched back and forth and finally found her mother and the others who had finished the meeting. She quickly ran over and informed everyone of the news she had just learned. Mother, please listen to me. Lord God told me that Ares is launching a war. What did you say? Everyone, including Hippolyta, turned to look at her. Has Ares finally shown up? Antiope asked his niece with a complicated expression. What did he say about that war? Diana spoke truthfully. He said, as many as 27 countries are participating in this war. Because of this war, 25 million people have died. We must stop Ari quickly. Seize conspiracy, otherwise more people will die because of him. Antiope looked stern, turned to her sister and said, Your Majesty, Ares has appeared. Maybe it's time to let Diana. No. Hippolyta's expression resisted. It's not yet certain whether the news is true or false. Snapped. Antiope grabbed her wrist and said with serious eyes, so it's my offense, Queen. But there is no need for that person to lie to us. You have to face reality. This is Diana's mission. No. Hippolyta shook off her sister's hand and said harshly, Diana has no mission, she is just my daughter. My mission? What? Diana was confused. Diana. Seeing that Her Majesty could not be persuaded, Antiope simply said to Diana directly, human beings created by Zeus are just, intelligent, kind, and persevering. Ares is the culprit of the war. You must deal with him. Me. Diana was stunned for a moment, then nodded firmly, I will stop Ares' conspiracy. That's enough. It's all the opposite, right? Have you forgotten who is your queen? Queen Hippolyta pointed to her daughter and said to the guards around her, take her down and keep an eye on her. She will never be allowed to leave Paradise Island. What? Diana was stunned. Before she could react, several guards escorted her away from here. Mother, why are you doing this? Please give me flowers. 0. Her Majesty the princess's voice faded away. Her Majesty the queen did not respond. She raised the cloak behind her back, faced the sea outside the palace cliff, and whispered to herself, I'm sorry Diana, the god of war Ares is too dangerous. You are far from his opponent. I can't let you take risks. Hippolyta, you are disobeying Zeus's will. Antiope said bitterly, Diana is not a flower cultivated in your greenhouse. Only she can treat Ares. Hippolyta was upset when she heard this, and waved her hand again without looking back, take my sister down too, and let her calm down in the room for a while. Let's see who dares. As the chief instructor of the Amazons, Antiope's prestige is still very high. After shouting loudly, the surrounding guards hesitated for a moment. She took the opportunity to scold her sister again, you are the one who should calm down, Hippolyta. Are you going to leave Ares alone? If the god of war's conspiracy succeeds, the next thing he will solve is our Paradise Island. 0. Shut up, Ares, I will find a way to solve it. Hippolyta yelled at the guard angrily, are my words useless? Why don't you take her down yet? The guards quickly surrounded Antiope. Antiope resisted symbolically, but it was difficult for her to fight with her fists, and she didn't want to really take action, so she was quickly taken away. Sorry. Her Majesty the Queen sighed, flicked her sleeves, and walked quickly towards her Zion. Come to the bedroom. Hippolyta dismissed the guards and stayed alone in the room, thinking quietly. If Diana is not allowed to take risks, is there any way to solve Ares? Relying on the Amazons on Paradise Island is definitely not feasible, because only gods can kill gods. On Paradise Island, only the Queen and Diana, the daughter of Zeus, own the demigod body. Therefore, in the will of Zeus, Diana is also known as the god of death and is destined to kill Ares. Everything seems to be coming around again. Wrong. Hippolyta, who was deep in thought, suddenly raised her head and suddenly realized. On the current Paradise Island, Diana is not the only one with divinity. Recalling the awe-inspiring oppression of the gods 2 days ago, Her Majesty the Queen felt that, if it was the god of heaven, he should be able to deal with Ares' work, but why should that person help them? Paradise Island offended that god, and he only did it for Diana's sake. By the way, Diana. Looking back on the past 2 days, her daughter Zipping was very close to the god. He should also be interested in Diana. Hippolyta whispered to herself, it's better, let Diana become a partner with that person, so that she can also get the protection of the gods. It is better for Diana to follow a god than to risk her life to kill Ares. Moreover, it was a common thing in ancient Greece for gods to visit beautiful women. According to the news from his subordinates, the god often has sex with the beautiful blonde girl, and he is obviously also interested in beauty. With this thought in mind, Hippolyta called a maid and told her, let someone prepare a grand banquet for the whole island, and invite the gods to the banquet. Time passes. Night falls over Paradise Island. Hey! With 2 shouts, the 2 guards guarding him were knocked unconscious. Diana sneakily escapes from house arrest and heads toward a tall tower. Her mother had told her since she was a child that there were god-killing weapons that could kill gods. She wants to obtain that weapon to deal with Ares, the god of war. The tower stands on the edge of the cliff. If you want to get close, you must cross an abyss. Diana is determined and takes off without too much hesitation. With a burst of excitement, she successfully jumped over and landed on the wall of the tower. Then, relying on the strength of demigod body, he punched a small hole and climbed up steadily. There was no one guarding the tower, and the climb was surprisingly smooth. After entering the tower, Diana searched quickly and picked up the mantra lasso and buckler. Finally, I jumped into the center of the tower and saw the legendary killing god weapon. This is a long sword. Apart from the fact that it looks pretty good, it doesn't look anything special. But the girl firmly believed in the stories she had heard since she was a child, and felt that this must be a murderous weapon. And with the god-killing weapon, the only thing missing now is the specific whereabouts of Ares, the god of war. Maybe I need to ask Lord Tenjin again. The next day, in Yeli's residence, Gwen is still sleeping sweetly. He himself had his eyes closed and was suspended in midair with his legs crossed. Although he is here, the god's telekinesis has traveled through time through the spider web of fate. The cobweb is like a growing root system, covering and penetrating into a spacetime area. Crack! Suddenly, a cluster of strange lightning suddenly generated, tearing several strands of cobweb into pieces. Spacetime lightning. No, the nature is different. Out of curiosity, Yeli's eyes were immediately covered with golden light, and his whole body was filled with a radiance like the creation of the world. This is the golden life envoy form that has turned on the multi-universe level. Without the restrictions of the life court, he no longer has to worry about opening this state. After entering the golden life messenger state, Fate Cobweb also covered Jinhui. Probe Cobweb toward the lightning area again, and the strange lightning energy begins to be absorbed by Cobweb. Wait until the lightning is absorbed. Yeli opened his eyes and spread his palms, only to see a cluster of lightning-like special energy evaporating in his palms. This is the speed force. Suddenly, he had a realization. It seemed that the flash should exist in the spacetime node where Gonita fell. I just don't know which version it is. However, it doesn't matter, he just went there to find someone. It's very fast. We can wait for another day at most before we can determine the exact coordinates. After muttering to himself, Yeli put away his life messenger state and fell from the sky. Then, he cast his gaze in the direction of the window and said, Your Highness, what do you want to do when you sneak over here? Click. Diana jumped over neatly and wanted to jump in through the window, but she was carrying too much equipment, causing her to get stuck between the windows. Forward. A look of embarrassment suddenly appeared on the girl's face. After adjusting her lower body position, she reluctantly squeezed in. Yeli was amused. He looked her up and down and found that her outfit was the same as before. He wears a trademark forehead crown on his forehead, wears a black velvet mongrel over his short battlesuit, and is fully armed with a rope hanging from his waist, a shield hanging from his back, and a long sword in his hand. After reading it, Yeli commented, I said, are you dressed like this to assassinate me? Assassination. Diana raised the sword in her hand and explained, no, I'm here to ask Ares whereabouts. I'm ready to fight him. You want to deal with Ares? Dang. Yeli flicked the steel body of the long sword with his fingers, causing a tremor and buzzing sound. Is it just these things? Diana let out a soft cry, retracted her hand like a treasure, hid the long sword behind her back, and reminded, be careful, this is a god-killing weapon? Don't break it. Oh, god-killing weapon. Yeli touched his chin and said nonchalantly, then try cutting me down with it. Diana looked slightly sluggish. She has never heard such a strange request since she was a child. However, the god-killing weapon is no joke, so she shook her head repeatedly and refused. This is not good, it will hurt you. 14. Yeli ignored her wishes. With a hook of her fingers, her hand slashed at him with her special sword uncontrollably. Hey, get out of the way. Diana was shocked, but her body was still obsessive. Finally, ding, there was a crisp collision. The blade of the god of death weapon collided with a forearm, making a sound of metal clashing. Diana looked blankly at the junction between the sword blade and Yeli's arm, her eyes full of disbelief. Why, the holy weapon actually. Yeli smiled. You try again. For some reason, Diana always felt that there was teasing in his eyes, so she couldn't help but add a little more strength to her hands, which was about 10% of her strength. Obviously she was also afraid of really hurting Yeli. However, as the applied force increased, Yeli's forearm remained motionless, showing no sign of being shaken. How could it have happened? Shouldn't. Diana frowned and increased her strength unbelievingly. But no matter how hard she tried, from 20% to 30% of her strength, from 50% to 70% of her strength, and then to the final full strength slash with the sword, Yeli's forearms remained the same. Unscathed, not even a tiny white mark was left. And Yeli has no trace of using divine power to resist. Diana was completely shocked. What a powerful defense. She put away her sword and performed a respectful ceremony. Lord God, I didn't expect that even the god-killing weapon can't hurt you. It's admirable. Yeli smiled mysteriously. That's not entirely true. In fact, the long sword in Diana's hand is not a god-killing weapon at all. Hippolyta lied to her with stories. The real killing weapon is Diana herself. But Diana seemed to have misunderstood what he meant. I see. Her expression suddenly dawned, and she said a little excitedly, are you trying to say, I still can't exert the true power of the god-killing weapon right now? Yeli was shocked by her brain circuit. Shouldn't you doubt the authenticity of this sword at this time? Bump. Before he could say anything more, there was a gentle knock on the door. The soft voice of the maid came from outside the door. Lord God, is it convenient for you? Her Majesty the Queen would like to invite you for a conversation. Your Majesty God, I'm already outside the door. As the maid was speaking, a mature female voice 300 took over her words, with a hint of uneasiness in her calmness. I have something very important to discuss with you, and I hope you can give me some noodles. Hearing this voice, Diana subconsciously exclaimed, oops. It's Mom. Diana? Why are you in there? Hippolyta looked shocked and angry. Wasn't Diana grounded by her order? How would it appear here? Could it be that her daughter has already had an affair with this god? With anxiety in my heart, she tried pushing the door open with her hands. Unexpectedly, the door was not locked at all. As the door gently moved inward, everyone outside the door saw almost naked Yeli, standing opposite Diana. This. Her Majesty the Queen's brain immediately went crazy for a moment. Could it be that my precious daughter is really blind? The mind was in shock. Hippolyta glanced at Yeli's magic weapon inadvertently, and couldn't help but have an unspeakable complex look in her eyes. She has not seen many divine weapons, only those of God King Zeus and Yeli. But compared to Zeus's small lightning spear that fires in seconds, Yeli's magic weapon really shocked her. It was so powerful that her precious daughter could not withstand it. Different from other chicks on Paradise Island, Her Majesty the Queen has a daughter named Diana, so she naturally knows how to use this magical weapon. That. Facing the few people pushing the door in, Yeli was not too embarrassed. He used the weaver's godly clothes to change his outfit, and casually reminded him, I haven't let you in yet. Seeing this, Hippolyta's expression softened slightly and she said, Your Excellency, why is Diana here? Yeli crossed his arms and said in a very perfunctory tone, Oh, I just got up, and she suddenly broke in. Mom. Diana interjected with an anxious look, Why are you here too? Hippolyta rolled her eyes at her daughter angrily, It's not just for you. As she said that, she turned her gaze to Yeli again and tried to keep her tone as steady as possible. Your Majesty the God of Heaven, please come to the conference hall. I have something important to discuss with you. After Yeli pondered for a moment, he nodded, Okay. The two came to the meeting hall and sat down opposite each other. Diana, who also wanted to follow in, was stopped outside. Your Excellency God, I will keep the story short. Hippolyta knew that Yeli didn't have much patience, so she didn't mince words and directly stated her purpose, We need your help. Haha. Yeli chuckled lightly and was not in a hurry to talk. He took a sip of the fruit juice handed over by the maid next to him, and then said, I said you mother and daughter both have the same virtues. You asked me for help when you came up. Why should I help? What about you? Diana, she too. Hippolyta murmured and asked quickly, What help does she ask you for? Yeli said truthfully, She asked me about the specific whereabouts of Ares, the god of war. Did you tell her? Not yet? Huh, that's good. Hippolyta breathed a sigh of relief and became more determined in her mind. She must not let her daughter's life be in danger. Your Excellency God, please forgive my presumption. Her Majesty the Queen suddenly stood up and saluted Yeli. I want Diana to serve you from now on in exchange for your protection of her. Oh, there was not much surprise on Yeli's face. A smile appeared on her lips and she said, You just asked me to protect her. I'm afraid you want me to help you deal with Ares, the god of war. Gudong. Hippolyta swallowed and plucked up the courage to ask, Can you do it? Yo. Yeli also stood up from his seat and raised the queen's chin with one finger. You actually have the courage to use provocation on me. It seems that maternal love can indeed make people forget their fear. Then do you agree? Hippolyta couldn't help but trembling slightly. She had no choice but to face the power of this unknown god. She always had the feeling that he was more powerful than Zeus. Yes, I definitely don't mind. Yeli was also very straightforward, saying bluntly, But I still have things to do, and I don't have much time. Hippolyta said quickly, The banquet is ready, and Diana can salute you today. Yeli raised his eyebrows, Wedding? Definitely not. You are a god. How can a mortal wedding be worthy of you? The ancient Greek gods would not hold any kind of wedding if they fell in love with a woman. They would just take her back and have fun with her, so Hippolyta did not dare to hold a wedding for Yeli, fearing that this move would offend him. After you attend the banquet, you can go to the palace in the Holy Hall. I will ask Diana to wait for you there. Good to come. Yeli nodded with satisfaction, opened the system task interface and glanced at the newly triggered task. Trigger Wonder Woman Diana Prince's relationship mission, let Diana realize the real god-killing weapon, and let her successfully defeat Ares, the god of war 1. The task is completed, you can superimpose Wonder Woman Diana Prince, template the time comes in the afternoon. The entire Paradise Island is decorated in a festive atmosphere. Various delicacies were placed on tables inside and outside the palace for people to enjoy as they pleased. However, many Amazons still don't know what this is going to do, including the confused Diana. Why did she suddenly start eating? It couldn't be because of her crusade against Ares, right? Your Highness Princess, please come here. Several maids led the stupid princess into a sleeping palace room, bowed respectfully to the queen who was waiting by the bed, and then withdrew. Mother. Diana stepped forward in confusion and asked Hippolyta, What do you want to do? Well. Hippolyta sighed, patted the place beside her, and motioned for her daughter to come over. After Diana sat down obediently, Hippolyta slowly said, Diana, I know you want to deal with Ares, the god of war, to save innocent creatures. Yes. Before her mother could finish speaking, Diana 183 asked a little excitedly, Mom, do you want to agree? Could it be that today's banquet was really to see her off? Thinking of this, a hint of joy appeared in Diana's eyes, thinking that her mother finally understood her thoughts. No, Diana. Hippolyta held her hand and said, We have better ways to deal with Ares without you risking your life. Diana frowned slightly, I won't be in danger, I have a god-killing weapon. Silly boy, then. Hippolyta paused, but still did not tell the truth. In short, we already have a better way, and this method does not require anyone to take risks. Really? Diana asked curiously, what is the solution? Her Royal Highness the Princess is not a fool. If there is a way without taking risks, she will not rush to do it. Hippolyta leaned close to her face and whispered a few words to her daughter. Diana's cheeks suddenly turned red. You want me to partner with the Lord God? Although she doesn't understand what boyfriend and girlfriend are, she still knows clearly about her partner. They probably want to stay together for a lifetime and become a family-like existence. If he is a god, he should be able to defeat Ares. Diana gritted her teeth and nodded. If it is to prevent that war, I am willing. As for Yeli, her impression is quite good, although she can't even talk about love. Thank you for your hard work, Diana. Hippolyta thought of Yeli's magic weapon and couldn't help but tell her daughter, when the time comes, if you really can't hold on, just shout loudly and I will pick a few. The most beautiful maid, ready to come in and help you at any time. Can't hold on. Diana didn't quite understand, but she smiled brightly and promised, don't worry, Mom, the female warriors of the Amazon clan will never give up. It's a good thing you have this confidence. Hippolyta still felt uneasy, so she pulled Diana onto the bed and taught her some tricks. You just use, to let that person, then take the initiative. Oh. Watching her mother's physical demonstration, Diana suddenly recalled the scene in the spring pool. Isn't this that kind of special training? Gwen does look tired. But, as a princess of the Amazon clan, she can definitely do better than Gwen. Think so? An innocent smile appeared on Diana's face, full of confidence in the upcoming challenge. At a banquet in the palace, Yeli casually lay on his side on the seat, picked up a piece of fruit and threw it into his mouth, and then poured a glass of clear wine for Gwen next to him. Tisk the blonde girl took a sip of her drink, then approached him and discussed in a low voice, Lee, tell me, why did Paradise Island suddenly hold such a big banquet? Is it some kind of festival? I don't know. I've never heard Diana say that. Yeli replied confidently, it is definitely a coming-of-age ceremony to hold such a big banquet. Coming-of-age ceremony. Gwen looked curious and asked, whose coming-of-age ceremony actually requires such a big banquet? Of course it's Her Royal Highness the Princess. Yeli looked serious and said, as part of the coming-of-age ceremony, she needs to challenge a god to prove her bravery and tenacity. What? Diana wants to challenge God. Hearing this, Gwen looked worried. Is she really going to deal with that god of war Ares? Oh, no. Yeli shook his head with a smile and corrected, actually, the god she wants to challenge today is me. Gwen was confused. Lord God. Just when she looked confused, a group of beautiful maids came over and invited Yeli. Your Highness the Princess is ready and waiting for you to come over. Yeli stood up and straightened his clothes, looking like he was about to rush to the battlefield. Is it so fast? It seems that Her Majesty the heroine has done a good job in ideological work. Following the guidance of the maids, Yeli arrived at the palace room prepared by Her Majesty the Queen. Before he could take a closer look at the interior decoration, he was struck by a tall and beautiful figure, whose arms were filled with the fragrance of acanthus flowers. He lowered his head and saw that the girl with a flawless face was hugging him tightly. Seeing Yeli look at him, Her Royal Highness the Princess opened her red lips slightly and bit him directly. And, he muttered, well, Lord God, I will obey your mother's order, and I will serve you. This jerky yet passionate kiss made Yeli look slightly stunned. He couldn't help but raise his hand to brush the hair on her back, and said through his mind, from now on, just like Gwen, just ask me to leave. Diana hummed shyly and took a small step away. Then, there was a soft dang sound. This is the metal armor of the knee, the sound of the magnetic ground. Hippolyta's guidance to Diana was quite effective. Caught off guard, Yeli was killed by Her Royal Highness the Princess, who was unable to resist. But, wait until you react. He immediately raised his magic weapon and started to counterattack. Under his command, the magic weapon's blade spit out a breathtaking divine light. Even though Diana was extremely skilled in martial arts, she still looked exhausted after being beaten. She had no choice but to move the battlefield and continue competing with her opponent in a different place. But the power of God is beyond imagination. It only took 10 minutes for Diana to go from being full of confidence at the beginning to looking frightened now. How could this happen? Gwen can obviously persist for so long. She struggled to defend herself from the attack and shouted unwillingly, no, I am the princess of the Amazon clan. How could I fall down so easily? Just hold on. Haha, just give up. Yeli sneered and delivered a heavy blow, and the divine weapon easily penetrated her defense. My weapon is the real god-killing weapon, a weapon that can hurt the god's body? Face it, your demigod body there is no resistance at all. What, you mean demigod body? Diana asked in surprise, I am demigod body. Definitely. Yeli told her the truth, you are the child of Zeus, Diana. How can this be? Diana suddenly groaned in pain. It turned out that Yeli took advantage of her loss of concentration and launched several attacks in succession, all of which hit her vital points. If he hadn't been merciful, Diana might not have seen the sun tomorrow. However, even if Yeli had restrained most of her power, Her Royal Highness still could not withstand such a violent attack from a dimensional Mephisto, and could not help shouting miserably, Mom, quickly, I can't hold on. Your Highness. Several Amazon girls hiding in the dark quickly appeared and hurried towards this direction. All of them are strong and beautiful. Like Diana, they have been trained by Hippolyta and are familiar with the fighting skills of the Amazons. Your Highness, hold on. Wait a minute. We'll help you right away. Lord God, I'm offended. This is all the Queen's order. The female warriors faced the divine power and successfully joined the battle. With their help, Her Royal Highness the Princess is finally not so strenuous. With her demigod physique and increasingly familiar fighting ability, Diana was able to struggle with Yeli, the Mephisto, and the battle was inextricable. However, this all comes at a price. As the battle became more and more intense, the brave Amazon warriors fell one by one. No. Diana stretched out her hands to them helplessly, her eyes filled with tears. Please give me flowers. Suddenly, she felt a force surge out of her body, as if it had reawakened all her tired limbs. When? The wrist guards on both hands also burst out with light at this time. Diana looked at it doubtfully. This is the power of a demigod, the power that can kill gods. Yeli answered for her. He was also a little puzzled. How come this is so explosive? I vaguely remember, Diana's explosion of demigod power was not due to the sacrifice of the United States flight member and the verbal abuse of Ares, the god of war. By the way, where is the flight attendant? Why didn't he show up? While parrying Diana's counterattack, Yeli recalled in his mind the scene when he first arrived on Paradise Island. It seems that the United States flight pilot was flying the old fighter jet that he casually dispatched. Yeli is a little speechless. After all, he is also a male protagonist, so he accidentally packed lunch in advance. Although he has to die sooner or later, Yeli feels a little embarrassed when he thinks that his heroine is being bullied. The quilt in the palace rolled around like this all night. Wait until noon the next day. The beautiful girl woke up and turned around, only to feel that everything was blocked. Well, mother didn't say that Godsama wants even this place. Diana's hand unconsciously touched her back, feeling a little strangely uncomfortable. But, after all, she is the princess and the next queen of the Amazon clan. After getting used to it a little bit, she stood up strongly, walked out of the palace slowly with her long legs. 427 walked out of the Amazon clan's holy place, facing the bright sunshine. Diana's delicate face evoked a sense of contentment, and her whole body felt warm, as if it was wrapped in warmth, especially in her filled belly. After a few seconds, Her Royal Highness the Princess looked into the distance a little confused, scanning the hills and mountains on Paradise Island, and murmured to herself, "Will Lord God agree to our request?" Originally, Diana just wanted to go to Ares, the god of war. But because of Hippolyta's idea, Diana gained a new growth and opened the door to a new world. This left her wondering where to go next. Hey, wake up, how did you feel yesterday? A clump of golden short hair suddenly fell from in front of Diana. Gwen hung upside down with a smile on her face. Shuilan glared at her and winked at her ambiguously. Gwen. Diana was so frightened that she took a small step back and hesitated. I'm sorry. Gwen, God, and I did not train with him. Gwen laughed playfully, stretched out her green index finger, and touched Diana's lips. Okay, don't say it again. I've heard this kind of thing from many girls. Please help me more in the future. Just share a little bit. Share what? It's definitely the amount of training. *V. Oh. Diana tapped her chin knowingly. Gwen, you really can't stand that kind of training alone. It seems that you have experienced it very clearly. Gwen let go of Cobweb, flipped to the ground lightly, and gently put her slender hands around Diana's waist. Come on, I will help you to the side hall, where Her Majesty the Queen and Lee are waiting. With Gwen's support, Diana came to the side hall of Holy Place. Yeli was sitting opposite Hippolyta, leisurely sipping a cup of scented tea. After a little hesitation, Diana did not choose to sit next to her mother. Instead, she and Gwen sat next to Yeli. Yeli looked at her slightly unexpectedly, smiled and said hello. Good morning, Diana. Good morning, District. Diana put a pair of slender legs together, slender shoulders and leaned towards him gently. Sensing the beauty's clinging, Yeli also reached out and hugged her strong waist. Seeing the two people's intimacy, Hippolyta's eyes actually showed a hint of relief. Even the beautiful maids around him cast admiring glances at Yeli. The tribesmen of Paradise Island all know that Her Royal Highness the Princess is usually very wild, but it is rare to be like a little bird like this. I can only say that he is worthy of being a god. With such a magic weapon, even the princess can easily surrender. That, Mom. Feeling the strange looks around her, even though it was Diana, she was a little embarrassed and quickly cast a suggestive look at her mother. Hippolyta understood and saw that everyone was here, so she directly asked Yeli, Your Majesty the God of Heaven, do you think about Ares? Don't be impatient for a moment. Yeli raised his hand to interrupt her, put down the finished teacup, picked up the teapot and poured another cup of 3.8 hot tea. What are you? Hippolyta looked confused. Everyone looked puzzled. Yeli, on the other hand, stood up holding Diana in his arms and punched the air with his left hand. The space instantly separated like glass, revealing the British-style building on the other side. Wait a moment and be back soon. Leaving behind a few words, Yeli took Her Royal Highness Princess Wan through this space door cabinet. What is that? Never seen anything like this. This must be God's warning of war. Maybe the military has come up with something weird again. On the streets of London, the sudden appearance of a spatial portal aroused strong onlookers from pedestrians. But, before they could talk a few words, Yeli and the two walked out of the door. Then, the space portal disappeared. How come 2 people came out? I do not know. It's street magic. The pedestrians turned their attention to Yeli and started talking about it. Yeli ignored these passersby and used the god's telekinesis to sweep through the entire city of London and quickly found the target he wanted. Come on, Your Highness Princess, you have found the Ares you want. Diana was looking curiously at the outside world when her hand was suddenly held by Yeli, and the scenery in front of her eyes changed instantly. I saw. A conference table appeared next to me. Tableside. There were a few people in suits and ties sitting. She seemed to have heard something like an armistice agreement. Who are you? How did these 2 people show up? At the conference table, the politicians suddenly screamed, stood up in panic, and moved away from the 2 men. They are all important and powerful people. To a certain extent, these people determined the direction of the World War I war. But even they have never seen a guy with such bizarre flashes. Definitely, this does not prevent these big shots from ensuring their own safety first. Guard? Guard? Someone come quickly. Almost as soon as Yeli appeared, someone reflexively shouted outside. However, in such an atmosphere, there was an official with a mustache who secretly looked at Diana with twinkling eyes. He is a British military officer, Sir Patrick Morgan, and at the same time, he is also the human identity of Ares, the god of war. Ares had just glanced at Diana, and Yeli's eyes were focused on him. And the moment the 2 people's eyes met, Ares felt an inexplicable feeling of heart palpitations. What's going on with this guy? Why does it make me feel like I haven't felt for a long time? Ares thought and decided to test it first. He quietly raised his hand and drew several divine characters on the back of an official. Hey, you guy. The official was influenced by the divine writings and suddenly emboldened him. He walked up to Yeli and looked up and down. After seeing Yeli's pure oriental face, the official suddenly smiled disdainfully. So you are an oriental, are you a Japanese friend, or are you that useless Chinese? Click. Before he finished speaking, his head automatically rotated 180 degrees and fell to the ground in a daze. Yeli didn't bother to talk to this person at all. These high-ranking British officials in World War I handed over Germany's hegemony in the Dragon Kingdom to Zaire, and none of them were killed by mistake. That's the end of your little tricks, Ares. After dealing with the desperate officials, Yeli walked straight towards Sir Morgan. This move shocked Diana, and she immediately looked at Sir Morgan. He is Ares, the god of war. Yeli did not answer, but raised a ball of divine fire in his hand and expressed it directly with actions. Boom! The fire element integrating the eternal fire shrouded Ares head over heels. Ares was caught off guard and had only time to defend hastily. 1 second later, amid the violent fireworks, a disgraced figure stepped out. Click, click, click. The figure's body was gradually covered with golden metal, forming a piece of armor of the god of war. Outer god, 117. You have angered me. Ares glared at Yeli, not hiding the killing intent in his eyes. He held his hands in vain, and the black tongue war knife condensed in his hands. Suddenly, the black shadow flashed, and before the ordinary people around him could see anything clearly, Ares had already ducked in front of Yeli. Be careful, leave. Upon seeing this, Diana raised her arms to resist. A jingle, the wrist guard on her hand came into contact with the ancient war blade, making a clear sound of collision. Let me try it first. Okay. Yeli smiled in relief and stepped back. Since Ares is Diana's destined enemy, let her give it a try first. Anyway, with him watching over you, there won't be any safety issues. Moreover, this god of war is her brother after all, so it doesn't seem good for him to be direct. When Her Royal Highness the Princess can no longer hold on anymore, it will be a good time for him to take action with thunderous force. That's Sir Morgan. Politicians were dumbfounded at the situation inside the venue. How did it become like this? Damn, what on earth is going on? Don't worry, let's run away first. The situation was dangerous, and everyone was not stupid. After being shocked, they hurriedly ran outside. Dang! Here, Ares raised his blade to block Diana, flew back, and kept an eye on Yeli vigilantly to prevent him from making a sneak attack. Diana, I thought about your arrival, but I didn't expect that you would actually collude with an outside god. Ares pointed the tip of the blade at Yeli and asked Diana, my dear sister, tell me, who is he? Diana stared at Ares warily, only glanced at Yeli from the corner of her eyes, and said in a slightly hoarse voice, he is my partner. Ares, stop provoking a war. Behavior, you will not be our opponent. Humans do not deserve our help, Diana. I am the only one who truly understands humans. They only deserve to be destroyed. As soon as he talked about the war, Ares completely diverted his attention. He smiled disdainfully, haha, they have always loved war and will always be like this, weak, cruel, selfish, capable of doing the most terrible things. It has always been my wish to show the gods how evil my father's creation was. But they refused to admit it, so I destroyed them. The more Diana listened to his story, the more she frowned. Yeli, on the other hand, was very bored. He raised his hand to dig his ears and vomited in his heart. Here it comes, the classic villain BB session, helping the protagonist to accumulate emotional points. Diana, there is no need for us to be enemies. Ares had no intention of stopping yet and tried to persuade his sister with words, when we unite, we can end all pain, all torture, and the destruction caused by humans. As he spoke, he used his divine power to influence the surroundings. Human creations such as masonry pavilions and stone streets have been transformed into a prehistoric poetic realm of birds singing and flowers fragrant. We can turn this world back into the paradise it was before humans appeared, forever. No, stop it, Ariski. Diana's eyes were firm and she clenched the sword in her hand. I will never stand on your side. Dear sister, I don't want to be your enemy. Ares inspired the mighty thunder with his hands and covered the ancient blade, but if I must. Before he finished speaking, he raised an ancient blade and fired a thick thunder column at the two of them. Todoroki. The lightning was dazzling, flashing across the entire floor. The next moment, a ray of lightning broke through the window and blasted Diana out of the building, who was holding a shield to resist. Her Royal Highness, who has an extraordinary physique, rolled twice on the street and was not seriously injured. But the entire top of the pavilion was blown away by the thunderous mushroom cloud and exploded into powder. Enemy attack? It's an enemy attack. The Germans must be invading. Run. Pedestrians passing by screamed and fled in panic. Even the military guards who came to support were daunted by the scene on the pavilion. Because the thunder is just an opening. In the light of thunder, the figure carrying divine power holds the lightning in both hands and gradually floats into the sky. Along with him, the entire building and even the entire street floated. With the conference building as the center, countless buildings gradually broke away from the surface and floated in the sky like floating islands. Moreover, this scope is still expanding rapidly. In less than a few seconds, a small area of London flew into the sky. The scene was extremely spectacular and terrifying, like the end of the world. Ding! Diana stood up with her long sword and was also shocked by this scene. One Ares, the god of war, turned out to have such an emperor. My sister, you still have a lot to learn. In the air, Ares, like the incarnation of thunder, wrapped lightning around the ancient blade and threw it towards Diana like a spear. Whoosh! The ancient thunder blade came so fast that Diana only had time to raise her shield to block it. Although she was able to resist it, the round shield was knocked out by the force and flew far away. And without the shield, if Anna continues to be attacked condescendingly like this, sooner or later she will not be able to hold on. She obviously knew this, so she wrapped her hand around a pumice stone with the lasso of mantra, and used its strength to float upward. Then, wrap around another pumice stone and repeat. Soon, he approached Ares floating in the air. As for this skill, it was a skill she learned from Gwen before. She didn't expect to use it in the house so quickly. Thank you, Gwen. Diana murmured to herself, arousing a little smile. She suddenly jumped down from the broken wall on the upper left side of Ares, and used the God of Death weapon in her hand to use a New Year's sword technique and hit his helmet directly. The sword light was sharp and struck with great power. But the eyes under Ares's helmet were filled with contempt. The blade of his left hand disappeared, and his left palm, wrapped with divine power, faced the blade without fear. As soon as the palm of the hand came into contact with the tip of the sword, the killing weapon in the opponent's hand immediately collapsed, turning into black ashes and flying away in the blink of an eye. Diana fell to a floating broken building nearby, glanced at the remaining sword hilt in her hand, and then looked at Ares who was unharmed. Her eyes were full of disbelief. How could it be possible? The killing god Wu you. My dear child, this is not a god-killing weapon. After blowing lightly on the remaining white smoke in his palm, Ares turned on the classic villain explanation mode, squinted at Diana, and calmly answered for her, you are the one. Only a god can kill another god. Zeus and him, the children born to the Amazon queen, were kept as weapons against me. Child of Zeus. Diana thought about what Yeli had said before, and couldn't help but believe this statement. Could it be that the real god-killing weapon is indeed her? Diana didn't fully believe it. She threw out a golden rope from her waist with her right hand, tied it around him, and asked in a calm voice, I order you to tell me the truth. This is Paradise Island's most precious treasure, the truth lasso. People trapped by the lasso will uncontrollably answer the truth. Ares also knew the effectiveness of this lasso, but did not avoid it. He allowed the golden rope to wrap around himself and replied calmly, this is the truth. I am not the god of war, Diana, I am the god of truth. Human beings have snatched this world from our hands. They are destroying it day by day. But I, the only god who has seen through this, am unable to stop them. I have been fighting alone for so many years. I whispered in their ears, brought them inspiration, and invented poisons and weapons, but I never forced them to use them. They started the war themselves. All I did was plan an armistice agreement that they would never abide by, leading them to self-destruction. Okay, you can do nothing else. Suddenly, with a strange mist, Yeli appeared next to Diana in an instant, looking directly at Ares with eyes that saw through everything. You actually said that you are not the god of war? It's ridiculous. Without the power of the god of war, you would have died long ago. It's in the hands of Daxus. In just a few words, Ares, who was originally calm, suddenly became distracted and stared at Yeli with wide eyes. How do you know who you are? Yeli raised his left hand provocatively, hooked Diana's shoulder, and chuckled, I am your sister's man. You will regret your attitude. Annoyance appeared in Ares's eyes. He definitely has no feelings for his sister Diana, but Yeli's heartfelt contemptuous attitude is really annoying. As soon as he finished speaking, the dazzling blue and white divine thunder condensed in the palm of his left hand, turning into a lightning spear in an instant. Ares raised the lightning spear and stabbed Yeli's chest fiercely. In front of his eyes, Yeli is the trouble that should be solved first now. This move is also the ultimate killing move for Ares. It is the embodiment of the lightning power he inherited from the father of God Zeus. Leave. Get out of the way. The protective silver bracelet suddenly bloomed with a golden glow that was more dazzling than thunder and lightning. Seeing that Yeli was about to be harmed, Diana finally burst out with the real power that could kill the gods. She was wrapped in the holy glow and took a quick step sideways. Cross your arms in front of him? At this moment, time seems to have slowed down. Countless tiny lightning bolts hit the golden glow, shattered and dissipated instantly, and could no longer break through the stage. Ares begged for a hammer and succeeded in awakening Diana's god of death weapon. His expression couldn't help but change from the previous calmness to a hint of panic. Eeha! Diana swung her crossed arms forward vigorously, and the powerful impact suddenly exploded, sweeping away everything in front of her. Affected by this impact, all the suspended ruins within hundreds of meters fell towards the ground, plowing across the earth like a meteor shower, leaving behind craters like the surface of the moon. Ares, who was the first to bear the brunt, seemed to be collided by a starship. In the blink of an eye, he was blasted thousands of meters away. His body rubbed against the street, and countless bricks and stones were thrown away. Thick ground was lifted up along the way, and a deep trench was created that stretched for several streets. Wonder Woman Diana Prince's relationship mission has been completed. You have superimposed the Wonder Woman Diana Prince template. Feeling the slightly improved power of the divine body, Yeli raised a smile on his lips. Although the improvement was not big, it was not a waste of effort to complete this task, and the mosquito legs are also meat. With today's level of life, it's only a little bit that can be improved. In addition, the rewards from the system are just appetizers. The godly power of Ares is what we really want to get in this trip. Don't look at Ares being so stubborn now. He was beaten so hard by his sister who just awakened that he was unable to fight back. It seemed like he needed some strength to even blow up a city. But during the ancient war, the Olympian god of war was the main force in repelling the Dark Lord Daxus. The status of Daxus in the DC universe is equivalent to Thanos in the Marvel universe and is much stronger than the normal Thanos. To be able to repel this overlord, Ares relied on the increase brought by the godhead of war. The scale of the ancient war was unprecedented, so the strength of Ares, the god of war, also increased to an unprecedented level. This shows the potential of the war godhead. Now that Yeli has encountered him, he will naturally not let him go. After knocking Ares away, Diana suddenly let out a groan, and the golden glow of the protective silver bracelet dimmed. The entanglement last night was too intense, it was her first time, and now she exerted such force suddenly, even if she was demigod body awakening, she couldn't help but feel a little tearing pain in her lower body. Staggering in her steps, Diana was about to fall down, but fortunately Yeli had quick eyesight and quick hands, and put his arms around her waist to support her. He hugged her into his arms and said softly, "Thank you for your hard work, Diana. Leave the rest to me. Leave." Diana raised her hands, put them on his shoulders, raised her eyes slightly, and looked at him affectionately. Her eyes had lost the childishness in the past, and became more determined and brave. This confrontation with the god of war allowed her to finally complete true metamorphosis. I defeated the god of war Ares, right? Yes, you won, you did a great job. Great, Ares can no longer threaten Paradise Island. I have protected everyone. Diana's pretty face showed a smile, and her slightly tired face was mixed with holiness and courage, as if divinity was integrated into humanity. At this moment, her slightly curly hair was flying in the breeze. She was like a real Olympus goddess coming to the world, extremely beautiful. Thank you, Lee. Suddenly, she closed her eyes, brought her red lips close to each other, and intertwined with her lover. The two delicate hands also slid down from his shoulders and moved around passionately. Wait, Diana. Just when Her Royal Highness the Princess was asking for a kiss, Yeli grabbed her stroking hand and pulled away, reminding her, now is not the time to celebrate victory. What's wrong? Diana opened her beautiful eyes, her eyes filled with confusion. Did she do something wrong? But in the story told by my mother, after the heroes of ancient Greece won, they celebrated with their lovers. Look there. Yeli raised his eyes and looked into the distance, his gaze spanned the distance and locked onto the ruins where Ares was buried. This brother of yours has not fallen yet. He just finished speaking. Under the ruins. The dusty arm suddenly broke out of the ground and landed on the edge of the ruins. Supported by the strength of an arm, Ares forcibly pulled his body out of the rubble. Although his posture was awkward, there seemed to be no scars on his body. Seeing this, Diana's originally tender expression suddenly returned to a fighting posture full of fighting spirit, and the protective silver bracelet on her wrist also glowed again. Just when her body was slightly bent and ready to fight, Yeli held her shoulders and said, "Let me do it this time, and you can rest for a while. Just say it." He didn't wait for the beauty to respond. It instantly turned into crimson mist and dissipated. The other side. Ares's eyes flashed for a few moments as he escaped from the ruins. He was weighing the difference in strength between the enemy and ourselves, and seemed to be considering whether to continue fighting or to escape quickly. However, before he could make a decision, countless strands of crimson mist gathered around him like long snakes, moving quietly, as if they didn't exist here a second ago. A figure stepped out of the mist, and Thun seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll. Mysterious energy that I have never seen before, powerful and terrifying. Ares avoided the origin magic power with fear, stared at Yeli standing in it, and asked, "Who are you?" "The new god. Your Excellency God of War, I am trying to delay time. You can't run away. I have no interest in talking nonsense with you either. I want your godhead. 0, please give me flowers. After Yeli said calmly, he raised his hand and flicked it with his finger, and the space he passed through shattered like a glass mirror. Immediately afterwards, the lenses reflecting the 7-color brilliance were staggered and neatly arranged in a complex manner, quickly covering everything around them. Before Ares could make the decision to escape, he discovered that he had been pulled into an extra-dimensional space. Everything around is upside down. Countless buildings were stretched haphazardly like plasticine. Although the scene is bizarre, every flickering color, light, and shadow distorts but vividly reflects the real world, making people feel as if they are wandering in a dream. Damn it. Ares also knew that the situation was not good, and immediately summoned a simple sword with both hands. Then, let's have endless meals and try our best to attack Yeli. No matter what kind of ghost barrier this is, as long as it attacks the caster, it will be right. This is the profound experience that he, as the god of war, has gained from fighting until now. The war blade carried thunder and lightning, and its power was extremely frightening. With Ares' momentum, the blue thunder behind him was like 2 thick claws extending from his body, violently tearing apart the earth along the way. I can tell. This time, Ares is really trying his best. The last time he tried his best was when he attacked the Olympus gods. But what makes him despair is, just as he arrived in front of Yeli, the rushing purple and gold thunder suddenly erupted from the latter's body, instantly tearing the war blade apart. This is thunder and lightning that is stronger and more violent than his divine thunder. Each forked purple lightning is like an indestructible peerless sword, smashing everything that resists in front of it. Ares' blue thunder only lasted for a moment before it was completely swallowed up by this strange purple-gold divine thunder. A football team. Penny opened her mouth in surprise, but thinking of the scene when she first met Yeli, and the various rich skills he taught her during this period of time, she seemed to feel less surprised. Although she was a little unhappy, Penny still said, I want to be with you. As she said that, she asked carefully, that, Lee, you are so good, I should be able to go back occasionally to see Aunt May and Uncle Ben. Hihi, you are quite smart. Yeli picked up her petite and tender body, hugged her in his arms and said, don't worry, it's okay if you want to go back often. That's great. The little loli happily put her arms around his neck and kissed him on the face. So cute. Yeli smelled the faint fragrance on Penny's body, and then thought of her lovely posture when she was galloping, and couldn't help but feel a little eager. But, this thought. He suddenly thought of something and asked with a strange look, Penny, where were we before? Huh? Penny asked in confusion, we were visiting the Spider Alliance headquarters, what's wrong? What about before that? Before that, we were in Uncle Ben's research institute. We were rushing to save them. Before that, what were you doing? I was. Penny thought absent-mindedly and said subconsciously, I seem to be, eating with Sister Gonada. Her face suddenly turned red, and she covered her mouth with her little hand, and said embarrassedly, I didn't mean it. Lee, you didn't rinse your mouth. I forgot. Penny blinked her bright black eyes, stuck out a piece of pink and white tongue, and said mischievously, how about I lick it clean for you? As she said that, she stuck out her tongue, pretending to touch the place she kissed just now. Don't worry. Yeli quickly stretched out his arms and hugged Penny away before she touched him. Hihi. The 3 girls were all amused by his embarrassed look. Hihi, you dislike little Penny, so how about I do it? Gonada's tongue tip seductively rubbed a circle on her lips, and her perfect body pressed against Yeli, and stretched out her sexy pink tongue to lick his cheek. Yeli put one hand on her face and pushed her head open, get out of the way, you eat the most. As he was talking, he suddenly felt a few coolness on one side of his cheek. Turning his head to look, seeing Gwen's head shrink, she made a yeah gesture with her hand, and showed a triumphant smile. We won, Lee. Okay, Gwen, you sneak attack me. Yeli hugged her around the waist and raised his palm to perform the family method. Hey, stop fighting. Gwen obediently lifted her hips and explained with a wronged look, I was exhausted before, and I didn't eat with Gonada and the others. Hey, I wrongly blamed you. Yeli let her go and gently pinched her nose. Gwen is still the most obedient. Mr. Yeah, we have a proposal. While Yeli and the other 4 were playing, a group of Spider-Men suddenly came over here. Yeli turned to face them and asked, what's the matter? The leader Hobby stepped forward and respectfully performed a ritual to him. We hope that you can serve as the new leader of the Spider League. I will be the leader of the Spider League. Yeli asked in confusion, what about Miguel? Hobby raised his thumb with one hand and pointed backwards. The crowd parted, revealing Miguel's figure. He was sitting on a piece of ruins, looking a little lonely. All Spider-Men felt that Miguel's behavior of cutting off Miles's spider silk was too extreme and he was no longer worthy of being their leader. They needed a more suitable leader. With the praise of Peter B. Parker and Shadow Spider-Man, Yeli, who could solve the King Zhao spot alone, naturally became the first choice. Yeli used his psychic ability to scan the thoughts of many Spider-Men and found that most of them were sincere and admired him. He looked at Gwen and the other 2 girls and asked for their opinions. What do you think? Gwen didn't know what to say, so she shook her head and said, I don't know, just decide for yourself. Penny also followed Gwen and shook her head repeatedly, indicating that she didn't understand anything. But Gonada raised her head proudly and said proudly, what did I say before? Lee is so powerful. Going to your alliance is to give you face. Okay, don't be so arrogant. Yeli hugged Tunmi's waist and rubbed it, asking her not to be too discouraging. Seeing that the three women couldn't explain it, he had to think about it himself. If the Spider Alliance manages the spider totems, it would be really good. As for how to manage? Haha, apart from anything else, he is very good at being a hands-off manager. Ghost Spider Club. The position of vice president is still hanging on. Chapter 416. Taking over the Spider Alliance, the two spiders retire. Since you are wearing the yellow robe, no. Yeli stuttered and corrected himself. Since you support me so much, I can't be so rude to you, but what? Seeing that he seemed to agree, the Spider-Men couldn't help but ask in unison. It's just that I have a lot of things to do, so I usually won't be in the Spider League, and I will select a few people to manage on my behalf. Select people to manage on my behalf. The Spider-Men looked at each other. Pavite Prahaker asked, who do you want to select? Yeli pointed his finger a few times and named, Shadow Spider-Man, Peter B. Parker, 1610 Peter Parker, Hobby Brown, Pavite Prahaker, Peter Porker, said. He put his arm around Gwen's shoulders, touched Penny's head, and continued, there are also Gwen Stacy and Penny Parker. From now on, the 8 of you will form the Alliance Council and be responsible for handling all routine affairs. Gwen pointed at herself unexpectedly, I'm coming too. Huh. Penny also had a confused expression. I didn't expect Yeli to point her out. Of course. Yeli affirmed, don't doubt your abilities. You all have your own strengths and can work together. Then what do you do? Finally, Spider-Man couldn't help but raise his hand and asked. Of course, I coordinate the overall situation. Yeli spread his hands and said nonchalantly, those who agree with my plan put their hands down, and those who disagree raise their hands. I am in a hurry now, who is in favor and who is against? The Spider-Man who had just raised his hand quickly put it down. The other Spider-Men whispered to each other, but in the end no one raised their hands. It seems like it would be a good thing to have more leaders, at least they won't be as arbitrary as Miguel. Very well, then you agree. Related matters will be dealt with after returning to the Alliance. I just noticed that there is someone who doesn't seem to want to work anymore. Let's deal with it first. Yeli stretched and walked into the crowd. Everyone was wondering what he was going to do. See you soon. He pushed through the crowd and found Miles, who had his back to everyone. Just now, when Yeli scanned everyone's thoughts, he found that the little black spider didn't seem to want to be Spider-Man anymore. Then let him be fulfilled. Yeli squatted down, patted Miles on the shoulder, and asked, young man, you don't want to be Spider-Man anymore. Miles slowly turned his head, looked at the senior who had avenged him twice, nodded, and said in a low voice, I can't even protect my loved ones, so why should I be Spider-Man? If I could, I wouldn't even want this power anymore. CBCH. Yeli understood and asked again, I can let you be an ordinary person again, are you willing? Sure, if you can do it. Miles didn't hesitate. Obviously, the successive deaths of his uncle and father had left him disheartened. I respect your choice. Yeli stood up and clapped his hands. Bang bang. The voice sounded. Spider-Man all subconsciously stared at Miles, wanting to see how his power was taken away. Miles also picked up a small piece of broken cement from beside him, held it in his palm and squeezed it hard. Click. The cement block instantly shattered into smaller pieces. Miles looked up at Yeli in confusion, wondering if he was being tricked. But that's it. He suddenly realized that everyone else was looking behind him. Someone even said, who is behind Miles? I don't think I have seen him. Later. Miles was shocked and quickly turned around to look. Then, he will see. A muscular figure shrouded in red robes stretched out a thick arm and quickly grabbed his neck. Well, Miles subconsciously wanted to resist, but he found that the opponent's arm was so powerful that he couldn't even move it at all. Others saw this and wanted to step forward to save people. However, Yeli raised his hand to stop him. Don't panic, keep watching. Thuros, just absorb the spider totem, don't suck him dry. After receiving Yeli's instructions, Thuros opened his fangs and sharp mouth under his hood, and activated the totem absorption ability unique to the successor. Ah! Miles screamed miserably, and his eyes and mouth suddenly glowed with white light. These white lights came out of the body and sank into Soros's mouth one by one, where they were completely absorbed. After a few seconds, Soros threw Miles to the ground with a casual throw. Miles, how are you? 1610 Peter Parker stepped forward and asked in concern. I feel so weak. Miles sat up with the help of 1610 Peter, picked up another cement fragment, put it in his palm, and squeezed it with all his strength. Hiss. The cement block didn't move at all, but it hurt when he squeezed it in his palm. I've really become an ordinary person again. Miles murmured to himself, with a hint of relief in his eyes. The other Spider-Man's hearts trembled and they looked at Thuros fearfully. This guy can actually take away power. If Miles' abilities can be taken away, wouldn't they be the same? Immediately, many people's emotions towards Yeli changed from admiration to awe. The few people who were careful also hurriedly gave up some thoughts that they shouldn't have. However, while others avoided him like a tiger, one person took the initiative to step forward and plead with Yeli. Please take away my abilities, maybe I'm no longer suitable to be Spider-Man. This person is Miguel. Yeli was a little surprised, but he still nodded and said, okay, again, I respect your choice. After saying that, he waved his hand and gave the order, allowing Soros to have another meal. completed the matter of the 1610 universe. Everyone first returned to the Spider Alliance headquarters to deal with the change of managers. Afterwards, Penny returned to the 1610 universe and said goodbye to Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Final. Yelly, Gwen, Gonita, and Penny gathered in a room and got ready to go. Are you all ready? Yelly confirmed to the three women. Gonita smiled playfully. Ready, Captain. Don't worry, we won't get lost, Gwen said and hugged his arm tightly. Penny was driving a red humanoid mecha, and the mecha emitted an electronic voice. Ready. Okay, I'll take you home. Yelly smiled gently, his hand wrapped in crimson energy, and he opened a crack in the void. The crack expanded in the blink of an eye, forming a spacetime portal. It can be seen that on the other side of the spacetime portal is the entrance of a large club. On the tall door of the club is the logo of the Ghost Spider Club. Gwen saw the long-lost club and couldn't help but said excitedly, finally, I'm going back. Let's go. Yelly took the lead and stepped into the spacetime portal. Gwen and the other three quickly followed. Several people accompanied each other and crossed over almost at the same time. Chapter 417 An accident happened. Time Management Bureau Kong. The complex spacetime glow flows, the tunnel walls twist and change, and various fragments of images occasionally flash through. Gonita looked at the scene in front of her and said blankly, what's going on? I still entered the time and space channel. Lee, did you make a mistake somewhere? I can confirm that there is no problem with the chosen location. Yelly's expression was slightly ugly, and his eyes quickly scanned the surrounding area. At a boundary wall, he found some clues and immediately shouted coldly in that direction. Who is doing this? Get out. Bang! Along with the warning, a powerful force field suddenly emitted from his body, causing the time and space channels to tremble. And a small aircraft with a strange shape also appeared. There was a humanoid creature standing on the aircraft, covered in a purple-green close-fitting suit, with only a blue face exposed. Gwen raised his fists vigilantly, assumed a fighting posture, and asked, who are you? Why do you want to interfere with us? Yelly stared at the mysterious man, his eyes flickering, and he whispered one word. Kong. This classic appearance and shape made him immediately recognize this Marvel's multiverse-level Big Boos. I just don't know which version it is. Kong was a little surprised that Yelly recognized him. It seems that you have gained some knowledge in time and space. Then I need to bring you, the anomaly, back to TVA. Kong opened his palms, and a device rose from the aircraft beneath his feet. The device quickly transformed into a gun-like weapon, which he held in his hand. Then, without saying a word, Kong directly raised his weapon and aimed it at Yelly and the others. He's going to take action. Penny said anxiously. Be careful. This weapon is very special. Its energy value is astonishingly high. Gonita warned, and quickly turned the 4 floating wings on her back into 4 floating cannons, hoping to have a mid-range sniper attack with Kong Lai. Yelly moves faster and more decisively than her. The Weaver's divine clothes are instantly put on, and the Golden Life Messenger status is activated, dyeing the divine clothes golden. He knows Kang's power better than Gonita. This is a ruthless character who kidnapped the Scarlet Witch in the comics. He must not take it lightly. It's too late, but it's soon. The weapon in Kang's hand burst out with blue energy, rushing towards several people, and even the turbulence of time and space could not stop it. Yelly also raised his palm at the same time, and the giant golden hand formed in front of him, and grabbed it towards Kong. The giant hand was so huge that it could not be accommodated by the spacetime channel. It crowded the entire space and rubbed out some spacetime cracks in the barriers. Halfway through the journey, the giant golden hand was wrapped with chaos magic, making it even more powerful. Until it connected with the blue energy, it was pressed back continuously. A look of surprise appeared on Kang's face, and he immediately adjusted the power of the weapon to the maximum with his other hand. Ask for flowers. The blue energy suddenly expanded several times, like a huge ocean wave flowing in time and space, beating against the giant golden hand. It seems you are no more than that. Yelly raised a smile, his hands turned into claws, and he suddenly grasped them. The golden giant hand broke through the blue energy blockade, covered Kong and his aircraft, and grasped it down. Bang! The ultimate energy explosion spread across the ground, blowing all the surrounding time and space into pieces. 0. A terrifying time and space storm followed, destroying everything and swallowing up the surroundings. Seeing this horrifying scene, the smile on Yelly's face disappeared instantly. Oops. Too much force. What now? Gwen asked worriedly. Under the time and space storm, time and space are chaotic, and all time and space abilities are useless. Yelly frowned and said immediately without any time to think, there is no other way, you all come close to me. Upon hearing this, the 3 of them immediately came over without hesitation. Yelly didn't hesitate. He opened his hands, and the cobweb of destiny emerged out of thin air from his palms. The spider silk quickly spread and weaved, forming a huge silk cocoon, wrapping everyone in it. Boom! At the same time, the spacetime storm also swept in, drowning everything. Scholar. Chapter 418 Scattered Points of Light Paradise Island, Diana. Paradise Island. A blazing white meteor streaked across the sky, split into 4 smaller light spots, and scattered in all directions. 3 of them flickered for a few times and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. It was unknown where they went. The remaining light points slid through an arc, flew over the island, and fell directly into the blue sea water, causing quite a stir. On the cliff of Paradise Island, Diana happened to be looking out into the distance and relaxing, and happened to witness the entire process of the meteor falling. The girl was slightly startled by this. A few seconds later, without much hesitation, she ran forward a few steps, and jumped down from the cliff with a nimble posture. 090, plunged into the sea with a perfect falling posture, and slid out a beautiful bubble trail in the water. Then, she swam her slender body, like an agile marlin, to the place where the light spot fell. This is a girl. What Diana saw was a beautiful blonde girl, who looked about the same age as her. The girl curled up her snow-white and graceful body, crossed her arms and hugged her shoulders, quietly floating in the sea and sleeping, like a baby still in the mother's womb. There were also strands of silk threads on her body, wrapped like bandages. As time passed, these silk threads turned into golden light spots and slowly dissipated. The whole picture was very beautiful, and Diana was stunned for a moment. After a few breaths, she reacted and swam over to save people. At this time, all the silk threads on the blonde girl's body had turned into light spots and dissipated, revealing her naked and exquisite body. Diana looked a little surprised again. She has always felt that women should be as strong and good at fighting as their master Antiope. But now, seeing the fair skin and slender figure of the blonde girl, for the first time she felt, this seems good. Thinking that Diane was already close to the beautiful girl, she was about to reach out and touch her. But the blonde girl suddenly opened her eyes and took the lead to grab Diana's wrist. Lee. Cough. As soon as Gwen woke up, she called Yali's name out of habit, but what she got in exchange was not a gentle kiss, but a strong gulp of sea water. Only then did she fully wake up, observe her surroundings, and realize that she was in the water. And there is a girl in front of me. Gwen couldn't help but look puzzled. She wanted to ask the girl in front of her how she was doing now, but the current situation was obviously not a good time. Gwen had no choice but to hold Diana's hand and swim with her to the water. After swimming to the surface, Gwen immediately asked Diana, "Hello, where are you? Who are you? Did you see a man and two girls? My name is Diana, and this is Paradise Island. As for the man you are talking about, there has never been a man on our Paradise Island." After Diana answered Gwen's 3 consecutive questions, she asked in turn, "Who are you? How did you fall from the sky? Can you fly?" Gwen was a little confused and didn't know where this Paradise Island was. Look, it should still be on Earth. I hope Healy and the others will not be scattered to different universes. Gwen couldn't help but feel worried, because she also found that she had no clue, all the threads of fate were consumed, and the time and space bracelet she took from the Spider Alliance was nowhere to be found. In other words, she is now unable to travel through time and space. Seeing that Gwen was distracted, Diana stopped asking questions in a hurry. "I'll take you to swim ashore first." With that said, he took the lead and swam to the shore. Gwen hesitated for a moment and swam over. After landing on shore, Diana looked at Gwen with her arms folded across her chest and said, "It's not an option for you to be naked like this. I'll take you to the island to get some clothes to wear." "Will, someone will see it." Gwen's face turned slightly red. "Don't worry, didn't I just say that there are only women on our island? Then, thank you, please, Diana." Gwen nodded in thanks, reached out the golden thread with her fingertips, and used a golden light spell to temporarily cover her body. Although there are only women on this island, she is still embarrassed to be naked in public. Other side, the waters near Paradise Island. A figure suddenly appeared. I almost fell into another time and space again. Fortunately, I reacted quickly enough, otherwise it would be really difficult to get separated from Gwen and the others. Yelixu stood in the air and used 2.7 Destiny Spider Web to sense it. As a result, I did not sense the existence of other spider threads of fate in this universe. How could? Is it a mistake? No, maybe the silk was consumed in the storm. Try sensing psychic shield and see. Yeli had to find another way. Hyun, there was a sound coming from behind. Yeli turned around and looked. He saw an old fighter jet, emitting flames and black smoke, coming towards him. Chapter 419. During World War I, Navy warships. Looking at this style, it looks like something from the First World War. Yeli looked at the plane and muttered to himself, and at the same time raised his hand to unfold the divine force field. Bang! The fighter plane seemed to hit an invisible barrier and immediately exploded, shattering into pieces and falling into the sea. Almost messed up my hair. Yeli withdrew his divine force field and smoothed his hair on his forehead. Just now, I seem to have seen a charred human figure exploded out. It should be the pilot of the fighter jet. He was just a passerby, and he bumped into him by himself. Yeli didn't pay much attention to it. However, the bursting flames of the fighter jet attracted the attention of others. Over there, forward. That pilot 21, over there, I saw the wreckage of the fighter plane. On the foggy sea surface, an antique-style warship slowly sailed out, surrounded by several rowing boats. Whether they were on warships or on hand-drawn boats, they were all wearing gray-green military uniforms and carrying single-shot rifles. Germans. Seeing the military flag hanging on the warship, Yeli recognized who this navy belonged to. At this time, the navy also saw Yeli floating in the air through the fog shrouding the periphery of Paradise Island. They couldn't help but were stunned. What's this? It looks like a person. Who can tell me why he can float in the sky? Is this a new American invention? He's flying over here. Fire! Fire! Bang! 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 The gunshots rang out rapidly and continuously. Bullets flew in a whirlwind, like a slow-motion shot, close to Yelly. Ding! He flicked his finger and playfully deflected a bullet. Then he was too lazy to continue to catch it, and his figure flashed and came behind the navy. Without waiting for the German army to react, Yelly's eyes lit up with golden-orange light, and his spiritual power swept away. Everyone on the warship stopped moving and stood there in a daze. At the same time, Yelly also read their memories and learned that the current world was indeed the First World War. It's okay. It's relatively normal. It's just that it's a little early. Yelly waved his hand, and a Navy man brought a deck chair. He pulled up the chair and lay down on it comfortably. Then, the Navy gradually brought in small tables and plates of seafood and drinks. Yelly was blowing the sea breeze while sensing the existence of the spiritual shield. Gwen and Penny were all subjected to absolute mind shield by him. The spider thread of fate may be consumed, but the shield of the soul will never disappear. Paradise Island, Diana's residence. How about it? Is it suitable? It fits pretty well, but it's a little long. After Gwen put on the clothes given by Diana, she smiled and said, "Because Diana, you are taller. We, the warriors of the Amazon clan, are all like this." Diana brought her another glass of warm water and said with a bright smile, "Come on, the sea water is cold. Drink some warm water to warm your body first. Don't get sick." "Thanks." Gwen thanked her, took the warm water and took a sip, then continued chatting. "Your people are all so tall, so you must be rich in supermodels here." "Supermodel? What is that?" Is there doubt in Diana's eyes? "Don't you know?" Gwen's heart skipped a beat and she asked again, "What about mobile phones, computers, cars? Have you heard of these things?" "Huh? No." Diana was confused and shook her head, indicating that she didn't understand at all. Is this place really ancient? When entering Paradise Island, Gwen felt that the island was like a Greek folk customs utopia. Now I see Diana asking questions and being confused, and I feel even more doubtful and uneasy. Fortunately, at this moment, a familiar and reliable voice sounded in her mind. "Gwen, can you hear me? Leave?" Gwen called out in surprise, her eyes turned into 100 peach blossoms in an instant, and she said sweetly, "I knew it. No matter where I am, you will definitely find me. Far from the best." Okay, don't get too excited. In fact, we had some accidents." "Hey, what accident?" "I only found you, not Gonada and Penny." "You mean, we are all scattered?" Gwen became worried again. "Lee, what should I do now?" "Don't worry, I'll look for it in another way, but I need to concentrate a little more. There shouldn't be any dangerous situation over there for the time being, right?" Gwen looked at Diana who was looking at her curiously, and reassured Yelly, "No, I just met a friend. She is very nice. I am resting at her house now. Little spider, don't be fooled." "Don't worry, Lee, I'm very smart." "Okay, then just stay well, I will come find you in a while." Chapter 420 Search for Divine Consciousness, 3 Speculations. End the psychic communication with Gwen. Yelly sat cross-legged, levitated from the recliner, and floated in midair. The spiritual consciousness centered on him and gradually spread outward. The powerful world weaver godhead allows him to cover the entire ocean with his consciousness without any hindrance, and then spread to the land until he covers the entire world. In this process, he saw wars raging everywhere and innocent refugees displaced. I also saw some of the secrets hidden in this world. There were also a few mysterious beings who tried to shield his perception, but he forcibly broke through. However, there is still no trace of Gonada and Penny. This means, 1. They may have landed in other corners of the universe. 2. It may not be at this time. 3. It may not even land in this universe. Yelly used elimination analysis and quickly eliminated the third item. Because, under the cover of his spiritual consciousness, he discovered, this universe is actually the DC universe. It's out of the scope of the Marvel universe. Before, Yelly happened to wake up at the moment of separation and realized that the time and space energy entangled in Penny and Gonada was no longer enough to leave the universe. That's why the third item was eliminated. Among the remaining 2 items, Yelly preferred the second one. After all, if Gonada and the others were at this point in time, no matter where they were in the universe, he should be able to feel the psychic shield on them. If it fell to another point in time, it would be really difficult to handle. Who knows how many years in the past and future? Yelly frowned and fell back on the recliner. He reached out and took a glass of wine from the table and took a sip. Pfft! The drink spurted out of his mouth. It tastes bad, as expected of the military. Yelly vomited, threw the wine glass into the arms of a soldier, then pulled a crab leg from the dinner plate, stuffed the white crab meat into his mouth, chewed it, and muttered to himself. Well, seafood without nuclear radiation tastes good. Forget it, let's find Gwen first, then the boat will go straight to the bridge. Just as he was talking, the bow of the ship suddenly passed through a transparent barrier, and the front suddenly became clear, and the fog disappeared. Instead, there is a beautiful island. The blue and transparent water, the shallow and reflective beach, and the bright sunshine in the sky. So, without anyone controlling the direction, the warship has been moving slowly and straight forward, and accidentally entered the hidden range of Paradise Island. "Gwen, what are you thinking about?" Diana stared at Gwen's unfocused eyes and asked curiously. Gwen came back to her senses and explained, "Nothing, I was thinking about my boyfriend." "By the way, do you know what boyfriend means?" Diana guessed, "Male friend." "No," Gwen corrected, "boyfriend means lover. They are all useful gifts, but these gifts cannot be strengthened and absorbed as before. The previous naive behavior had already taught Belle a profound lesson, and he did not want to experience the same experience again. Even if you collect 5 of them and you can strengthen them until they are fully broken and then absorb them, you cannot do them all together. You need to find time and do them one by one. At least this is not a time Belle considers safe. It's time to really start strengthening your absorption after you return to the Familia. After taking a breath, Belle could finally calm down and see the situation on the 50th floor. At the moment, the situation on the 50th floor is also quite lively. The breakthrough of the 59th floor is a big news for the Loki Familia, which means that their Familia has finally broken through this level, and the subsequent expedition can continue to launch expeditions to deeper layers. As for another reason for the excitement, naturally it is the werewolf who was deprived of one leg. Did this expedition encounter such a dangerous enemy? Of course. Tiona nodded seriously. This expedition was simply the first experience of dying in so many years. If we had been a little worse in the confrontation, we would definitely not be able to come back this time. These processes themselves should not be talked about. After all, it will have the adverse effect of low morale on the expedition team. However, after the expedition is over and the teams that conquered the fairy spirits have returned safely, these words will not cause low morale. On the contrary, the morale of the entire team will be high because of their bravery in successfully defeating the fairies. Tiona glanced at Cassandra sitting in the corner, and she suddenly smiled. The main reason why we were able to come back alive this time, apart from the hard work of all of us, the biggest credit is Cassandra's. Oh, the realization of everyone around the campfire is concentrated on Cassandra. This newcomer who usually looks a bit gloomy and not very courageous is actually known to everyone, but the person involved seems to be very timid and has not had much chance. Talk nicely. Why? Cassandra, who suddenly became the center of attention, had a look of astonishment on her face. Perhaps it was because the flames of the bonfire were shining on her face. She was a little embarrassed to be looked at by everyone at this time. Tiona knew that Cassandra LA's character, so she took the initiative to take up the topic. If it weren't for Cassandra's powerful skills, we wouldn't be able to formulate a quick and winning battle method based on the enemy's situation. Without Cassandra's abilities, our expedition would be in big trouble this time. This contribution is really great. Tiona usually speaks a little unclearly and likes to exaggerate, but these situations are facts. In this regard, Raoul also added with a little gratitude. The most critical thing about this expedition is Cassandra's ability. If it weren't for her ability, we might not be able to come back. At the same time, Raoul's heart was also burning. I wonder if he has obtained further qualifications for this expedition. This also made Raoul even more grateful to Cassandra. Cassandra, if you have anything to do in the future, call me. As long as I can help, I will definitely do my best. Oh, everyone around the campfire exclaimed. They didn't know what Cassandra's special ability was, but this did not prevent them from believing what Raoul and Tiona said and understood that this time the expedition team could conquer the 59th floor card. Sandra's ability is really great. However, Mr. Bert's legs. Although it is a good thing that the leader and everyone can conquer the 59th floor, Mr. Bert's situation is a very bad thing, right? Serious things were mentioned, and the atmosphere around the campfire also solidified a lot. Everyone has experienced Bert's bad mouth, especially the weak adventurers. But today I saw the werewolf with a bad mouth. Everyone still feels bad about losing a leg. And everyone is not stupid. The leader and others all have flesh wounds, or it is due to the excessive consumption of magic power and physical strength, but only the werewolf lost a leg. This is not fake. Well, Bert's legs are a real nuisance. Level 59 strategy. If he hadn't given up his right leg and launched an almost fatal attack on the fairy, we wouldn't have won the battle so easily. This is a very serious question. Even Tiona had a trace of seriousness on her face. But when she glanced at everyone's depressed faces, she couldn't help laughing. Looking at everyone's incomprehensible eyes, then he started to explain. Generally speaking, this is indeed true. That guy's legs were completely burned to a crisp, and even the battlefield Saint Amide at Asinare couldn't heal him. However, this expedition is completely different from usual. Our family received support from the Hestia family and bought very expensive but very special runestones. As long as this runestone is used, Bert's right leg can be well treated. I think it won't be long before that guy with the bad mouth will return to his usual bad mouth appearance. The ferocious wolf's right leg was completely broken, not fractured. This is because the symptoms of broken hands and feet are not generally serious, and may even lead to the point where it will be impossible to continue to be an adventurer in the future. The most feared thing for adventurers is death. The other option is to lose hands and feet, because such a situation will completely change the life of the adventurer. At this time, I suddenly heard that there was a way to treat amputated limbs. Everyone looked in disbelief. Tiona, does anyone else sell that kind of stuff in Orario? Can even broken limbs be treated? Of course. But that runestone is super expensive. Even if it is sold at a discount, it costs 10 million ferris. Moreover, the runestones are a special supply given to us by the Hestia Familia. They are secret runestones that will never be sold to outsiders. Oh, the eyes of all the adventurers shone. No one thought that the runestones they had been using could have such an effect. 10 million ferris apiece is really expensive, and it can be used with level 1 weapons. The price of the equipment is comparable, but everyone's eyes are still shining. Everyone knows that 10 million ferrous is definitely not expensive compared to breaking off an arm or a foot. You must know that breaking an arm or a foot will directly ruin an adventurer's career. Yes, but now only 10 million ferrous can reverse that tragic fate. Items of this kind of use in Orario are definitely not as cheap as selling for 10 million ferrous. Even if it is one more zero in Orario, it can definitely be sold. But everyone, please be careful, this is an internal secret of our family, don't let it out casually. Everyone around the bonfire looked at each other, and then everyone laughed in unison. Of course it's a secret. How could this kind of thing spread? Such good things must be shared within the clan. If word spread, wouldn't it attract other clans to grab it? Inside the tent, Finn and Riveria looked at the illusory scene of Bert's right leg, and their hearts were filled with emotion. Although this is the second time I've seen it, I still can't understand why amputated limbs can be regenerated. Riverla could only lament that this part of the truth was beyond her understanding. It didn't look like flesh and bones, but something like a phantom limb appeared on the broken leg, but this part of the phantom limb, it shouldn't be used as normal limbs. At least now, Bert doesn't have any control over the phantom limbs. Bert, how do you feel? Feel nothing. The werewolf looked at the phantom limb on his right foot. He didn't have any control over it, but when he moved deeply, the uncontrollable phantom limb also moved with his body. Just like when it broke just now, there is no 930 force, and I can't feel it when I exert force. Yeah. Finn looked at Bert's phantom limb and shook his head slightly. It's not like he didn't know the principle behind it. Maybe Loki will know, but judging from Loki's tone, she will definitely not say anything casually that we shouldn't know. Well, it's Loki after all. Bert didn't think that Loki would obediently tell them the principle of the operation of this runestone. Maybe this part of the principle touched areas that they couldn't touch. Bert snorted and sat on the hospital bed with his hands on his chest. That guy has been like this from the beginning. She will definitely tell us things that we should know, and she will never reveal a word about things that we should not know. According to her, there are some things where it does no good to know more. Finn and Riveria also know this, but they also understand this truth. And Loki conspired with that guy. I'm afraid the fairy we conquered was just a part of their plan. In fact, that guy Loki knew that we had a high chance of survival, so he chose to take the risk. The werewolf is not an imbecile adventurer. He has a violent personality on the surface, but he is a rough and tumble person like Grace. After seeing the unusual aura of the fairy, the werewolf became very clear. He was fooled. When he thought of the aura that the fairy elf exuded at the beginning, the werewolf's instinct as an orc noticed a very important problem. They couldn't win. It was not a conclusion he came to because he was swallowed up by the aura of the fairy elf. It was a conclusion that they came to after confirming the momentum of the fairy and temporarily raising themselves to LV6 after being strengthened. But the final result was that they won, and the victory was an accident. Yes. Of course Finn also understood what Bert noticed. In fact, he went there with the determination to die in the previous battle, but he didn't expect that the final result would be so dramatic. Loki must have made certain considerations before he could make such a decision. She does not set our ability to pass this test as a goal. The test itself is just whether we can use all our trump cards to face it and spell out that glimmer of hope. Maybe it wasn't Bert's magic that accidentally hit the core of the fairy. We should be like what Cassandra saw. Only when we are pushed to the limit will we get a chance to win. It is an opportunity given by others. Bert added angrily, but Finn sighed, unable to refute. Therefore, in Cassandra's precognitive dream, she will see Mr. Bell appearing on the 59th floor. He didn't go there to show Loki and the others this battle, but simply to set up the 59th floor as a trial site. Although they had guessed such a result, the fairies they faced were still not vegetarians. At least they showed strength far beyond theirs. LV7, or even close to LV8 strength. When I think of them facing the trial was like this. Even Finn felt decadent and powerless. Although I overestimated Mr. Bell's ability, I didn't expect that he could even deal with the problem of fairies. We can even use fairies to set up such a big stage for us, making us feel like clowns on this stage. To say he is a clown may be a compliment to them. To read Bao's Huang novels, go to Filu Novel Network. At least the clown knows that he is playing a clown, but they don't know anything. He is just like a temporary target. The assigned clown was pressed on the stage and watched their instinctive reactions on the stage. Although this statement is slightly pessimistic, these words also express some of the resentment deep in Finn's heart. But Riveria is not as emotional as Finn. She is better at looking at problems from an objective perspective. Finn, what you're saying is a little too emotional. Considering the results, this is a mutually beneficial situation. This is not a charity, it is a transaction. The reason why Mr. Bell made such an arrangement may be because he also had a reason to do so. For example, God Freya. Finn was stunned for a moment, then he reacted immediately after being reminded by Riveria, but then he shook his head helplessly. I had even forgotten that God Hestia and God Freya are still antagonistic. God Freya is always keeping an eye on Mr. Bell. No wonder Mr. Bell is so anxious to use this method to trade with Loki. He wants us to grow up so that the Loki familia has the strength to confront the Freya familia. This answer made Finn cover his face speechlessly. Good guy, no wonder he felt weird before. He wondered why Bell was so interested in participating in this expedition. His love was to avoid God Freya. But thinking about the God Freya, Finn felt that he could understand Bell's desire to hide. That God Freya is not someone who gives up easily. Even if she made an agreement with God Hestia, she would probably use other methods to get close to Belle. Facing the powerful god Freya, Belle chose to create a family that could compete with the Freya family. Finn finally understood why this expedition would face so many excitements. It turned out that this expedition had been filled with buffs from very early on. Sigh. Even though I was tricked, at least the result was good. After sighing helplessly, Finn could no longer face this matter with resentment. As Riveria said, in fact, this is a deal. No matter what, Belle's arrangement is still let them take that step. The next morning, preparations for the return journey had already begun in the safety zone on the 50th floor. The first and second teams of the Loki Familia began to make preparations and would start rushing back with their luggage at noon. After a night of training, Bird's broken right foot has returned to its original state, but he still limps when walking. It seems that it still takes time to adapt to the reborn foot. Mr. Burt. As soon as Burt walked out of the tent, he was slapped in the face by the goblin girl. What? The werewolf had some helplessness on his face. This little girl was always around Isai in the past. Why is she around him today? Mr. Burt, your foot has recovered. You can see it with your eyes. These words made Leffia choke on the spot for a while. After waiting for a while, Burt still didn't hear this little girl speak, so he turned around and prepared to leave. His own tent also needed someone to deal with it. Burt is not a pampered person. He needs to deal with his own things by himself. This can be regarded as his own habit. Please wait, Mr. Burt. What's the matter with you? He got up early in the morning and was intercepted. When he was about to leave, he was intercepted again. Burt felt that he had dealt with it with a very aggressive tone, but the goblin still came over. That means something was wrong. Looking at Leffia, he was hesitant to speak for a moment, but Burt's face showed a rare expression of patience. And Leffia also made some mental preparations during this time, took a deep breath and then bent down deeply. Requested. Mr. Burt, I'd like you to help me with my exercises. Huh? Wouldn't it be better if you just go to Ace? Burt didn't expect Leffia to suddenly do something like this, but he is not a person who is good at teaching. Maybe it would be better to leave this kind of thing to Isai. No, please ask Ace-san. Maybe I won't be able to learn parallel chanting properly. Leffia now understands that if she wants to learn parallel chanting, all she needs to do is to abandon those distracting thoughts in the past. Otherwise she will not be able to learn parallel chanting no matter how hard she tries. After this trial, Leffia already understands enough what a frontline magician needs to do. Even if she is not proficient in melee combat, it must not become a weakness. As a fort magician, she needs to grasp this deterrent effect. But she still cannot do these two things well now. It's even very bad. It's impossible to do parallel chanting. As soon as you start to move, the chanting will stop. There is no way to match the rhythm of the chanting with your body movements. After witnessing the high-end battles, Leffia deeply understood that a magician must master parallel chanting. If she cannot master parallel chanting, then she will always be a third-rate magician, and will never be able to give everyone the best on the front line. Help. Burt saw that Leffia was serious, and the corners of his mouth raised slightly. He didn't hate motivated rookies at all, but there were some things he needed to explain to this pampered elf in advance. It's okay to play with you, but don't think that I will be merciful to you like Ace, and be prepared to be beaten. Yes. Leffia didn't back down at all. At this moment, she knew very well what she wanted, so she couldn't stand still. Moving on was her only choice. The combination of these two people is really rare. Belle, who was hiding aside, looked at the combination of elves and werewolves with slight surprise. One is a frontline warrior who focuses on speed, and the other is a fort magician who focuses on magic. It is difficult to imagine how these two people can be combined together. But if the fort magician can control his weaknesses, then this elf may really be able to take over the 9 Demon Queens class. Belle didn't stay outside for too long and went straight to Finn's side. But when Belle looked for it, there were already 3 pillars of Loki inside the tent. Belle did not go in directly, but gently knocked on the pillar outside the tent. Knock knock knock. Come in. To read exciting novels, go to Philo Novel Network. In the tent, Finn was sitting in the center, and Grace and Riveria were sitting on both sides. The 3 of them looked at the young man who walked in with complicated eyes. It was this boy who controlled the trajectory of all of them. Belle didn't care so much about the looks of the 3 of them. Instead, he congratulated with a kind smile. It's really unimaginable that Captain Finn could lead his team to retreat in the face of such a powerful enemy. Although I said these words a little late, I still need to congratulate Captain Finn for successfully passing the trial of God Loki. Yes, I really didn't expect that I could come back alive yesterday. Where is this? I think Commander Finn should know your position and seize all the intelligence and trump cards, so that you can get out of this fatal situation. Belle persuaded Finn seriously not to say such depressing words. All of this is the result of hard work, and it is not a coincidence. You can really say that? Finn's face twitched a few times, even though he knew that this person would he would pretend that he didn't know, but he didn't expect that this person would pretend so thoroughly. Cough. Riveria coughed slightly and took up the topic. At the same time, there was a look of horror on her face that could not be concealed. Mr. Bell, actually we were all frightened by the strength of the fairy yesterday. We had planned our tactics at first, but we didn't expect that the aura released by the fairy spirits was far greater than that of us who were blessed by Heroine's magic. Well, I think this is too much. Bell also had some anger on his face, as if he was fighting for the injustice of the members of the Loki family who participated in the expedition. In fact, I also felt the problem from the side. According to my speculation about the strength of that fairy spirit, he should have reached the height of LV.8. I also didn't expect that the fairy would choose to lose himself, so that his 827 strength would rise rapidly, allowing himself to reach the same height as his main body in a short period of time. LV.8. Although I had some guesses, I didn't expect that the answer was really LV.8, not 1V.7. Thinking about it like this, the three of Finn felt that they could hit the fairy by chance yesterday. The core of it may be that the luck they have accumulated over the years has collided. But all this should be a conspiracy of the dark faction. They have prepared so many magic stones for the fairies, and they must be hoping that the fairies can keep you key members here. Perhaps it was the dark sect that had done some tricks behind the scenes, which caused such an accident to happen to the fairy. This kind of irresponsible blame-shifting behavior made Finn and the other two people not sure what to say. If the dark faction really had such means, maybe their Loki family would have been destroyed by the dark faction long ago, just like the Australia Familia. Indeed, this seems like the behavior of a dark faction. When I go back, I will definitely advise Loki to conquer the dark faction. No need for that. In fact, the Black Dragon incident had a great impact on Orario, and now the gods speculate that the dark faction stimulated the Black Dragon, so the dark faction has become a hostile force against Orario. Bell will no longer hide this information. After all, the mission of the expedition team is over now, and they can also know the situation on the ground. Orario's divine meeting passed a resolution against the dark faction, and now the dark faction is like a rat crossing the street in Orario. In addition, the guild has also issued a bounty order for the dark faction. As long as the identity of the other dark faction is confirmed, the bounty will be borne by the guild. In addition, even the right to kill gods has been delegated. This result surprised all three of Fen. Even the right to kill gods has been delegated? Is the guild so sure that it was the dark faction that stimulated the Black Dragon? I think Captain Finn may have thought wrong about this issue. Bell suddenly interrupted, causing Finn to be slightly startled, with confusion written all over his face. Mr. Bell, why do you say that? What the guild needs is never clear evidence, but an excuse recognized by the gods. Looking at the incomprehensible looks from several people, Bell gave his own explanation. The dark factions are making more and more moves in Orario, and they can even get involved with the fairies, which is a bad result for Orario. The guild was very unhappy to see such a result, so the excitement of the Black Dragon gave the guild a good enough reason to take action. One thing that is clear now is that there are main gods of the dark faction among the gods, and their existence will bring great resistance to the crusade against the dark faction. But if the dark faction touches the bottom line of the gods, then the dark faction must stand on the opposite side of Orario. If opposition arises, the assembly may be forced to send back some gods. But when he said this, Bell also paused. Although I also think that the guild wants to hide something by launching a resolution to crusade against the dark faction so quickly, but this result is something that all the gods would like to see. As for what the guild is deliberately trying to cover up, it actually doesn't matter anymore. Indeed so? Finn also understands the meaning of these words. The guild must have put a lot of thought into launching this resolution in such a hurry. The several points mentioned by Bell just now may be the reason why the guild quickly implemented this resolution, but that's all. As Bell said, it doesn't matter what the reason is. The reason is no longer that important. The key is now that the dark faction has officially stood against Orario. The guild issued a bounty. For the sake of money, I am afraid that countless adventurers will start to report those adventurers who are suspected of being a dark faction, and soon Orario's dark faction will completely lose their space for activities. It's just that Finn suddenly looked at Bell and asked with a serious look on his face. Mr. Bell, I remember you said before that the fairies grew to that point because of the help of the dark faction. That's indeed what I said. So, did the dark faction that was sanctioned in Orario quickly reach out to us? That's right. Bell smiled and nodded slightly, and said with some anger in his voice. In fact, when I went to the 59th floor, the energy obtained by the fairy was not very much. At that time, it only reached the peak of level 5. But when I went to investigate the situation for the second time, I found that there were a lot of magic stones around the fairy. Some of them were obtained by Giant Flower and Acid Worm in the deep layers, but more of them should have been gathered together by the dark faction. As for their purpose, I think it should be leave all the vitality of the Loki Familia in the dungeon. Finn's face was very ugly when he said this. He was very sure that those magic stones definitely existed. After all, fairies need to obtain enough energy to grow. This is like a lot of strengthening. And before many actions of the fairies also illustrate this point, so the fairies need a lot of energy to become a threat to them. Not only they understand this, but the dark factions who cooperate with the fairies also understand it very well. Just from Bell learned from Orario that the dark faction had regarded the dark faction as an enemy that needed to be conquered. After that, the dark faction came directly to attack their Loki Familia. Isn't this obvious? This is because they want to put high-end products before the official war begins. Part of the combat power has been completely eliminated. To read exciting novels, go to Philo Novel Network. And considering that the Dark Sect has become a street rat in Orario, and has been denounced and rewarded by the guild in the Gods Guild, then it is even more certain that the organization that secretly collects magic stones for the fairies is the Dark Faction. In the past, those dark factions did not reach out to them, and Finn did not care so much. But now that the dark faction has taken the initiative to help them, they have already reached out, so if they don't give a certain response, it would be a shame for the actions of the dark faction. That's it. Bell is very happy that Captain Finn can analyze this point. In addition, he also needs to tell Captain Finn some other news. When I discovered that a large number of magic stones appeared around the ferry, God Loki was also there to witness the whole process. And I have also reminded God Loki to investigate which familia have purchased a large amount of magic stones. I think God Loki should tell you the list after you go back. I see. Finn had some understanding on his face. He was very sure of the information Bell gave them, and he did not doubt the authenticity of what he just said. With Loki's ability, he should be able to investigate some clues. Acquisition of a large number of magic stones in a short period of time will be noticed no matter how careful you are, let alone a temporary acquisition, which will inevitably leave more clues. However, I think those familia should be marginal familia, and they are probably sacrifices thrown by the dark faction. Bell naturally knew this, but he smiled indifferently. Captain Finn, it doesn't matter what the specifics are. The main thing is that someone needs to take action now and someone needs to be a role model for Orario adventurers. Maybe the final targets are just some small characters launched by the dark faction, but as long as the entire Nanyo Zhao family is slaughtered, and even the gods among them kill the dark faction, I think the entire Orario adventurers will have more courage to kill the gods. Don't show mercy when the critical moment comes because the other party is a god. These words made Finn look at Bell with a slightly complicated look. Among them, killing gods is what you want to see, Mr. Bell. In the past, only the dark faction would do such things, but if Orario's adventurers can also do this, and then the dark faction may completely explode. Finn is very sure that there are only two results. Either the dark faction will choose the most cruel method to fight back, or the dark faction will choose to temporarily hide away from it. Edge. But Finn instinctively felt that the dark faction would choose the former. Therefore, he will soon face an all-out war with the dark faction. So, once again, congratulations to the three of you for successfully breaking through the level 6 barrier and entering the level 7 realm. Bell once again sent his blessings. Originally I was supposed to accompany the expedition team, but I have a few things to attend to here, so please forgive me for not being able to continue accompanying them on the way back. In addition, I also observed that the situation in the dungeon is slowly improving. I think the dungeon is about to deal with the impact of the Black Dragon. 2 days. I estimate that the dungeon will once again become a breeding ground for monsters in 2 more days. Please pay attention to safety on the way back. Finn really didn't expect Bell to be ready to go back, but what he didn't expect even more was that the situation in the dungeon was about to change. Indeed. A long time has passed, and even if the dungeon was affected by the Black Dragon, it should be restored. The recovery of the dungeon is not surprising to Finn. Even if the Black Dragon is indeed many times more dangerous than imagined, there is also some relationship between the dungeon and the Black Dragon. The Black Dragon will not cause irreparable damage to the dungeon. The dungeon's recovery is actually a natural result, and such a long downtime has given their expedition team a lot of help. The fact that monsters will not be reborn along the way is the greatest help to them, so that they do not have to face the most dangerous monsters in the dungeon. Feast. And it was also because of the downtime of the dungeon that they were able to rest on the 54,038th floor for such a long time. If the dungeon continued to operate, maybe they would lose a place to take a breath after they were lucky enough to defeat the fairy. Mr. Bell, say hello to God Hestia for me. To thank you afterwards, please wait until we return to visit you in person. I will pass your words on to. Bell nodded slightly, then turned around and disappeared from the eyes of the 3 of them. After waiting for a while, the 3 of them relaxed. I didn't expect that the Black Dragon would have such a big impact. Yes. It seems that the gods are far more afraid of the Black Dragon than we previously imagined. Loki never mentioned this matter. Well, it's Loki after all, so he probably thinks we shouldn't know or something. Finn also knows Loki's character. Although the main god is usually very unpredictable, he is unexpectedly reliable at critical times. It's not just about the fairy incident this time. In fact, there are many experiences in the past that prove it. This point. Gods deal with gods' affairs, while adventurers deal with adventurers' affairs. This is a rule that all gods and adventurers will abide by. Taking advantage of the last 2 days, we must return to the ground as soon as possible. Now that he was told that the dungeon would turn back into a hotbed of monsters in 2 days, Finn also decided to return to the surface before that day officially arrived. Riverla is a little worried about the current situation in Orario. If the Dark Faction has now become the enemy of all adventurers in Orario, then the Dark Faction may soon start to take action. If the Dark Faction really starts to take action, Loki's safety will also be a big problem. Maybe when we continue to explore dungeons in the future, we can't arrange all our combat forces into the dungeons. Yes. Finn also feels that some safety preparations need to be made. Those guys from the Dark Faction are all god-killing bastards. Those lunatics don't care about anything else. Even if they commit suicide with their enemies and die together with them, those lunatics will do it. It can be done. For Loki's safety, some preparations need to be made before future expeditions. Until the affairs of the Dark Faction are settled, even if Loki wants to go out in the future, we will have to arrange for someone to protect him. Orario is no longer a safe place. Speaking of this, Finn sighed with Belle's safety awareness. We need to worry about such problems, but Mr. Bell does not worry about such problems. For the safety of God Hestia, the barrier was even made like that. I think the safest place in the entire Orario is the family of God Hestia. There are barriers and traps outside, but it's a good place inside with the singing of birds and the fragrance of flowers. As a livable place, it is simply the safest harbor for the gods. But Grace also quickly raised a very practical question. Even if it's safe there, I guess that child won't let other gods enter easily. After all, that child has a high sense of safety and will never put unsafe gods inside easily, BCFH. That's true. If you think about it carefully, this is the same thing. To read Bao's Huang novels, go to Filu Novel Network. The most dangerous ones in Orario are the gods of the dark faction hidden among the gods. Since the gods are the most unsafe among Orario is naturally not one of those welcomed by Belle. If Loki can go in, we don't have to worry about safety issues. These words made Reveria roll her eyes immediately, and she sighed helplessly. If Loki moves in, maybe we have to worry about whether Loki will harass God Hestia every day. Finn could already picture in his mind the scene where Loki and God Hestia would meet and sparks would fly. He could only take it back with an embarrassed smile. In the end he could only sigh. Loki's matter is put aside for now, the key now is to get back to the ground as soon as possible. We should remember what the dark faction did. Finn's voice was a little deeper. Reveria and Grace's eyes were also a little darker. The debt for helping the fairies collect magic stones must be recorded on the head of the dark faction. Finn, what about after capturing those familia? Finn's face had a strong murderous intent. Since it is cannon fodder released by the dark faction, of course it must be completely eradicated. Finn may have some thoughts about not being too cruel to other members of the family, but he will never have so many naive thoughts when facing the dark faction. He must use harsh words when facing the dark faction. Just because they helped the fairy collect magic stones as complementary energy, we cannot let them go easily. If we hadn't been insured for this trial, maybe we really would have all stayed in the dungeon. Even if this trial is arranged, such a trial is not absolutely safe. Fairies are just a platform that Loki gives us to cross levels, rather than a stable platform for us to cross over. Even if it was arranged, that fairy is definitely aiming to kill us. Grace is also very sure of this statement. As the adventurer with the strongest defense in the team, he can also clearly feel through his skin how strong the killing intent of the fairy is against them every time. Elf, don't you dare. Who are you talking about? Dwarf. The elves also have a vindictive mentality. Even if they are said to be the best educated royal family, Reveria is not generous enough to show mercy to the dark sect who plans to kill them. And, did I say those adventurers? I'm talking about killing gods. Finn was silent for a moment, then made a decision. Meeting the eyes of Reveria and Grace, Finn's eyes were filled with determination. This is a resolution agreed by the gods, and even the guild has approved this resolution, so what do we have to worry about? And our position is that of a guild. When we discover gods, what we need to do is not to be timid, but to act decisively and kill the gods of the dark faction. After bidding farewell to the three pillars of the Loki familia, Belle immediately returned to the stronghold. After confirming the internal layout of the stronghold and the external safety, he immediately returned to the Hestia familia stronghold outside the world through the spatial coordinates. Looking at the sky shrouded in black night and feeling the interior of the space filled with spiritual energy, Belle rarely let down his guard. He threw his cloak, gloves, and mask into the four-dimensional space, and arrived at the door of the house in his usual attire. It's been half a month. Thinking about it, it's been a long time. It's also the first time he's been away from Hestia for such a long time. Usually he only goes to the dungeon and comes back in the evening of the same day, and then it's only the next morning, but this time the expedition lasted for more than half a month. It really took a long time. I gently opened the door and heard Hestia's voice. You guys stole my snacks. Belle's face twitched, and a red-haired goddess with a poor body flashed in his mind. Cut. Just eat something from you? Is there any need to be so excited? That's what my kids prepared for me? Don't you yourself eat what's in your home? Then I have to go back and get it, which is troublesome. Listening to the noise, and after the rare emotional fluctuations, Belle felt that it was not bad for Hestia to have such a bad friend as Loki. Well, at least he avoided the boredom of staying at home. Belle. Just when Belle was about to walk in, he saw a streak of blood red coming out from the other side of the entrance. From the direction, it looked like he was coming out of the bedroom. Before Belle could think about it, the streak of red had already come. When she arrived in front of him, she held him in her arms. The maternal breath filled Belle's breath, making him feel the warmth from home. I'm back, Hephaestus. Welcome back, Belle. Seeing the big boy greedily pressing his face to her chest, Hephaestus smiled softly. Resting his chin on Belle's shoulder, Hephaestus also rarely felt that peace. Feeling. They still spent too little time together, and they had just established their relationship and had to face the problem of the expedition. Even now, Hephaestus still felt that Orario's troubles were too much, so it ended expedition. Things about the dark faction will come soon, and there will be trouble from Freya. After Hermes sent the news about Freya, Hephaestus suddenly felt she has a headache. She can see how cruel Freya is to her, and she doesn't leave any way out for herself. What's even worse is Freya's current identity and position. Thinking of these headaches, Hephaestus had a look of discomfort on his face. If possible, she really hoped that Freya would not get involved. The relationship between the three of them was already very crowded, and there really was no room for Freya. Belle, we're in big trouble this time. Belle, who was still feeling the warmth of home, suddenly couldn't feel relaxed anymore. He stood up helplessly in his motherly arms. I know. This time I was too careless and gave God Freya a chance. You already know. I really can't help but know. Belle smiled bitterly and told Hephaestus about his experience. Hephaestus's eyes widened. She didn't expect that Freya would pull Belle's soul into the soul world across a dungeon. Are you okay? Not charmed by Freya's power. Belle nodded slightly. Although he didn't know what was going on, he didn't seem to be affected in any way. I didn't feel anything strange. My thinking ability and judgment ability have not been changed. I think it is not affected by the god Freya. That would be strange. The soul world is where everyone's soul is, and it is also the deepest expression of personal will. To read Bao's Huang novels, go to Philo Novel Network. That place has the greatest impact on people, especially Freya. Once this kind of beauty god enters the soul world of a child in the lower world, its own power will have an indelible impact on the child's will. Of course, this is also something that the gods are expressly prohibited from doing. This kind of twisted human beings, the deeds require the use of power, and once the power is used, the divine power will be released, and the god will be forcibly sent back to the heaven. Even if the gods can enter the spiritual world of the children in the lower world, they can easily send themselves back to the heaven. In addition, their own existence will affect the spiritual world of the children in the lower world, thus causing the mental breakdown and distortion of the children in the lower world. Such an approach is not beneficial in any sense. Zero asking for flowers. It's just that Freya actually did it. Hephaestus SI was really scared just now. However, after confirming Belle's safety and his own will that was not affected, Hephaestus also felt that Belle's situation was very strange. Hephaestus simply analyzed. It's not that Freya doesn't want to influence you, it's that you are not influenced by her at all. That guy probably took this hand as a measure of your situation. The soul of any child in the lower world will be affected by the gods, and Freya has been looking for that special child. She probably decided to do this after she was sure it was you. Hephaestus also had to admit that Freya was very courageous, but her eyes were full of anger after sighing, and she even bit her molars and couldn't help but cursed. That crazy woman. Then there was a burst of fear in my heart, and I hugged Belle tightly with both hands. Gods will affect the will of children in the lower world, and even completely distort the rationality of children in the lower world. That crazy woman knew the worst outcome and still did it. At this moment, Belle realized what Freya had done. But surprisingly, he didn't have any anger in his heart. Perhaps it was because he confirmed that he had not been harmed by Freya. God's influence. Maybe it's because I saw something I've never seen before. Or maybe it's because the three concepts follow the five senses. Belle thinks it should be all these reasons. It was at this moment that Belle slowly let go of the stone in his heart. This stone has always been weighing on Belle's heart, ever since she became an adventurer, ever since she became the mistress of abundance. But at this moment, the stone completely disappeared. This made Belle hug Hephaestus and comfort him. Don't worry about Hephaestus. God Freya's actions confirmed many things for me, and the most important one is that I am not affected by her. This is what Belle thinks is the most important point. The biggest problem with God Freya is the effect her power has on me. But now if I know that the power of God Freya has no influence on me, then the power of God Freya to intimidate me will plummet. In the past, what Belle was most worried about was that he would be spotted by God Freya because of what he had seen. For this reason, Belle had always remained mysterious in the past, trying to minimize his chances of showing his face in public, thereby reducing the chance of being targeted. God Freya saw some clues of risks. After all, Belle does not have the magical ability to resist charm. It is necessary to be more worried. But now this worry can finally be put down. Although he does not know what is happening in his soul world. What the hell is going on with that wall? But being able to block the influence of power is a good thing. However, Freya made a desperate move, which eliminated the situation where you planned the confrontation between her and Luo 550G. Originally, this was a good situation. As long as Loki and Freya faced off, Belle could be given some time to grow up. This was the situation Belle expected. But this situation was completely overturned, because Freya Yashin's decision made the confrontation between the Loki familia and the Freya familia completely impossible. This is where Hephaestus feels troubled now. Yes, God Freya's choice exceeded my guess. Belle also has a headache for such a change. He is not yet well prepared. It is still a little early for level 4 to actually jump out. That is because it is still too early, so Belle hopes to bring Loki raising the strength of the three pillars of the familia, or even the overall strength level of the Loki familia. Only when the strength levels of Orario's two kings reach the same level can there be a confrontation between them. After all, only families of comparable strength would have such a phenomenon. Not a big problem. The biggest problem before was the power of God Freya and the strength of Freya's family. However, after half a year, my strength has been leveled a lot. Now I know that the power of God Freya has no impact on me. Even if I cannot achieve the original idea, it will not have much impact. Although he said that, Hephaestus still heard some helplessness. She knew that Belle still needed time to grow up. It took half a year for Belle to grow from 0 to the current level 4. He was already riding a rocket. Even if Belle possesses 2 powers, it is really difficult to defeat the Freya Familia across levels without being able to fully utilize the power. What to do? The disrupted plan made Hephaestus a little worried about Belle. The current situation is quite acceptable. I think God Freya can save the extra thought after confirming that the power is ineffective on me. As for the suppression by force, maybe I am still no match for the fierce, but I will never be stopped when I want to run away. Therefore, God Freya would never choose to use force unwisely. Belle is very sure that after his power is invalidated, God Freya will not continue to think of using coercive means to kidnap him, but will use circumstantial means. Now he can already imagine the methods God Freya will use. Got it. Next, God Freya should be planning to use her relationship with the same force to take action against me, right? Did you guess it? Belle sighed. Even if he doesn't want to guess it, it won't work. Regardless of forced methods, this is the only method God Freya can use. Use the influence brought by joining the guild to gain some special rights from the guild. This is the only benefit that God Freya can get after making this choice. Even Belle, who is belatedly aware of this, knows this. What is there that God Freya would not choose? So, even if God Freya, Belle wouldn't feel weird at all if someone from the guild invites him. It's not a joke to say the words after that outside. Belle is also well prepared to meet the God Freya. Watch The Storm. For cool novels, go to Fila Novel Network. Although Belle really doesn't want to meet God Freya, it's a pity that his choice will not be adopted. However, the key lies in another point. If I don't go, there's no way to predict what crazy moves the God Freya will do. Yes. Hephaestus also approved of Belle's judgment. Freya is the kind of god who is willing to resort to any means to achieve her goals, which can be seen from her previous actions. Although most of the children in her family chose to be loyal to her because they were attracted by her beauty, the choices she made recently made it difficult for Hephaestus to regard Freya as a normal person, treated by gods. Although Hephaestus also hoped that Belle would not meet Freya, if he didn't meet, maybe the next time he met would be to stand directly opposite Orario. In order to avoid something like that happening, we can only choose to compromise. I really don't want you to see Freya. There was only reluctance on Hephaestus's face. Unfortunately, she couldn't stop it and could only choose to compromise here. There is nothing I can do. However, God Freya probably hopes to establish a long-term relationship with me when we meet this time. Isn't that troublesome? It is very troublesome, but there is no way to avoid such things in the future. The dark factions will definitely join forces when they besiege Orario, and they don't want to come into contact with God Freya now. Belle also looked helpless. If all the dark factions had high-end combat power, then he might be able to sweep the entire dark faction by himself, as long as he reached LV.5. But the problem is that the dark faction, there are a lot of lunatics among the factions. Once they move from all directions, he can't take care of it alone. And Belle also knows very well that the lunatics of those dark factions will never really launch a war against Orario. A bunch of people gather together to take action. That kind of behavior is looking for death. What those rats are best at is digging holes. 3.3 When they launch a war, they will definitely act in the area they are best at. Where can a bunch of people gather together and wait for people to kill them? Hephaestus frowned, and she became even more irritable towards the dark faction. However, Belle still restrained this helplessness. But I think God Freya will be more restrained, although it is just my personal hope. Snort. Hephaestus sneered and snorted, making her believe that Freya would restrain herself, which was like a sow climbing a tree. But after venting his emotions on that situation, Hephaestus SI still lowered his head a little unhappy. Before you go to meet Freya, make up for what you've been missing these days. Hestia glared angrily at Loki, the thief. This guy specifically stole the snacks Belle had prepared for her. He was simply here to quarrel with her. Lord God. Mr. Belle. Hestia, who was still angry just now, immediately turned around in surprise when she heard the sound, and immediately jumped on the owner of the sound at a speed that Loki could not understand. Go ahead, this speed is so fast. Loki's eyes went straight at this speed. Well, Mr. Belle, you are finally back. I'm back, Lord God. The disgust between these two people made Loki frown. It would be great if my children and I were so close. She knew very well about the little dwarf's thoughts, and the little dwarf was also very lucky, and he happened to bump into him. She fell in love with a child who was devoted to her, and this alone made Loki extremely envious. Although she had quite a few children in her family, there was no one who could get her started. Loki's requirements for children were extremely high. For the first time, Reveria and Lefia were both in line with her interests. Unfortunately, those two children were very guarded against her. In the past, Lefia would have been easier to attack. After all, she was a soft-tempered elf girl. But ever since Lefia started to become stronger, she is not as easy to attack as before. As for Ace, it makes her cry just thinking about Loki's children. With tears on her face, she hoped to find some children she liked to post posts with, but none of her own children had that kind of interest. Boy, why did you come back by yourself? Naturally, it's because the expedition team has nothing to do with me anymore. Belle, who was holding Hestia, shrugged slightly. The purpose of the expedition has been fully achieved. Captain Finn and the others must have surpassed their original level, and the other members who participated in the crusade have also achieved corresponding great achievements. Under such circumstances, is it necessary for me to continue to stay in the expedition team? It can be said that the purpose of this expedition has been successfully achieved, and it is almost a very successful expedition. The Loki family's purpose of promotion has been achieved, and Belle's purpose of achieving greatness has also been achieved, and even the fairy spirit has been obtained. A part of the soul can be said to be full of harvest. If God Freya cannot be discovered, maybe this expedition will be perfect. Why don't you pretend to be nice? God Loki, I also have to pretend. Facing Loki's complaints, Belle could only sigh helplessly. Facing Loki's puzzled eyes, Belle could only repeat what he had just said to Hephaestus. Hearing at these words, Loki's eyes widened and he even screamed. Is that woman really crazy? The power controlled by the gods can easily distort the will of the children from the lower world, especially in the soul world of the children from the lower world. At this moment, the fate of the world rests on Belle alone. If his will is distorted, the world will maybe it's going to be over. What that woman did was completely selfish, without considering anything else, or even the future of the world. Belle didn't know how to answer this, but he also understood what God Freya did. What a crazy thing. Especially after knowing that gods in the soul world of children in the lower world may distort the will of the person concerned. That woman is absolutely crazy. To read exciting novels, go to Philo Novel Network. Hestia's pretty face is also dark. She really wants to give Freya a big pussy now, and wants to see if her brain is the string was broken, and he would do such an outrageous thing. While being angry, Hestia also suddenly remembered something important. Mr. Bell, you weren't influenced by that woman, were you? Bell shook his head slightly. Maybe it's because my soul world has certain special characteristics, and I haven't been affected by God Freya yet. Hestia stared at Belle's eyes carefully, and then breathed a sigh of relief after confirming that they were not charmed. Although her child was not affected by Freya, such behavior scared her quite a bit. Loki looked at Belle for a while, and after confirming that he was not affected, he remained silent for a moment, and then breathed a sigh of relief. I finally know why that woman is staring at you so persistently. Maybe you are really the person that nymphomaniac has been looking for. Children who can resist charm also exist, but absolutely no child can resist the power of the god of beauty in the soul world. The soul world of children in the lower world is a space that is not affected by abnormal resistance. It is the depth of the soul of the child in the lower world. It is the place closest to the heart of the child in the lower world, and it is also the most vulnerable place. If you cannot be affected by the charm in the soul world, then only special children who are resistant to power. Loki knows that Freya has always been looking for a child with this characteristic is Freya's destined encounter. Pfft. Loki couldn't help but burst out laughing. Oh my god, now that Freya knows that the child she is destined to meet is yours, won't she be depressed to death? The child you were desperately looking for in the lower world was picked up by you. 450 Moreover, this child who picked up the leak made her miss the first time. She even let the child grow up for half a year and missed the best opportunity to take action. That guy will definitely regret it after knowing these things, and even regret it to the point of crying to death. This is really a funny thing. The child that Freya tried so hard to find in the lower world turned out to be from the dwarf family. Even though Freya has confirmed this now, she is still far away from her best move. Too much time has passed. After you said that, Hestia's dark face eased a little, and then she imagined Freya's dark face but helpless look in her mind, and she couldn't help but feel happy. Freya is indeed miserable. The encounter she was looking forward to became her child, and she even accepted the love from her and Hephaestus. But Freya had nothing, and she couldn't even use her power to charm Belle. It seemed that Freya was quite aggrieved. But I will not sympathize with Freya. Hestia snorted. Even if Freya was miserable, she would not have any sympathy. That woman is definitely thinking of a plan to take Belle away from me. How can she succeed?
Hello, everyone! As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500+ novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.